Imagine waking up as a tiny kid after getting kidnapped, only to hear a grown man casually warning his son not to accidentally blow you away. We kick off with this silver-haired boy getting a stern lecture from his dad about treating our little MC like fragile glass. The poor guy looks totally bewildered, wondering who this random kid even is, while our main girl slowly opens her eyes with zero clue about what's going on. Next thing she knows, she pops up in bed gasping for air, completely panicked as someone calls her a little fluff ball. Honestly, who wouldn't freak out finding themselves in a strange bed? Turns out, she's sitting right in front of the legendary White Tiger clan, the literal guardians of the West in the Taewa Kingdom, all standing around her bed like a whole welcoming committee. As she clutches the blanket, reality finally hits her like a freight train, and she realizes she isn't dreaming anymore. Flashback time, she suddenly remembers getting snatched up the night before by this insanely handsome white-haired guy. I mean, if you're gonna get kidnapped, at least the captor has top-tier visuals. Let's break down the world building real quick. Welcome to the Taewa Kingdom, a mystical land populated entirely by beaskin, from cute little squirrels to full-on roaring tigers. At the very top of the food chain sits the mysterious imperial family, ruling over the realm with absolute, unquestioned authority from their golden throne. Guarding the realm are 4 mega-powerful clans representing the legendary cardinal beasts, starting with the Azure Dragon of the East and the ferocious White Tiger of the West. Then you've got the Vermilion Bird holding down the south and the Black Tortoise guarding the icy north, each inheriting the raw divine blood of ancient beasts. Talk about an overpowered lineup. We pan out to this breathtaking red and gold palace rising into the clouds, the official stronghold of the Vermilion Bird clan, and man, the background artist really went all out here. Outside, the servants are gossiping hard because the clan leader himself walked in carrying his little daughter, refusing to let her go for even a single second. Petals fall like a movie scene as the Lord cradles his youngest daughter down the grand staircase, treating her like an absolute royal princess. She flashes him the sweetest smile ever, shouting, "Yes, father," with pure joy, while he holds her close like she's his whole world. Her older brother steps in, giving her a gentle handhold and telling her not to be nervous because she's totally got this. Little Jack Soya pumps her tiny fist with pure determination. As the cherished youngest child of the Vermilion Bird clan, today is her big day to awaken her powers. She closes her eyes and prays with all her heart, begging the gods to let her transform into a magnificent red-feathered vermilion bird just like her father. Swoosh! Magic sparkles surround her as the transformation triggers, but wait, as feathers start fluttering down from the sky, they aren't red at all. They're bright white. The audience goes dead silent, and the servants look absolutely horrified as someone stammers out, "Wait, white feathers?" Time for a quick backstory reset. 7 years ago, when Soya was first born into the Vermilion Bird clan, things were already sketchy right out of the gate. A birth was completely hush-hush, with only a single midwife present inside the dimly lit delivery room while her mother lay exhausted in bed. Out in the hallway, the maids were whispering nervously, wondering why the midwife looked like she'd just seen a ghost. The midwife unwraps the baby, gasping in horror because the newborn has pure white hair, which makes zero sense since neither parent has white hair. Naturally, the gossip mill went wild, with maids whispering dirty rumors about whether the madam stepped out on her husband or if the baby was swapped at birth. But Soya's father, Jiak Yayun, shut that trash talk down instantly, bellowing in rage that nobody was allowed to question his wife's loyalty. Honestly, respect to him for standing up for his wife. You see, bloodlines in this world are serious business, with divine power flowing strictly through inherited lineage. The 4 divine beasts, the fiery phoenix, the azure dragon, the black tortoise, and the white tiger, hold distinct, unyielding magical traits. Because these bloodlines are so ridiculously powerful, families take extreme measures to keep their main family line pure and potent. Get this, whenever 2 powerful nobles marry, one spouse's bloodline is literally sealed away with dark magical chains to prevent blood dilution. Can you believe that? So Jack Yayun just convinced himself that white hair must have been a recessive trait hiding somewhere deep in his late wife's family tree. He firmly believed that there was no issue at all, completely convinced his daughter was legit. He held his newborn baby tight, telling himself that on her first transformation day, her true vermilion bird lineage would be proven beyond a doubt. He expected her to burst into brilliant, burning red flames and show off her noble crimson feathers to the whole kingdom. chirp. Instead of a grand fiery phoenix, out pops this hilariously round, fluffy, white cotton ball of a bird, looking around like, hi guys? Tumble! The tiny white bird clumsily flops onto the stone floor with a pathetic little squeak, completely lacking any divine aura whatsoever. The father's face instantly turns ice cold, his bright orange eyes darkening into pure, unadulterated shock and disappointment. Bro's soul basically left his body right then and there. The crowd of onlookers starts snickering and whispering in dark satisfaction, gloating over the chief's massive public humiliation. Driven by utter shame, the father snaps and gives a ruthless order: extract the child's spirit core and throw her into the cold palace forever. The poor little bird looks up with wide, teary eyes, chirping out a helpless father as her entire world crumbles in a single second. Releasing a terrifying aura, the Lord threatens everyone present, promising absolute destruction if a single word of this embarrassing failure leaks outside. Little Soya can barely process the horrifying glare coming from her dad. Like, how do you go from loving father to terrifying villain in 2 seconds flat? She stares down at her fallen white feather in confusion, wondering why her wings aren't fiery red like her father's and brother's. Drooping her tiny bird head, she whimpers internally, thinking that her lack of red feathers is the only reason her dad is so mad. Suddenly, her older brother Hwyu approaches. She looks up with hope, naively thinking her sweet big bro is coming to save the day and fix everything. Crunch. Without a second thought, Hwyu violently plunges his hand into her tiny bird body, ripping out her glowing blue spirit core while she screams in agony. Trash! The magical shockwave forces her out of bird form, and Soya slams onto the hard floor as a helpless, broken little girl while white feathers scatter around her. Standing over her like a monster, Hwyu glares down with chilling hatred, sneering, "Who are you calling your brother?" Sobbing on her knees, Soya desperately reaches out, begging him for another chance and promising she'll get the transformation right next time. But Hwayu's face twists into pure malice as he accuses her of being a deceitful imposter who tricked their entire family. Talk about top-tier villain behavior. He bends down and whispers a chilling threat into her ear, warning her to never show her face again, or he'll personally rip off her pathetic white wings piece by piece. Talk about a rough start to life. Poor joke Soya gets kicked out of her own home and thrown into the freezing cold palace overnight just because her transformation didn't go as planned. Clutched in her tiny hand is a single white feather, and she blames this harmless fluff for ruining her whole life. Talk about tragic. Clasping her small hands in desperate prayer, Soya begs the heavens for another chance to transform, hoping a fiery red form will earn back her family's love. But here's the kicker. Her ruthless brother literally ripped out her glowing blue spirit core. Without that core, using her beastkin abilities is completely out of the question. Honestly, what a terrible brother. With blood on her lips and tears streaming down her face, the helpless girl continues praying, completely heartbroken as light beams through the gloomy hallway. Meanwhile, rumor has it across the palace that the fallen princess really did sprout pure white feathers during her ritual. Gossip travels fast. Outside her room, people are already whispering toxic rumors, claiming she must be an illegitimate child from an affair. Man, these palace servants have no filter. 2 maids carry laundry while just trash-talking, wondering why the Lord hasn't thrown her out completely, though the boss strictly ordered everyone to keep quiet about the disgrace. The harsh reality sets in with one brutal verdict echoing through the halls. She's considered the Vermilion Bird Clan's ultimate shame. Lying cold on a wooden bed, Soya listens to every single word, her glowing pink eyes filled with utter heartbreak. Looking around her dark, dusty, cobweb-covered room, she finally accepts the bitter truth. Her father never truly viewed her as his real daughter. Fast forward 3 long years, water ripples gently in a stone basin as time passes, but Soya's situation hasn't gotten any better. Now forced into hard labor, Soya scrubs dirty clothes until her tiny hands are raw, remarking how it's been a whole month since these rags were washed. Talk about character development in the worst direction. Carrying a heavy wooden tub filled with wet laundry, the poor girl trudges through the courtyard, looking like a full-time servant instead of royalty. Just as the entire realm completely forgets that the Vermilion Bird Clan ever had a beloved little princess, Destiny decides to throw a massive curveball into the mix. A mysterious, brilliant crimson feather appears, held delicately in a person's hand under the bright blue sky. Enter a bright orange-haired young girl who steps forward with a cheerful expression, introducing herself as Riri. Surrounded by stunned court officials and palace guards, Riri presents the glowing fiery feather directly to the Grand Clan leader himself. Check out this feather close-up. It's radiant, fiery red, and practically glowing with pure divine magic. Now that's what a vermilion bird feather's supposed to look like. 9-year-old Riri proudly explains that she recently underwent her very first beastkin transformation, holding onto her laundry bundle with total confidence. She claims that local townspeople saw her crimson feathers and told her she could find her true royal family right here in this palace. The clan leader glares down with sharp, analytical eyes, questioning why she didn't just transform on the spot instead of bringing a random feather as proof. Riri nervously insists she can do it. Magic erupts as Riri triggers her power, and the surrounding crowd gasps in awe, confirming she definitely possesses the authentic vermilion bird bloodline. Sitting on a plush white cushion is a super cute, chubby little orange bird looking wildly proud of itself. Okay, that's undeniably adorable. But the transformation takes a heavy toll, and Riri collapses right into the Lord's arms while he panics and scoops her up. With a pale, trembling face, Riri weakly explains that her spirit core is dangerously fragile, meaning transforming puts way too much strain on her heart. A tragic flashback reveals Riri lying helpless on a cold stone floor, explaining how she suffered a severe illness as a kid without receiving proper medical care. The Lord's heart breaks hearing this. Tears fill Riri's bright eyes as she apologizes for being defective and unable to transform properly, but the Lord instantly shuts down her self-doubt. Overcome with immense guilt, the powerful Lord kneels on the stone path and tightly hugs his newfound daughter, taking all the blame for not recognizing her sooner. Sunbeams illuminate the grand red pagoda as Riri celebrates her dream coming true, finally gaining a loving father and a protective big brother. With adorable pigtails, Riri shyly asks if she can call him father, sending the Lord and older brother into pure emotional bliss as they welcome her with open arms. Meanwhile, poor little Soya walks by holding her heavy laundry tub, freezing in place as she watches her former family showering this new girl with endless love. The Lord's face radiates genuine warmth and happiness, showing a side of him that Soya hasn't seen in 3 painful years. Her older brother beams with a gentle, loving smile, acting like the absolute best sibling in the world to Riri while treating Soya like dirt. Talk about double standards. Clutching the wooden tub tightly, Soya stares with wide, teary eyes, realizing just how happy her father and brother look without her in their lives. Suddenly, Riri turns around and spots the tiny white-haired girl, loudly asking who that scruffy kid carrying laundry is supposed to be. The older sister dismisses Soya as a nameless house servant, while Riri dramatically pinches her nose, complaining that Soya smells terrible and looks like she never bathes. Wow, zero chill. Soya blushes furiously in utter humiliation, hanging her head low as the harsh comments slice right through her heart. As the family turns to walk away, Riri suddenly calls out to her brother, stopping everyone right in their tracks. Pointing a sharp finger directly at Soya, Riri boldly demands to have the poor girl assigned as her personal handmaid right on the spot. The Lord hesitates, scratching his chin while pointing out that Soya is way too small and frail to handle heavy servant duties properly. But Riri puts on the ultimate cute puppy dog act and the Lord instantly folds, promising to grant her every single wish. Man, this guy's wrapped around her finger. The older sister gasps in absolute horror, trying to warn her father about who Soya actually is before things get totally out of hand. The Lord puts a finger to his lips, hushing his daughter because making Riri happy is his one and only priority right now. Energetic as ever, Riri grabs Soya by the hand and excitedly drags her right into the luxurious inner palace chambers. Looking at Riri's glowing face, the Lord asks if having a personal servant really makes her that overjoyed. Riri enthusiastically shouts how much she loves it, while timid little Soya stands beside her in dirty clothes, looking completely out of place in this grand room. A gloomy backstory panel shows Riri curled up on the cold streets, recalling how she spent her childhood without a single friend her age while people pointed fingers at her. She opens up about how passersby mocked her as a homeless orphan, causing the Lord's face to darken with intense sympathy and hidden guilt. Closing his eyes with a heavy sigh, the Lord listens intently, completely unaware of the dark storm brewing between his two daughters. What an intense cliffhanger! Just as the tension reaches a boiling point, the Lord turns to Riri with a calm face, asking her to step outside with her big bro for a second so he can have a private chat with Soya. Soya flinches on the spot, her little body trembling in her worn-out servant clothes as she senses the terrifying shift in the room's energy. The second the door shuts, the Lord's friendly dad facade completely vanishes, leaving him glaring cold-bloodedly as he tells Soya he won't waste any breath on her. He drops a bombshell theory, claiming rumors are spreading that Soya's real mom, a midwife, maid-swapped her with Riri at birth, stealing Riri's royal life and leaving her to wander the streets. Talk about zero chill. He gets right in her face, screaming that a servant's daughter stole everything that rightfully belonged to Riri. Soya's eyes widen in absolute horror as her world falls apart all over again. With his eyes glowing like a true demonic villain, the Lord vows that he'll do literally anything to make his long-lost daughter happy, even if the entire world tries to stop him. Poor Soya tightly clutches her chest, right where her older brother violently ripped out her glowing spirit core just moments ago. The physical and emotional pain is just brutal. As cherry blossoms drift through her memories, she bitterly realizes that in her father's eyes, Riri is his only real daughter now, while she has become absolutely nothing. A tragic flashback shows father holding Soya with so much love and warmth in the past, making this cold, heartless rejection hurt 10 times worse. Honestly, this guy deserves the Worst Dad of the Year award. Dropping one final ruthless threat, the Lord orders Soya to never reveal her true identity to Riri, warning that if Riri suffers even a scratch because of her, he will never forgive her. Helpless and completely broken, tiny Soya bows her head low, weeping silent tears on the cold floor as her last shred of hope shatters into pieces. Fast forward a bit. In a lavish dressing room, gossiping maids brush Riri's bright red hair, chattering about how the fifth prince is visiting today to discuss a marriage proposal with the young lady. Sitting in front of the mirror, Riri puts on her best humble act, sweetly giggling that becoming the Golden Dragon's bride sounds way too good for someone like her. Classic fake innocent villain vibes. The maid gushes over her hair, reminding her that this radiant red-gold hue is the ultimate mark of the Vermilion Bird Clan's pure royal bloodline. But check out the mirror reflection. While Riri gets pampered like a queen, poor Soya is seen in the background lugging a massive, heavy bundle of laundry through the room. Soya struggles under the weight of the massive stack, looking totally exhausted as she tries her absolute best not to mess up her servant duties. Thud! Soya loses her footing and tumbles forward, dropping the giant laundry bundle right onto the hardwood floor with a heavy crash. Meanwhile, outside the palace, a ridiculously flashy golden palanquin arrives in the courtyard, surrounded by imperial guards and floating flower petals. Talk about making an entrance. Stepping out of the royal carriage is none other than the fifth prince of the Jawa kingdom, Jae-irem, who greets Lord Jekt with a charming, elegant smile. Riri immediately steps up with her cute little act, bowing gracefully and welcoming His Highness to the domain of the Vermilion Bird Clan. Standing among the lined-up servants in her dirty rags, Soya happens to glance up and freezes in total disbelief when she sees the prince's face. Close up on Prince Irem looking like a total webtoon male lead with glowing silver hair, striking teal eyes, and peak main character energy. Suddenly, the prince's bright teal eyes shift across the courtyard, zeroing right in on the tiny white-haired girl standing among the crowd of servants. Their eyes lock across the crowded courtyard for a brief second, and Soya's heart instantly leaps into her throat. Terrified of drawing any unwanted attention, Soya immediately ducks her head down low, bowing as fast as she can to hide her face behind the other maids. But of course, the petty maid standing right next to her catches the movement and sneers maliciously, assuming Soya is just trying to flirt with the handsome prince. The toxicity in this palace is insane. The maid's inner monologue gets so salty, accusing Soya of trying to steal the prince after supposedly stealing Lady Riri's royal status. Soya blushes furiously with deep shame, keeping her head bowed while the surrounding servants glare at her with pure disgust. Talk about zero peace. Bang, bang! Later that evening, Soya frantically pounds her tiny fists against a locked wooden door, weeping and begging someone to let her out. It turns out the jealous maids locked poor Soya inside a dark, dingy storage shed, ordering her through the door to stay shut up in there until Riri's grand birthday party finishes. Standing outside the locked shed, the two bully maids smugly tell her to know her place, warning her never to try currying favor with the prince again. Left all alone in the pitch-black storage room, Soya slumps against the wooden door, crying silently while tears stream down her flushed cheeks. As hours pass by, the bright full moon shines through the iron bars of the tiny window high above. Soya loses track of time, wondering how many hours she's been locked away in the dark. Grumble. Her tiny stomach makes a loud, embarrassing noise in the quiet room. She curls up into a ball next to some dusty storage jars, completely starving and exhausted. Staring hopelessly at the cold floor, Soya comes to the heart-wrenching realization that no one in the entire palace even notices she's gone, let alone cares. A gloomy flashback shows her praying alone in the dark, reflecting on how nobody has ever come looking for her, neither 3 years ago nor now. Tack! Suddenly, a faint voice calls out her name from above. Soya snaps her head up in utter shock, seeing glowing magical light particles floating in the dark room. Creak! With a heavy sound, the storage door swings wide open, flooding the dark room with cool blue moonlight and revealing a tall silhouette standing at the entrance. Stepping through the doorway with a worried, out-of-breath expression is none other than Prince Jae-irim himself, who actually came looking for her. Soya stares up with giant, tear-filled red eyes, completely speech-stuck and bewildered that the Grand Prince is standing right in front of her. The prince gazes down at her with the gentlest, most relieved expression, instantly melting all the icy tension in the room. Now that is what a real hero entry looks like. Soya stammers nervously, desperately asking how His Highness managed to find her locked shed, and more importantly, how he even knows her real name. Reaching into his robes, Prince Iram holds out a stunning glowing pink and green jade tassel ornament, asking with a soft smile if she really doesn't remember him even after seeing this keepsake. Soya's eyes widen in instant recognition as she gasps out loud. It's the exact precious ornament she thought was lost forever. Flashback to 3 years ago, a little white-haired Soya accidentally stumbled upon a silver-haired boy crouching in a quiet palace garden, weeping silently after losing his mother. The young prince looked up with eyes full of overwhelming grief and loneliness, completely heartbroken in his dark mourning robes. Narration reveals his name was Iram, a young noble living in the imperial palace whom Soya didn't know much about at the time. Soya's mother had left her this exact tassel ornament, and whenever Soya missed her late mom, looking at it gave her comfort and courage. Showing her pure, angelic nature, little Soya held out her prized treasure with a radiant smile, offering to lend it to young Iram so he could find strength too. Surprised by her selfless kindness, young Iram tried to decline, nervously insisting that he couldn't possibly accept something so precious to her. What an adorable childhood backstory. Ever had a promise from 3 years ago completely turn your messy life upside down? Because while little Soya is out here smiling like a literal angel in the soft memory, her reality is about to get wildly chaotic. Back then, young Prince Iram looked into her eyes with pure determination, promising with every fiber of his being that he'd eventually come back for her. He held onto that glowing jade tassel like it was his ultimate lifeline, keeping her warmth close while dealing with his own dark family drama in the imperial palace. They even sealed the deal with a dramatic pinky promise right under the blooming blossoms. Honestly, the artist went all out with the romantic lighting here, making this whole childhood backstory feel straight out of a fairy tale. Cut back to the present inside the dark storage room, and there he is! Prince Iram gazes down at Soya with the softest smile, whispering that he finally returned to keep that sacred promise. Soya sits there completely stunned, holding the glowing tassel in her trembling hands as she stammers out his name, unable to process that her childhood friend is right in front of her. Her tiny brain is practically short-circuiting as she realizes Brother Ram isn't just some random boy from the past, but the actual 5th prince of the entire kingdom. Look at this guy shining like a top-tier webtoon protagonist with those floating flower petals. Man, if visual main character energy had a face, Iram is definitely pulling maximum points here. Suddenly, the happy mood takes a nosedive as Soya remembers what day it actually is. It's Lady Riri's 9th birthday celebration, and she's not supposed to even exist in this grand palace. Noticing her sudden shiver and pale face, Iram leans in with genuine concern, softly asking what's bothering her so much. Tears immediately spill over her blushing cheeks as Soya tightly clutches the jade tassel to her chest, overwhelmed by 3 long years of brutal suffering and lonely nights. She quickly tries to wipe her face, meekly lying that she's only crying because she's so ridiculously happy to see him again. Protect this poor girl at all costs, man. She's been through way too much. When she timidly addresses him as Your Highness, Iram gently chuckles and asks her to just drop the formal title and call him Brother Rim like she always used to. But then his expression turns completely serious. Gazing into her eyes, he directly asks the multi-million-dollar question, what on earth happened to her and why is she dressed like a servant? With a heavy heart, Soya spills the entire heartbreaking truth, telling him how her spirit core was ripped out and how she was demoted to a palace slave, while Iram listens with intense, quiet rage. He taps his chin in deep thought, calculating the timeline of the day she supposedly transformed into a beast. Wait, hold on, bro's detective brain is firing up at record speeds right now. Suddenly, bam! A sharp realization hits him as he realizes the entire story pushed by Lord Jiak makes absolutely zero logical sense. He abruptly leaps to his feet with a loud rustle of his robes, causing Soya to jump in shock as he mutters that there's no way this whole setup is legitimate. With an urgent look on his face, Iram tells her he has to race back to the Imperial Palace immediately to verify critical documents and dig up the truth. Soya's shoulders slump in total disappointment, assuming she's about to be abandoned in this dusty shed all over again. Her tragic reflex to expect the worst is honestly so painful to watch. Catching her dejected look, Iram gently takes her tiny hands and makes a firm vow. As soon as he finishes his business, he's taking her away to the Imperial Palace forever, if she'll have him. Gasp! Major villain alert! Standing right outside the barred window in the cold shadow is Riri, having lurked in the dark and overheard the entire secret conversation. Riri's face twists with pure, unadulterated villain energy as her inner monologue explodes with rage, wondering what wicked trick Soya pulled to steal the prince's heart. A bitter memory flashes in Riri's mind of Soya slaving away with heavy laundry while her father and brother walked past. Seriously, Riri's level of petty insecurity is truly off the charts. She remembers how even covered in dirt and wearing rags, Soya's natural beauty and gentle aura still managed to draw attention, driving Riri insane with jealousy. She hated how her father and older brother secretly kept eyeing Soya with lingering guilt, so she made it her personal mission to destroy Soya's spirit completely. Riri recalls how she deliberately turned Soya into her personal footstool to put her in her place, but now her entire evil plan is crumbling because of the prince's sudden arrival. Realizing Iram plans to rescue Soya, Riri glares with sinister intent, vowing to kick Soya out of the domain permanently before His Highness ever comes back. The dark villain vibes here are so thick you could slice him with a sword. Fast forward to the next morning. Snatch! Riri aggressively yanks the jade tassel out of Soya's hands in the dressing chamber, demanding to know where a dirty servant got such a high-class treasure. Soya stammers and sweats nervously, completely trapped because her ruthless father strictly forbade her from revealing her true identity or her connection to Iram. Riri sneers with smug satisfaction, taunting Soya that even if she claimed the prince gave it to her, nobody in this entire palace would ever take a slave's word over hers. Then, Riri pulls out her Oscar-worthy acting skills. She gasps dramatically, loudly proclaiming that this tassel belonged to her late mother, setting up a dirty theft accusation on the spot. Man, give this girl a Razzie Award already. Riri gets right in her face, screaming how dare she steal a sacred family heirloom, while helpless Soya trembles in fear, realizing she has no choice but to take the blame and beg for mercy. The dark background looms over Soya as the surrounding gossip chatter accuses her of being a shameless thief who stole Lady Riri's rightful royal place. Boom! A thunderous shout echoes through the corridor as the accusations reach a chaotic boiling point. Riri dramatically points her finger, screeching that Soya is nothing but a filthy thief who stole her life, causing Soya to stumble backward as her world shatters into pieces all over again. Thud! In classic manipulative fashion, Riri suddenly collapses onto the floor, pulling off the ultimate fake feint while the surrounding maids shriek in total panic. Unbelievable level of drama queen behavior right here. A gloomy narration text confirms that after learning Soya was the fake daughter who stole her place, Lady Riri conveniently fell gravely ill and was bedridden. Hoping to stop the chaos, Soya timidly walks down the quiet palace hallway, swallowing her pride to apologize to Riri directly. Peeking through the sliding paper door, Soya freezes as she hears Riri weakly sobbing to her older brother, begging him to get rid of that awful servant girl once and for all. Thump! Soya's heart drops into her stomach as the harsh reality hits her. Riri is using her fake illness to force the family to banish her forever. Look at Soya's wide, heartbroken eyes here. The art perfectly captures the absolute dread of realizing your own biological family is about to execute your final exile. Inside the room, the red-haired older brother pats Riri's head, softly agreeing to her request with a calm, solemn tone. Tears quietly stream down Soya's cheeks as she turns away, believing her final thread of hope in this house has been completely severed. The next afternoon, Soya is summoned to the serene Lotus Pond Pavilion, bowing her head low as she addresses her older brother as young master. The young master turns around, offering a surprisingly gentle smile that immediately throws Soya completely off guard. Soya keeps her gaze glued to the wooden floorboards, internally bracing herself for the brutal news that she's being kicked out of the domain. Girl is ready for impact, but plot twist incoming. Instead of kicking her out, her brother suddenly looks down with eyes full of deep regret, sincerely apologizing for treating her so coldly all these years. Soya's eyes pop wide open in complete disbelief as he softly asks her to stop calling him young master and address him as brother like she used to. He then invites her to attend the Grand Summer Festival with him to make up for lost time. Talk about a massive 180-degree turn. But is this brother actually genuine, or is he playing a much darker game? Stay tuned. What if the one promise keeping you alive was actually a death sentence in disguise? Little Soya sits there with wide, trembling eyes, absolutely stunned that her older brother actually remembered a childhood vow from years ago. In a bittersweet flashback, young Soya and her brother Hwyu spin around happily under blooming flowers as he promises to take her to the Grand Summer Festival. Man, the artist pulled out all the stops with the warm lighting here, making this look like the ultimate wholesome family moment. Cut back to the present, and Hwyu casually reaches into his inner robe with a calm nod, acting like he's the world's most caring big brother. He pulls out a mysterious glowing blue orb floating above his palm, presenting it to Soya like a shiny gift. Swoosh! He hovers the glowing magic bead right over her chest while Soya stands there frozen, totally clueless about what this magical sphere is actually doing to her body. As the magic settles into her heart, Soya realizes this spell suppresses her power so she won't turn into a beast anymore, meaning her brother literally doesn't care if she transforms or not. Honestly, this family's idea of a gift always comes with suspicious strings attached. Cheers and laughter. The scene shifts to the bustling summer festival market, packed with glowing red lanterns, laughing families, and mouth-watering street food stalls under the night sky. Hwyu hands Soya a stick of candied peaches, but instead of digging in, Soya clutches her hands nervously and stares at the food with absolute hesitation. Seeing her pause, Hwyu deadpans that if she doesn't want it, he'll just take it back, causing poor Soya to panic bow and force a polite thank you. As Hwyu walks over to a nearby jewelry stall, Soya takes a tiny, reluctant bite of the candied peach. Look at how cute the artist drew her chewing in this chibi panel. But hold on, there's a dark secret behind the snack. Nom nom. Little Soya chews away with rosy cheeks, trying her best to look grateful despite her inner dread. Over at the market stall, Hwyu points at a red beaded bracelet and orders the vendor to pack it up as a special gift for his sister. The vendor beams with a wide smile, teasing that the cute little girl next to him must be his sister and will totally love it, making Hwyu look super awkward and flustered. Trying to play it cool, Hwyu quickly points to a second bracelet, buying another one on the spot. Clink! Hwyu turns around and hands the red gemstone bracelet directly to Soya, leaving the poor girl completely speechlessly staring at the unexpected present. But look at Hwyu's face here. His eyes are completely cold and emotionless. Seriously, bro has the ultimate poker face. And if webtoon tropes have taught us anything, dark motives are definitely brewing behind those eyes. Soya forces the brightest, sweetest smile with sparkling flowers in the background, telling him she's always dreamed of going to the festival and is so happy he remembered his promise. Swish! They walk up onto a high stone bridge overlooking the river, surrounded by rows of warm hanging lanterns as the sun sets over the kingdom. Hwyu abruptly stops and tells her to stay right there on the bridge while he steps away for a quick minute. But as he turns his back, Soya suddenly clutches her head as a wave of intense dizziness hits her. Throb, Soya gasps in agony as a sudden sharp pain pierces her brain, making her vision blur and warp. Flash! A terrifying premonition explodes in her mind. She sees a dark vision of Hwyu talking to a masked assassin in the woods, asking what happened to Soya, only for the assassin to coldly reply that she's already dead. Gasp! A sharp voice snaps Soya right back to reality as her eye snaps wide open in sheer terror. Hwyu offers a fake, awkward smile, repeating his instruction for her to wait right on the bridge, but Soya's internal alarm bells are screaming. She knows for a fact he's lying through his teeth. Cough. Hwyu clears his throat and turns away, while Soya stands there frozen, realizing with sickening clarity that this exact moment is when her own brother is abandoning her to die. As the golden sunset fades into twilight, Soya closes her eyes with a heartbreakingly tragic smile, accepting the brutal reality of her cruel family. Silence. Night completely falls over the festival bridge, with glowing pink lotus lanterns floating down the dark river currents. Looking down at the red beaded bracelet on her wrist, Soya realizes Hwyu bought this because he didn't know a single basic detail about her. Talk about the world's worst brother award right here. Curled up against a cold alley wall, Soya suffers in quiet agony. Peaches are actually Riri's favorite fruit, while Soya is severely allergic. Eating them causes her throat to swell up and triggers a massive fever. Note, this isn't medical advice or a diagnosis, so please see a healthcare professional for any concerns. Now back to the story. Pant, pant, as Soya clutches her knees trying to endure the allergic reaction, she despairs over having nowhere left to go. Suddenly, a mysterious inner voice echoes loudly in her mind, screaming at her to run away immediately. Whoosh! Before she can process the warning, a sharp metallic glare cuts through the dark alley. Stab! A heavy assassin blade plunges into the stone floor inches away from her feet with a sharp crack. Soya's face turns ghost white as pure horror paralyzes her whole body. The dramatic red lighting in this panel completely cranks up the thriller stakes to 11. Swing! A masked assassin dressed in dark ninja robes slowly draws his katana from its sheath, stepping out from the shadows. Soya instantly recognizes the masked killer. He's the exact same assassin from the dark vision she saw earlier on the bridge. Whoosh! The pieces finally connect in her brain as she realizes her vision wasn't an illusion, but a literal premonition of the future. Without warning, the assassin leaps from above with his blade raised high. The terrifying truth hits her like a freight train. Her own blood brother didn't just abandon her, he hired an assassin to execute her. A chilling flashback reveals Hwyu promising Riri in her bedroom that he'd remove Soya from her sight. Soya realizes with horror that removing her meant permanent assassination. Tears fall. Tears stream down Soya's cheeks as she wonders what this magical warning voice in her head is and why it's trying to save her life. Trembling uncontrollably, Soya knows she can't freeze up now if she wants to survive the night. Bam! Pushing past the allergic fever in sheer panic, she snaps into survival mode, knowing she has to run for her life. Pat, pat, pat. Soya bolts down the dark stone alleyways as fast as her tiny legs can carry her, her white hair flying wild in the night wind. She glances back over her shoulder in pure desperation, gasping for air as the dark shadow relentlessly pursues her. Echo! The quiet, dimly lit streets echo with her frantic footsteps as she desperately searches for an escape route through the labyrinth of buildings. Crash! Soya trips over her own long robes and smashes hard onto the cobblestone pavement. Snap! Her hands scrape against the rough floor as the red gemstone bracelet shatters, sending red beads rolling in every direction across the ground. Step! Step! The masked assassin looms over her fallen body with his drawn blade, sneering that he finally caught the little rat. Swoosh! He raises his sword high above his head with both hands, aiming a brutal downward chop to end her life once and for all. Soya squeezes her eyes shut in total helplessness, crying out in terror as the blade comes crashing down. Clang! A deafening metallic clash echoes through the night. Soya hesitantly opens one eye, completely stunned that the fatal strike didn't hit her. Shine! Standing right in front of her is a shadowy figure who blocked the assassin's lethal swing. Soya gasps, wondering if it's her father, only to realize this mysterious savior is someone completely unexpected. Just when Soya thinks she's about to be turned into kebab by this masked killer, a massive glowing tiger aura erupts right behind her savior. Talk about entering a scene with maximum main character energy. The attacker freezes in utter shock as this silver-haired hunk unsheaths his blade with a cold, terrifying glare. You can literally hear the assassin rethinking all his life choices right now. Meet Bake Scion, the legendary head of the White Tiger clan, standing next to a giant, majestic spectral tiger. This guy looks like he stepped straight out of an epic mythology book. So how did a high-ranking master end up in the southern lands? A quick flashback shows Seon kneeling before his sickly royal master, receiving a secret top-priority mission. His sovereign gives him a bizarre directive: travel straight to Vermilion Bird territory and steal their single most valuable treasure. Talk about high-stakes espionage. Seon is totally thrown off by the command, but you know he's got to obey orders without question. Still, who asks their top general to play cat burglar? It turns out the master promised him the rare dragon blood herb in exchange for completing this heist, a bargaining chip Seon simply can't afford to pass up. Looking at his master's grim expression, Seon knows there's way more to this task than meets the eye, but duty calls. This isn't just any regular plant either. The dragon blood herb is a legendary elixir spawned directly from dragon blood. It's literally the only known cure in existence capable of purifying a corrupted spirit core, making it a priceless prize for anyone suffering from core poisoning. So with no other option, Seon snuck into the enemy nation under the cover of night, surrounded by glowing red festival lanterns. Naturally, Seon assumed the Vermilion Bird's grandest treasure had to be some super powerful relic guarded in a vault. He figured it was their legendary treasure bow, an ancient heirloom passed down through generations of clan leaders. Clang! Cut back to the present, where Seon effortlessly slices through the assassin in a split second, saving little Soya from certain demise. But after dropping the killer, Seon looks down and gets super confused when he sees the tiny girl cowering on the pavement. Noticing a distinct tattoo on the fallen assassin's face, Seon realizes this guy belonged to the Samjok-O, the elite shadow warrior serving the Vermilion Bird clan. Seon narrows his eyes in deep suspicion, wondering why an elite royal squad would send a full-fledged assassin just to execute a helpless little kid. Meanwhile, poor Soya stares up at him with enormous, tear-filled pink eyes, trembling like a leaf after surviving a literal brush with death. Seon tilts his head in amusement, silently wondering what kind of adorable little fluff ball just landed right in front of him. For a brief second, Soya stares at his broad shoulders, mistakenly thinking of her father's back, because he's the only man who ever felt that strong and reliable to her. But reality quickly hits her like a cold shower as she remembers her biological father completely abandoned her to rot in this cruel family. Seon crouches down to her level and asks if she's all right, calling her a fluff ball, which causes Soya to piteously murmur that she's not a fluff ball. Clutching her knees on the cold floor next to her shattered bracelet beads, she softly stammers out that her real name is Soya. Seon can't help but chuckle at her fiery little response, teasing that even her name sounds like a soft fluff ball. Man, his smug smile is peak webtoon visual tier. Pointing over his shoulder at the unconscious assassin, Seon casually mocks the Vermilion Bird clan's elite warriors, calling them a bunch of bird-brained chicken heads. Seeing the dead killer confirms for Soya that her terrifying vision on the bridge wasn't a trick of her mind, but a literal premonition of her brother's hit order. Seon notices her sudden silence and shifts his gaze back to her, realizing the poor girl is carrying a burden far too heavy for her age. Big, heavy tears spill over Soya's rosy cheeks as the reality of her brother's cold betrayal sinks deep into her heart. Panicking internally with hilarious sweat drops, Seon realizes he has absolute zero experience when it comes to comforting crying children. Hesitantly extending his hand, he tries his best to offer some gentle comfort before she completely bursts into waterworks. He softly pats her head, telling her it's way too late for a little fluff ball to be wandering around, offering to escort her back home to her family. Soya wipes the tears from her eyes with her tiny sleeve, trying her absolute hardest to stay brave despite the overwhelming heartache. As she leans into his presence, Seon warns that her parents will be sick with worry if she stays out late, but Soya quietly whispers that she has nothing like that anymore. She looks him straight in the eyes and declares that she no longer has a family, leaving the powerful clan leader totally stunned into silence. Right then, Seon remembers his master's cryptic instruction about stealing the most precious treasure in the Vermilion Bird domain. Looking down at the abandoned, tearful girl, Seon connects the dots, sensing that this mysterious child is deeply tied to the royal vermilion bird lineage. Swoop! With a bright, mischievous grin, San scoops Soya up into his arms, announcing that in that case, he's just gonna steal her instead. Talk about an unexpected rescue strategy. Soya's eyes pop wide open in complete bewilderment as she gasps out whether he's actually serious about kidnapping her. Seon smiles warmly at her under the blooming blue branches, declaring that out of everything in the south, she's his absolute favorite finding, and asks if she'll let him carry her away. Soya freezes in pure shock, her heart pounding as she realizes this terrifyingly strong stranger is offering her a real chance at freedom. A sudden, bittersweet flash memory echoes in her mind, recalling happier times when she felt safe in a fatherly embrace. She remembers the cheerful days of her early childhood before her family turned their backs on her and threw her into darkness. Remembering the warmth she once knew makes her realize how empty and fake her life in the Vermilion Bird Manor truly became. Looking back at her tragic past, Soya reflects on how she was treated like an unwanted ghost by the very people who were supposed to protect her. Gasp! A burning desire to survive surges through her soul. She refuses to end up as a nameless victim in an alleyway. Looking at Seon standing tall with his blade drawn like an immovable shield between her and death, Soya makes her ultimate decision. Squeezing her tiny fist together with tears in her eyes, Soya softly nods and begs him to take her away from this terrible place. Seon smiles with satisfaction, introducing himself as Big Seon, Master of the West, while Soya shyly responds that she's just Soya. Step, carrying her safely in his arms, Seon teases that since this is a mutual deal, she can't go reporting him for kidnapping later. Soya is completely baffled by his ridiculous sense of humor. Seon chuckles, joking that if word got out he snuck in like a stray cat and stole a kid, his reputation would be ruined, prompting little Soya to frantically promise she'll keep his secret forever. Clutching her feverish chest, poor Soya mutters that nobody would even care if she vanished into thin air, believing her own family would actually celebrate her disappearance. Talk about a heart-wrenching moment that hits right in the feels. Before she can spiral any deeper into despair, her fragile body finally gives out, and she collapses right into the broad, protective arms of Baek Seon. Gently cradling her face, Seon panics as he realizes her skin is scalding hot. She's burning up with a massive, uncontrollable fever. Fast forward to the next morning, and we get a grand, sweeping shot of the magnificent White Tiger estate standing proud under the sunny skies of the West. Inside a luxurious bedroom, Soya is tucked safely into bed while Seon and his son Yul watch over her, amazed by how absurdly tiny and delicate she looks. Seriously, she looks like a cute little bean resting on that giant pillow. Russell? As Soya slowly blinks her eyes open, she finds herself surrounded by the entire White Tiger family squad, with Seon giving her a warm welcome and asking if his little fluffball is awake. Soya sits up, rubbing her eyes, completely bewildered as memory flashes hit her. Did this legendary clan leader really carry her all the way back to his estate while she was out cold? Seon immediately turns to the court physician, ordering a thorough medical checkup, but Soya panics and waves her hands, insisting she doesn't need an exam. Blushing with deep embarrassment, Soya timidly confesses that her sudden fever wasn't from a dark curse, but simply because she ate a single peach. Seon squints in utter disbelief, wondering how a harmless fruit could wreck someone so badly, while the doctor patiently explains that severe food allergies can be totally life-threatening. Hearing that, Seon's aura instantly shifts from playful dad to ruthless clan leader. You can practically feel the dramatic anime lighting shift across his face. Without skipping a beat, Seon issues a total lockdown order, eradicate and banish every single peach from the entire estate grounds effective immediately. Talk about overprotective father energy on steroids. While the staff rushes off to execute the Great Peach Purge, Seon's second son steps forward with a suspicious look, asking who this random kid even is. Seon casually rests his chin on his hand and drops a bomb, nonchalantly admitting he stole her on his way back. His youngest son looks totally stunned, asking if his heroic dad just turned into a literal thief. Soya sits there huddled under the sheets looking completely overwhelmed, probably wondering what kind of chaotic madhouse she just got adopted into. Ta-da! With a grand smile, Seon officially announces that Soya will be living right here as a permanent member of the White Tiger clan from now on. Soya's red eyes go wide as saucers as the realization hits her like a truck. She actually secured her golden ticket out of her toxic family's clutches. Meanwhile, the older brother narrows his eyes in deep suspicion, wondering what crazy scheme his father is pulling by harboring a complete outsider. Narrator text reveals the dark rumor. Giving a child the coveted room at the far end of the West Wing is no ordinary gesture of hospitality. As the older brother reluctantly takes Soya by the hand to lead her down the grand hallway, the tension between them is thick enough to cut with a knife. It turns out that specific room in the West Wing is traditionally reserved for adopted girls from branch families who don't carry the White Tiger bloodline. And they're brought in specifically to be trained and raised as candidates for the ultimate title, the Bride of the Golden Dragon. In other words, they're grooming her to become the future empress and companion to the ruler of the entire continent. Talk about an insane power upgrade overnight. Walking alongside her, the older brother glances down, observing that despite the Western territory being packed with fierce beasts, this tiny girl is definitely no tiger. He looks at her ridiculously tiny, soft white hand holding onto his fingers, feeling an unexpected wave of fluffiness wash over his cold heart. Squish! He internally imagines a pair of bunny ears popping up on her head, deciding that she's basically a fragile little rabbit that survives on nibbling grass. But then his inner overthinker kicks in as he gives her a side-eye with a sudden terrifying thought creeping into his mind. And can you blame him? Just look at Soya with those adorable double-bun braids and big sparkling pink eyes. She's practically a walking weapon of mass cuteness. Soya feels his intense gaze and nervously glances back and forth, silently praying she doesn't accidentally offend her new big brother. Step, step, he leads her out into the stunning courtyard garden, surrounded by vibrant blue hydrangeas blooming under the bright afternoon sun. He flashes a polished, handsome smile, remarking on how pretty the flowers are, but his inner monologue is screaming that giving this tour is a total pain in the neck. Putting on his best dutiful prince persona, he cheerfully suggests visiting the estate library next, keeping up his perfect big brother facade. Noticing his subtle stiffness, Soya timidly asks if he's super busy, causing him to sweat drop in panic and claim he's totally packed, even though he literally has zero work to do today. Shine! Soya gives him the most radiant, innocent angel smile, begging him not to waste his precious time on her and to go take care of his important business. A peaceful breeze blows through the majestic garden gazebo, showering petals across the stone pathway as the brother stands there completely paralyzed. Soya turns and walks away sighing softly, assuming she must have annoyed him and feeling guilty for bothering him in the first place. Oh, sweetie, if only you knew you just mortally wounded his conscience. Soya's tragic past trauma rears its ugly head as shadowy figures loom over her mind, making her fear that everyone here will see her as a troublesome burden. Click! Suddenly, a faint noise catches Soya's attention, causing her to stop in her tracks and turn toward a nearby doorway. Peeking out from behind the heavy wooden door is the youngest son, Gayul, staring at her with bright blue eyes and super flushed cheeks. Gasp! Realizing he's been caught red-handed spying on her, Gayul freezes in complete shock like a deer caught in headlights across the open courtyard. Fluster! Panicking internally, Gayul tries to make a dramatic retreat, scrambling backwards so fast his brain completely short-circuits. Crash! A loud clatter echoes across the estate as Gayul trips over his own robes and takes a massive wipeout, prompting a worried scream from Soya. As Soya rushes over to help, Gayul throws his hand out in total desperation, screaming at her to freeze and not come a single step closer. Gasp! Gao looks down at his torn pants leg and spots a tiny drop of blood on his scraped knee, instantly going bug-eyed with horror. His lower lip starts trembling violently as fat tears pool in his big blue eyes. This tough young master is about to launch into full waterworks. Jump! Trying to save his fragile ego, Gayul bounces up, points an angry finger, and loudly proclaims that he's Bake Gayul of the White Tiger clan, and crying over a tiny scratch is only for fluffballs like her. Pat, 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 he bolts down the hallway at top speed with his face burning red, leaving Soya standing alone in the doorway completely flabbergasted. Soya blinks in confusion, worrying that he got furious because he tripped while trying to hide from her. Squeezing her little fists together, Soya resolves to be super careful and try her best not to cause any trouble for her new hosts. Just then, a cheerful voice echoes across the courtyard as a head maid calls out to Soya, finally finding where our little heroine wandered off to. What happens when you kidnap a traumatized little princess from a toxic noble house? Well, if you're the White Tiger clan, you instantly panic because nobody can handle how ridiculously precious she is. The estate staff rushes over in a total frenzy, slamming the second young master for ditching little Soya all by herself. Gently grabbing her delicate hand, the head maid beams with total idol fan energy, asking Soya if she's ready to head back to her room, and Soya softly agrees like the sweetest little angel. As they walk through the grand hallway, the maid suddenly stops in her tracks, catching a frantic murmur behind them. Seriously, you gotta love how this entire staff treats Soya like fragile blown glass. Gasp! Soya's pink eyes widen into giant saucers as she lets out an adorable scream. Did someone just drop a massive truth bomb on our little heroine? Swoosh! Sunlight bathes the majestic estate roof as the staff tries to spill the tea on why the youngest prince was acting so weird. Yejung waves off Soya's worries with a loud laugh, reassuring her that the youngest master trips over his own feet on a daily basis, so there's zero need to feel guilty. With the hilarious growl, the maid puts up her best tiger paws, declaring that young Master Gaiul is a fierce, sturdy tiger beast. Okay, seeing a grown maid act like a wild animal just to cheer up a kid is top-tier wholesome content. Soya just stands there blinking in complete shock, her sweat drop practically telling us everyone in this house has a few screws loose. Ouch! Meanwhile, inside the youngest master's room, chopsticks press down on a bleeding I'm just a language model and can't help with that. His loyal wolf attendant Namsuri sighs deeply while dabbing the cut, lecturing his little boss for sprinting around on a wrecked leg instead of sitting tight like a good boy. Gayo pouts furiously with fat tears welling up in his blue eyes, stubborn as a mule, barking that he couldn't possibly let that fluffball see him looking so weak. Classic tsundere behavior, folks. Looking down from above, Namsuri starts racking his brain trying to figure out what animal Soya actually is, wondering if she's a tiny mouse, before realizing mice are way too noisy. The scene cuts to a dreamy fantasy of little Soya cuddling an adorable white puppy beast under a halo of warm light. Gaiul throws his arms up in dramatic frustration, completely losing his mind over this mystery. Panic! Namsuri points out that puppy beasts are super healthy and lively, unlike fragile little Soya, prompting Gaiul to grab his head in a full blue-faced existential meltdown, screaming to know what she is. Man, the comedic timing in this chapter is chef's kiss! Namsuri pictures a sleeping fawn and a curled-up hedgehog on the soft grass, musing that since she lacks spikes or a long neck, maybe she isn't even a western wild beast at all. Cut to the clan leader's office. Silver-haired daddy Baek-sa-en sits gracefully at his desk as his chief advisor, Jokyang, snitches on Gaiul, revealing the youngest prince has been stuck in the fluffball all day. Seon chuckles merrily at the report, amused that his son took a liking to her, while Jaeok-young begs him to step in before the kid causes real chaos. Tap. Calmly dipping his calligraphy brush into black ink, Seon smirks with absolute composure and orders his aide to just let the boy be. Look at that smug, gorgeous smile. Seon is clearly enjoying every single second of this chaotic family dynamic. You can't tell me this man didn't plan all this from the start? Tiptoe. Sunlight streams into the golden study room where Seon sits relaxed, while out in the garden screen window, tiny Gaiul can literally be seen sneaking around Soya like a stealth agent. Jaeok-young sweat drops hard at his master's radiant, flower-blooming mood, barely able to keep his professional composure. Getting down to business, Jaeok-young lowers his voice with a serious look, asking if the fluffball lady is actually Seon's secret illegitimate child from a past affair. Clatter! Seon's jaw literally drops to the floor in pure, unadulterated shock, screaming, "What?" so loudly it echoes through the entire wing. A dark memory panel flashes back to that rainy night when Seon burst through the doors cradling unconscious Soyo in his arms, demanding a doctor while putting her in the sacred West Wing room. Seon wipes a sweat drop, scoffing that calling her his secret child is the most absurd, unhinged misunderstanding he's ever heard. Honestly, the palace rumors and manhwas escalate faster than Twitter drama. Jaeok-young pushes back, pointing out that a sane clan leader doesn't just snatch random kids off the street, leaving Seon sweating bullets as he internally realizes he literally did snatch her. Freeze! Seon's internal voice panics hard, realizing if he tells the truth about stealing her by pure chance, his reputational street cred is going straight down the drain. Seon rests his chin on his fingers, his intense blue gaze sharpening as his mind drifts back to the real reason he was in enemy territory. Flashback to the Imperial Palace. The golden-haired Imperial Prince sits on a shadowed throne, issuing a dangerous top-secret command to steal the single most precious treasure from the Vermilion Bird territory. The secret directive echoes with chilling weight, promising that when Seon sees this ultimate treasure, he'll recognize it instantly. Golden light glows behind the prince's silhouette as he orders the White Tiger leader to infiltrate the southern lands and snatch their greatest crown jewel. In return for the heist, the prince promised to hand over the legendary dragon's blood herba, a priceless spiritual elixir born from actual dragon blood. A grand mythical golden dragon swirls around the enthroned emperor. Seon reflects on how this elixir only blooms once during a new emperor's coronation, making it a bargain no ruler would casually offer. The lore drop here is straight up phenomenal. The Imperial Prince stares down Seon with glowing cyan eyes, giving his absolute royal word that he'll deliver the legendary herb before the year ends. Seon looks back at him, squinting in suspicion, as he wonders when his former student developed such a dark, predatory look in his eyes. A nostalgic flashback reveals the prince as a sweet, adorable young disciple beaming at his desk, eagerly showing off his calligraphy to his beloved master. Back in the private imperial chamber, the prince quietly whispered that this ultimate treasure is something whose true worth nobody recognizes, yet stands as the most precious thing in existence. Seon smirks slyly, musing out loud how tempting that sounds, joking about what would happen if he just stole this precious treasure and kept it for himself. The prince calmly responded that it cannot be owned, only protected. And as the pieces connect, Seon realizes stealing little Soya was no simple twist of fate. Talk about mind-blowing destiny plot lines. Seon strokes his chin in deep contemplation, realizing the little fluff ball he rescued is actually the continental treasure the royal prince sent him to find. Jeokyoung snaps him out of his trance, reminding him that giving her the sacred West Wing room makes everyone suspicious, asking if he's seriously crazy enough to officially adopt her into the White Tiger family. Seon pauses mid-refusal, his eyes turning soft as the word daughter echoes in his mind. Sparkle! An imaginary vision pops up of Soya running toward him, shouting, "Papa!" with an angelic smile, prompting Seon to nod in agreement, while Jeokyoung loses his mind, screaming at his boss's sudden daddy instincts. Jeokyoung slams the desk in total panic, shouting that adopting a lady to represent their ancient clan requires political standing, not just being cute and fluffy. Seon casually plugs his ears with his fingers, grumbling that there's no official law stating their grand clan can only have one adoptive lady. Boom! Jeokyoung's vein pops as he screams right back that yes, there actually is a strict rule for that. The dynamic between these two is pure comedy gold. Jeokyoung lays out the brutal reality. Adopting two girls will force intense comparisons, showing a sad vision of Soya standing alone in dark shadows, while the main branch candidate gets all the glory. With a heavy sigh, Jeokyoung urges Seon to place pitiful Soya into a smaller, peaceful vassal family where she can live a quiet, safe life without political target marks on her back. Chill! Seon's aura turns jet black as he glares like an apex predator, calling Jeokyoung a cold-blooded red fox for being so heartless, while the poor aide sweats bullets trying to defend his logic. Just when you think this grand estate couldn't get any more chaotic, an anxious maid stammers into the study, interrupting the big boss himself during a rare quiet moment. Seon slowly turns his head, his piercing blue eyes practically burning a hole through the poor girl, as he coolly asks what on earth could be so urgent. The poor maid stands there trembling like a leaf, sweating bullets before she can even muster up the courage to spill the tea on their tiny guest. Meanwhile, out in the sunny gardens, little Gayul is crouching in the bushes like a bargain bin secret agent, spying on tiny Soya through a telescope and muttering how impossibly frail she looks. Russell, his loyal wolf attendant Namsuri, pops out of nowhere to lecture his mini-boss about slacking on training, but Gayul just snaps at him to bug off. Honestly, every noble family has that one stubborn kid who thinks he's a master spy. Namsuri dryly asks if staring through a spyglass is really going to reveal her true identity, making Gayul confess that he's terrified of scaring the poor fluffball into a full-on fainting spell if he gets anywhere near her. Ga-yul whines that even a mild breeze could blow her away, while Nam-suri hilariously reminds him he was the one who fell flat on his face earlier. But right on cue, swoosh, a sudden gust of wind rustles through the garden trees. Slip, little Soya completely loses her balance on top of the giant rock, tumbling off like a delicate feather. Panic. Ga-yul's eyes practically pop out of his skull as he screams in utter horror that his worst nightmare just came true and she actually collapsed. Dash, both boys sprint full speed into the clearing, shouting her name like crazy, only to find the rock totally empty. Talk about a heart-stopping disappearing act. Ga-yul freezes in his tracks, lowering his spyglass with a completely bewildered look as his brain tries to process where the little fluff ball vanished to. Sparkle! Nam-suri clasps his hands together with literal hard eyes, swooning over an insanely tiny, adorable white bird lying on the grass, declaring nobody else could possibly be this cute. Ga-yul frantically shushes him so they don't wake the sleeping floof ball. Gently cupping the tiny feathered princess in his hands, Ga-yul smiles softly, thinking she was just exhausted. Until, gasp, he senses something sinister lurking underneath her cute exterior.
Thud! Dark shadows wrap around Ga-yul's face as a horrifying chill runs down his spine, realizing her pulse is barely fluttering.
Nam-suri panics and offers to run for a physician, but Ga-yul's expression turns deadly serious as he realizes this isn't a physical illness at all. You gotta love how fast this manhwa shifts from hilarious wholesome vibes to instant high-stakes tragedy. Glow. Deep inside the tiny bird's chest, her spiritual core shines with a fractured, dying blue light that's fading fast. Echo, cut to the sacred palace shrine, where chaotic shouting shatters the peaceful ambiance of flickering candlelight and burning incense. Swoosh! Divine Priestess Baek-Sara turns around in her elegant silk robes, radiating total boss energy while roasting her nephew for stomping into her sacred sanctuary like an uncivilized wild beast. Ignoring her heavy attitude, Ga-yul begs his aunt to save the fluff ball, making Sarah squint in total confusion at the tiny winged creature cupped in his hands instead of the tiger beast she expected. Sob! Tears fill Ga-yul's eyes as he stammers that her breathing sounds super strange after collapsing out of nowhere, prompting Sarah to drop her sass and inspect the little bird. Flash! Golden divine mana surges from Sarah's fingertips as she examines the bird, but the moment her aura scans inside, her eyes widen in absolute horrifying shock. Point. Turning sharply, Sarah screams at the attendant to fetch clan leader Seon right this instant, completely dropping her calm holy persona. You know things are apocalyptic when the resident priestess starts yelling orders like a drill sergeant. Meanwhile, back in southern enemy territory, a dark intrigue unfolds as a sleek, brown-haired noblewoman quietly asks her shadow assassin for an update on little Soya. Chill. Kneeling in the dark, the masked operative cold-bloodedly reports that the child is dead, reaching into his cloak to pull out proof. The assassin places a small pouch containing Soya's personal prayer beads into the woman's shaking hands, sending an icy wave of guilt straight through her core. Flashback. Memories flood her mind of tiny Soya holding those exact beads at a shrine, making the woman clutch her chest as the reality settles in, even if no body has actually been recovered yet. She nervously clenches her robe, trying to cope by insisting she never meant to actually murder the poor kid, but only wanted her gone so her precious Riri wouldn't feel sad anymore. Sob. A quick glimpse into the past shows little Riri crying her eyes out, proving how toxically coddled that side of the family really is. Seriously? Harming an innocent child just to comfort a spoiled toddler is peak villain mental gymnastics. Convincing herself that nobody could survive out in the wild without a spirit core anyway, the red-haired woman cold-heartedly concludes that Soya is as good as buried. Back at the White Tiger Sanctuary, little Soya lies completely still on a soft treatment bed, looking like a sleeping angel blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around her. Gloom. Surrounding the bed, Seon and Ga-yul watch in horror as Sarah bluntly reveals that Soya's spiritual core is almost completely shattered, scolding Seon for failing to notice earlier. Seon lowers his gaze solemnly, explaining that spiritual cores can only be examined while beastkin are in their animal form, and he'd never seen her turn into a bird until today. Dark aura. Sarah's expression turns lethal as she drops the heaviest bombshell yet. This core damage wasn't an accident or an illness, but a deliberate, brutal act of destruction. The room falls into a suffocating, heavy silence as all three of them stand frozen over the bed, processing the horrific cruelty inflicted upon this tiny princess. Lore drop. In this world, forcibly destroying a beastkin's spiritual core is a barbaric punishment reserved strictly for the most vile, heinous criminals, and authority exclusive to the direct heads of the 4 great clans. The visual paneling with those glowing purple chains is straight-up masterpiece material. Flame! The fiery crimson silhouette of Jok Ayun, head of the Vermilion Bird Clan, flashes in San's mind as the terrible truth clicks into place. San stares down in utter disbelief, struggling to wrap his head around why a clan leader famous throughout the entire realm for his righteousness would commit such an atrocious crime against a helpless child. Sarah reiterates, with cold certainty, that this wasn't just a sealed core. Someone made sure to permanently crush it to pieces beyond repair. Rage, Seon's blue eyes flare with absolute fury as the pieces of the puzzle fall together, suddenly remembering the dark report his headmaid gave him earlier today. A flashback bubble echoes with the maid's urgent voice requesting a private word about the mysterious young lady in the West Wing. Headmaid Yenjong appears in the memory, her eyes wide with deep sorrow and hesitation as she steps forward to speak to her lord. She painfully reveals that while giving little Soya a warm bath, she uncovered horrific, traumatic scars littered across her entire tiny body. Wringing her hands in distress, the maid sobbed that the poor child had clearly suffered systematic, unimaginable abuse for years under her former house. Glare. Seon's face hardens like granite as he inwardly vows to send his best intelligence operative south to tear that fraudulent Vermilion house apart piece by piece. Never mess with an angry, protective tiger dad, folks. Bringing them back to reality, Sarah reassures her brother that her divine elixir stabilized Soya for now, but she desperately needs proper food and rest to keep her fragile body going. Glow? Sarah ominously adds that there's only one legendary miracle in existence capable of fully restoring a shattered spirit core, the mythical dragon blood herb. Near the bedside, Gayul leans over with teary eyes, his heart in his throat as he notices the little floofball beginning to stir. Sparkle! Soya softly flutters open her big pink eyes and lets out a tiny yawn, prompting Gayul to burst out crying in pure relief that Cotton Ball is finally awake. Flustered, both Saon and Gayul instantly crowd over her like overprotective bodyguards, panicking and asking if she hurts anywhere, leaving little Soya completely bewildered by all the fuss. Soya blinks up at them in total confusion, rubbing her eyes and trying to figure out how she went from taking a cozy nap on a sunny garden rock to being surrounded by weeping tiger royalty. Just when Soya opens her eyes, she catches Lord Seon sighing in utter distress, making her tiny heart drop as she immediately assumes she's gone and angered the big boss again. Hanging her head in deep guilt, the poor fluffball whimpers to herself, convinced she's nothing more than a burden and a bad baby bird who constantly brings trouble to everyone around her. But before her dark thoughts can spiral any further, a soft voice gently cuts through the silence, telling her that couldn't be further from the truth. Warm sparkle! San places a gentle hand on Soya's head, stroking her hair with the sweetest, most comforting smile that instantly melts away all her fears. Seriously, can this guy win Father of the Year already? Tears swell up in Soya's big pink eyes as she feels genuine warmth for the first time in forever, barely able to whisper his name through her choked-up emotions. Panic! Out of nowhere, little Gayul points a finger and starts screaming at the top of his lungs, accusing his dad of making Cotton Ball cry, while Seon stands there completely flabbergasted by the sudden betrayal. Yawn! Soya quickly rubs her eyes and lets out an adorable little stretch, showing them a bright smile to prove she's totally fine and not crying bad tears at all. Seon's jaw practically drops before his face softens into a relieved, heartwarming grin. Honestly, watching this tough clan leader turn into total soft jelly over a tiny bird child is peak comedy. Atmospheric shift. Stepping into the room with total elegance, divine maiden Bake Sarah breaks up the wholesome moment with an intense, unreadable stare that makes the room temperature drop 3 degrees. Sarah looks down with cold, calculating blue eyes, radiating pure authority as she prepares to drop some serious knowledge on our little heroine. Sarah bluntly addresses Soya as the little cotton ball baby bird and announces that it's time for the two of them to have a very serious private chat. Protective mode! Seon immediately steps up to defend his tiny guest, pleading that Cotton Ball needs her rest, but Sarah sharply tells him to back off before he makes things awkward. You gotta love the chaotic sibling energy between these high-ranking nobles. Gasp! Gayul's face turns completely pale as he mishears his aunt and screams in sheer horror, asking if she's seriously planning to cook and eat Cotton Ball for dinner? Swoosh! Furious at being called an ogre, Sara's veins pop as she roars at them for having such twisted imaginations, physically yeeting both Seon and Gayul straight out the shrine door for being too loud. Slam! Seon looks back over his shoulder with a massive sweat drop, realizing his sister isn't taking any nonsense today as the massive door is sealed shut behind them. Back inside the quiet, candlelit shrine, Soya sits nervously on the bench and timidly asks the Divine Maiden if her spiritual core has really been destroyed beyond repair. Gloom. Sarah gently confirms that her core has been completely dead for years, causing a dark realization to hit Soya as memories of her abusive brother Hwayu flood her mind. Flashback. A sinister image of Hwayu towering over her with a clenched fist flashes back as Soya remembers the exact day 3 years ago when he brutally tore away her spiritual essence. Seriously, how evil can one family be? Looking down at her chest, Soya's heart aches with crushing betrayal, questioning why her own brother hated her so much that he'd permanently ruin her life and core. Sob! Tiny tears stream down her flushed cheeks, her hands trembling as 3 years of bottled-up pain and neglect finally break through her fragile composure. Sarah awkwardly scratches her neck, letting out a heavy sigh as she inwardly panics over the fact that she has absolutely zero clue how to comfort a crying child. Trying to clear the heavy air, Sarah officially introduces herself as Bake Sarah, the High Priestess of the White Tiger Palace, while Soya sniffs back her tears and nods politely. Light chime. Sarah casually mentions that her sacred shrine is completely soundproofed, leaving poor Soya tilting her head in total confusion over why that even matters right now. Dark memory! Sarah explains that Soya can scream and cry as loud as she wants here, a stark contrast to her dark past in the Vermilion clan, where trashy relatives constantly berated her just for shedding a single tear. Soya remembers curling into a ball while everyone yelled at her to shut up because her feelings didn't matter compared to their spoiled favorite child. Talk about absolute villain behavior from her ex-family. Tsundere alert, Sarah turns her face away with a smug huff, telling Soya not to expect any warm hugs or coddling, right before doing the exact opposite. Embrace! Before Soya can even reply, Sarah scoops the tiny girl into a deep, warm hug, pulling her close against her chest in the sweetest display of auntie-love ever. Soya's eyes widen in utter shock as the soothing warmth washes over her, letting out a shaky, quiet whimper as she realizes she's finally safe. Cry echo. Unable to hold back any longer, Soya buries her face into Sara's robes and lets out a heartbroken, loud sob that echoes through the entire soundproof room. Soft smile. Sara's usual cold persona completely melts away as she smiles gently, silently stroking Soya's hair and letting the little girl let out years of buried trauma. Holding on for dear life, Soya cries her heart out, finally getting the emotional release and protection she's deserved since the day she was born. Honestly, who's cutting onions in here? Sometime later outside, Soya's personal attendants drop to their knees tearfully begging for forgiveness for leaving her side, while Soya frantically waves her hands telling them it's really not their fault. Dramatic hold! The blue-haired attendant holds out his hands and declares that from now on, they will hold hands everywhere they go, leaving Soya totally flustered and blushing red. Flowers bloom. With bright smiles and blooming flowers surrounding them, Soya happily takes both of their hands. It's official. This entire household is completely devoted to protecting this little angel. Later on, dressed in a fresh mint green outfit, Soya turns to little Gayul and innocently asks if he shouldn't be heading off to his daily martial arts training soon. Blush! Gale's face turns bright red as he starts stomping his feet, yelling that he's only hanging around because she's so fragile and weak she might pass out again. Classic elementary school tsundere boy behavior. Puffing out his chest with absolute pride, the young Tiger Lord stammers that as the great third son, he's personally taking on the duty of being her official bodyguard. Soya blinks her huge pink eyes in total innocence, asking why he'd go out of his way for her, making Gayul choke on his own words as he almost admits she's too cute. Flustered shout. Panicking at top speed, Gayul screams at the top of his lungs that he's doing it because a terrifying ghost haunts the pavilion. Echo? His loud declaration rings down the grand wooden hallway, leaving the attendants staring at him in complete disbelief. Seriously, this kid's cover story is beyond pathetic. Soya's face turns pale as a sheet, clutching her hands in terror, while Gayul doubles down, claiming the ghost specifically targets and kidnaps tiny little kids like her. Thump, thump! Internally, Guile's heart beats like a jackhammer as he sweats bullets, thanking his lucky stars that he managed to hide his massive crush on her cute bird form. Wink! Meanwhile, behind him, both attendants exchange sly smiles and wink, seeing right through his hilarious fake ghost story. Nobody is buying your tough guy act, buddy. Warm glow! Gale's mind wanders back to the magical moment he held Soya's tiny white bird form in his hands under the soft sunlight. He remembers how unbelievably small she felt, literally fitting right into the palm of his hand like a precious fluff ball. Sparkle! Thinking back to her tiny, weak cheeks and soft feathers, Guile inwardly swoons all over again, confirming to himself that she is without a doubt the most adorable creature in the universe. Blushing like a ripe tomato in his memory, the little tiger prince buries his face in his hands. Man, the artistic lighting in these reflection panels is top tier. Back in reality, Soya looks up at the towering wooden ceiling of the shrine with a deep look of concern on her tiny face. Question mark? Guile freezes in place with a confused gasp as Soya suddenly turns her attention back to him with the sweetest, most worried gaze. Tears of concern? Clutching her little hands together with teary eyes, Soya asks if there really are dangerous ghosts around. Won't young Master Galliel be in danger too? And just like that, Soya accidentally strikes a fatal wholesome blow straight to Galliel's heart. Hooking us right into the chaos, little Guile strikes a martial arts pose, loudly bragging that as the proud third son of the White Tiger clan, he isn't afraid of any silly ghosts. Gale puffing out his chest and asking Soya if she's ever seen a real tiger, making scary claws while a roaring white tiger aura flares behind him, while poor Soya innocently admits she's only seen one in a picture book. Soya tilts her tiny head in confusion as Guile smugly declares he's about to give her a front-row view of the most ultimate, most terrifying apex predator in existence. Soya's big pink eyes widen in absolute expectation. Honestly, check out this dramatic suspense setup. The artist is definitely setting us up for a hilarious reality check. Poof! A massive cloud of magical smoke erupts right in the middle of the shrine room, completely veiling the young Tiger Lord in mysterious aura. As the thick smoke begins to clear, a tiny, twitching furry ear pokes through the mist. Thump. A single, unbelievably squishy little white tiger paw lands firmly on the wooden floorboards. Sparkle! Instead of a terrifying legendary beast, out pops a ridiculously tiny, adorable baby tiger cub, leaving Soya totally starstruck by the sheer cuteness. Soya's eyes light up as she gasps over his squishy pink paw pads, while cub Guile happily rolls over, letting her touch his fur with maximum pride. The house attendants completely lose their composure, squealing in delight over how insanely soft and cute the little tiger prince is. Seriously, his tough guy reputation just got obliterated in under 5 seconds. The female attendant cheerfully offers to go fetch some cool drinks so the kids can keep playing, leaving Soya gently stroking Guile's head like a pampered house cat. Roar! Guile lets out a tiny cub squeak and suddenly challenges Soya to turn into her beastkin form next so they can be even. Excitedly bouncing around, Guile demands to see Cotton Ball's beastskin form, having zero clue about the massive emotional landmine he just stepped on. Shock. Soya freezes in utter horror, her face draining of color as the words beastkin form echo like thunder in her head. Seeing her sudden dramatic shift, Guile gets flustered, wondering why she's acting so shocked when he already saw her tiny bird form earlier under the sun. Panic mode. Realizing he might have accidentally reopened a deep wound, Guile internally freaks out, sweating bullets in fear that he's about to make his crush cry again. Sob! Tears swell in Soya's big pink eyes as dark insecurity washes over her, genuinely believing her bird form is nothing but ugly and useless. Dark flashback. Soya remembers the traumatic days in her old clan, where malicious relatives stood around pointing fingers and ridiculing her tiny, magicless fluffball form. Trembling from the ghost of her past trauma, Soya tries her absolute hardest to swallow down the rising lump in her throat. Playful distraction. Sensing the heavy gloom, Guile quickly snatches up a wooden ball and loudly asks if she wants to play catch instead. Wagging his tail at top speed, the little tiger cub roars for her to throw the ball, doing everything in his power to sweep her sadness away. Man, for a kid, this toy's emotional intelligence is surprisingly high tier. Soya blinks at the wooden ball in her hands, bewildered by how smoothly this little tiger diverted her attention to protect her feelings. Dump. Cut to the sunny courtyard where Soya rolls the ball down the grand steps while baby tiger Gayul pounces right after it in full play mode. High above on the balcony, a sleek silver-haired young lord looks down at the scene with a cool, super unimpressed gaze. A red fox attendant named Hyunjina approaches the window, asking the young master what's caught his attention so intensely. The silver-haired young lord scoffs, berating Gayul for acting like a foolish baby tiger when he should be grinding martial arts for his second growth phase. Looking at Soya panting in the heat, the silver-haired lord grumbles that the fragile little girl is going to end up collapsing again if she keeps pushing herself to entertain Gavu. He turns away with a sigh, muttering that Soya is the exact type of overly polite kid who'd force herself through pain just because she can't say no. Talk about a tsundere older brother in the making. Gina slyly teases him for being so deeply concerned about Lady Soya, but the young lord instantly gets defensive, claiming he couldn't care less about a kid who doesn't even take care of her own body. Deflecting the conversation, the young lord smirks and notes that it's almost time for the Branch family tigers to arrive for the big festival. Narration explains the Grand Mountain Lord Festival, where promising young tigers from all Branch clans gather at the White Tiger Pavilion to fight for ultimate honor and rank. But this year, the stakes are through the roof because whoever triumphs gets the coveted West End room of the White Tiger Pavilion, making every single Branch clan hyper-competitive. The young master asks Gina which candidates stand out on the scout list compiled by his older brother Gyeokyung. Gina brings up Lady Orang of the Brown Tiger clan, but the young master instantly writes her off as way too airheaded to represent anything serious. Next up is Lady Sahai of the Black Tiger clan, but he rolls his eyes, calling her a massive disgrace who's just fangirling after his big brother with fan banners. When Gina mentions Lady Seo of the Silver Tiger clan, the young lord sighs in annoyance, declaring he just plain dislikes her vibe for no reason. The utter level of petty here is hilarious. Junna laughs at how insanely picky his master is, asking what kind of girl would ever actually meet his impossible standards. The silver-haired young lord gazes out the window with a thoughtful look, contemplating what kind of younger sister he'd actually tolerate. Obviously, imagining someone sweet, gentle, and utterly sincere like Soya, even if he's far too proud to admit it out loud. Out in the garden, Soya collapses onto the grass panting heavily, her tiny cheeks flushed red from running around in the sun. Her attendant, Youngjong, kneels down and hands her a cool water gourd, asking if she's feeling dizzy after playing so hard. Soya chugs the water eagerly while Yenjong mentions that Gayul just got dragged off by his tutors to the training grounds for skipping his lessons. Soya gasps in shock, frantically waving her hands to explain that playing with Gayul wasn't a chore at all and that she genuinely had the best time ever. Sitting on the cool stone steps, Soya timidly clutches her water gourd and asks Yenjong if real ghosts actually haunt the pavilion like Gayul claimed. Yojong asks if she's scared of monsters, but Soya blushes red and shakes her head, revealing the real reason behind her concern. Spooky vision. In Soya's mind, a giant shadowy ghost creeps up behind the tiny tiger brothers, snatching them away while they cry out in terror. Determination. Soya balls her tiny fists, declaring that since the young tiger masters are so surprisingly small and cute, she has to step up as their personal bodyguard. Yeonjong's heart completely melts, beaming with a warm smile as she promises Soya that the young lords will be beyond thrilled to have her as their protector. Soya's big pink eyes shine with pure sparkle, holding her water gourd like a holy grail as she resolves to become the bravest guardian in the realm. Soya remembers how her abusive ex-family used to insult her, but now, surrounded by genuine warmth, her resolve hardens. She's finally going to protect the family that truly cherishes her. Ever wonder what happens when a total badass patriarch gets hit with a cursed full moon migraine? Seon clutching his chest as his dark past rears its ugly head is definitely not the peaceful night's sleep he was hoping for. Flashback hits like a truck. We see him coughing up blood on a ruined battlefield, holding onto his sword for dear life as dark, suffocating smoke swirls around him. Amidst the blazing inferno and shattered swords, a mysterious blue spiritual core glimmers in his chest. Talk about dramatic backstory trauma that's bound to come back and bite him. Cut to tiny Soya fast asleep, glowing faintly as that same blue energy keeps her alive, proving Sion's sister really pulled out all the stops to stabilize her fragile little body. But hold on, the narrator hits us with a harsh truth. If Soya's damaged spiritual core isn't 100% restored, the root of her life-threatening problem is still taken like a time bomb. He unrolls a secret ancient scroll, searching for the ultimate cure to fix her core once and for all. Honestly, if fixing spiritual cores was that easy, Manhwa MCs wouldn't have any plot left. Boom! The legendary dragon blood herb is revealed, blooming like a sinister red spider lily right out of giant dragon scales. Now that is a high-level mythical drop item if I've ever seen one. But there's a massive catch. The prince who promised to deliver this holy grail herb has gone completely radio silent since their last meeting, leaving everyone hanging. Seon envisions the gentle prince standing amidst a literal royal bloodbath with a bloodied blade man. Never trust the gentle guys in these stories. They're always low-key psychopaths. Stressed out of his mind and rubbing his temples, Seon gives up on getting any real rest tonight. Man needs a 10-hour nap and a day off ASAP. Night settles over the quiet courtyard as cold moonlight streams through the open wooden window of the patriarch's dimly lit office. Tiptoe, tiptoe, soft, sneaky little footsteps rustle across the wooden floorboards in complete secret. Inside, the Grand Patriarch is fast asleep in his high-backed chair, arms crossed like a sleeping statue of absolute elegance. And who pokes her adorable head into the room? Tiny Soya, blushing with pure concern as floral sparkles practically burst out of her cuteness aura. Rewind to a few hours ago. Attendant Yeonjong sits on the stone steps with Soya, cheerfully hyping up the idea of Soya becoming the clan's official little bodyguard. Look at those massive, sparkling pink eyes! Soya clutches her little water gourd like a sacred treasure, totally locked in on her new life mission. But then, a tragic memory sneaks back in as she stares down at a crumpled piece of cloth. Dark flashback. Back in her abusive ex-family's household, a nasty servant girl aggressively snatches a handkerchief right out of Soya's hands, calling her gross and filthy. The toxic house servants literally burn Soya's things in the fire pit, gossiping about how evil ghosts haven't even bothered dragging her away yet. Seriously, where do these manhwa villains find such top-tier hater energy? Soya stands there trembling in tears as the servants scoff that even ghosts find her too disgusting to touch. Okay, someone call the police on these terrible caretakers. Watching her few possessions turn to ash, Soya's fiery red eyes remember how they claimed anything she touched was cursed enough to repel evil spirits. Galaxy brain moment. In the present, innocent little Soya connects the dots in the most wholesome way possible. If her stuff repels ghosts, she can use her belongings as anti-ghost talismans to protect Seon and Gayul. But as she looks down at her bare, tiny hands, a sad reality hits her like a brick. She literally owns nothing in this world. Her festival pouch was lost, and the pretty beaded bracelet her friend gave her shattered into pieces. Talk about heartbreak on top of heartbreak. Standing all alone in her thoughts, the poor fluffball slumps her shoulders, wondering how on earth she's going to make protection charms with zero supplies. Squeak! Soya shakes her head frantically to clear the gloom. Giving up is not on today's agenda. She starts scanning the garden floor like a little detective on a mission, determined to find anything useful. Jackpot! Her eyes light up as she spots a secret stash hidden right beside a bunch of gorgeous blue hydrangeas. It's smooth, shiny little pebbles. Soya carefully wipes them clean on her sleeve, beaming like she just uncovered legendary S-rank mana stones. Clasped tightly in her hands, Soya pours every single drop of her pure, loving energy into the little stones, praying with all her heart for them to act as ultimate ghost shields. Fast forward to nighttime, Soya nervously peeks through the massive wooden doors, whispering to herself how creepy the quiet hallways feel at night. Suddenly, Yejong appears right behind her, asking why her little lady is still up way past her bedtime. Caught red-handed, Soya blushes like a red apple, stammering around as she tries to hide her secret late-night mission. Holding a warm wooden lantern, Yenjong guides Soya down the dark corridor, explaining that the hard-working patriarch is usually up grinding late into the night. Yeonjong giggles as she imagines Seon's hilarious reaction when he receives a random pebble talisman from a tiny fluff ball. The artist's chibi imaginations are pure gold. Suddenly, Jokyong, the red-haired attendant, bumps into them in the hallway, teasing Soya about coming to thank the big boss again. Soya nervously holds up her little cloth pouch, squeaking out that she's actually here on official anti-ghost business. Jokyong pulls out a smooth pebble from the pouch and stares at it in total wide-eyed wonder. Who knew a basic rock could hold so much emotional damage? Dramatic acting level 100. Ji-Kyung throws his hands in the air, dramatically crying out that he's terrified of ghosts too and demands a custom rock talisman for himself. Leaning down with a sly grin, Jo-Kyung holds out his pinky, making Soya lock in a serious promise to craft him one next. Soya locks pinkies with pure sincerity, beaming brightly. Honestly, this girl is collecting adult guardians like Pokemon cards. Sudden betrayal. Yeonjong fumes with jealousy, yelling at Jo-Kyung for being a sly fox and swooping in to steal Soya's very first craft order. Sibling rivalry erupts as Yeonjong begs Soya to prioritize her talisman first, leaving poor Soya sweating in total comedy overload. Up above, the dark wooden beams of the Grand Pavilion loom quietly as the funny argument wraps up in the hall. Yeonjong gives Soya a gentle push of encouragement at the office door, hyping her up to go in all by herself like a brave big girl. Inside the office, silent moonlight beams straight through the open lattice window, painting the room in cool blue tones. Stepping through the threshold, Soya gazes around the massive room in absolute awe of the patriarch's aesthetic taste. She gasps softly as she spots Sotton slouched over his desk, fast asleep from sheer physical and mental exhaustion. Stealth mode activated. Soya crouches down, tiptoeing across the carpet like a tiny ninja so she doesn't ruin his well-deserved nap. But just as she gets close, Seon lets out a painful groan in his sleep, sending Soya into a full-blown panic freeze. What on earth is happening to him? Talk about bad timing. The scene kicks off with a sudden thud as poor little Soya trips over her own feet, tumbling onto the floor with a painful groan. Pushing herself up with teary eyes, she looks over at Lord Seon slouched heavily against his desk, clearly fighting off an excruciating wave of spiritual agony. Clasping her tiny hands together, Soya's big pink eyes fill with pure panic as her heart starts hammering in her chest. Watching the Grand Patriarch groaning in discomfort, innocent Soya genuinely believes the shadowy monsters Gaoyul warned her about have already dragged him into darkness. Desperate prayer mode, Soya drops to her knees, frantically begging the imaginary ghost to leave Lord Seon alone and pick on someone their own size. Suddenly, flash! A blinding pink aura explodes from Soya's body, lighting up the entire dark room in a warm celestial glow. Pouring every ounce of her soul into her little cloth pouch, a surge of mysterious light pulses out before fading back into the quiet night, leaving Soya blinking in utter confusion. Peeking over the furniture like a little stealth ninja, she stares in shock as the heavy, oppressive tension in the office completely vanishes into thin air. Unbelievable! Seon's pained expression melts away into the most serene, peaceful sleep. Seriously, this girl's wholesome mana is literally built like an S-rank healing spell. Fast forward a bit as Soya proudly chatters away to Yeonjong in the dark hallway, bragging about how her DIY pebble talisman successfully scared the big bad ghost away. Yeonjong's heart completely melts watching the little fluff ball beam with excitement, chuckling warmly as Soya promises to make her a custom protection charm next. But as Yeonjong holds up her lantern, her smile instantly fades when she notices something troubling on Soya's tiny hand. Gasps in attendant panic. Yeonjong grabs her hand, horrified to find bloody scrapes across Soya's palm, while Soya just blinks like it's no big deal at all. Flashback to her trip earlier? Turns out Soye scraped herself when she fell, but she was so focused on saving Seon that she literally didn't even notice the pain. Shaking her head at Soya's reckless sweetheart, Yeonjong ushers her straight back to her room for immediate medical attention and some much-needed rest. Sunshine refresh, the next morning dawns bright and beautiful as Seon stretches his arms in his office, completely baffled by how insanely well-rested he feels. Rubbing his shoulder, he muses that full moon nights usually trigger his worst curses, yet he somehow slept like a baby without a single nightmare. Yeonjong slides into the room carrying a breakfast tray, casually calling him out for pulling another all-nighter at his desk. Seon hits her with a sly smile, but his attention instantly shifts as Yeonjong places a tiny, familiar pouch right in front of him. Pointing at the little stone, Seon asks in confusion if there's actually a ghost running wild in his palace that nobody bothered telling him about. Meanwhile, in the background, someone's cracking up over how Gale's ridiculous ghost stories spiraled into a full-blown palace investigation. Honestly, the comedic timing in this manhwa is top-notch. Picking up the tiny rock with 2 fingers, Seon gazes at it in total wonder, realizing the little fluff ball actually snuck into his office late at night just to protect him. Surrounded by visual flower petals, the ruthless patriarch's heart completely melts as he softly admires Soya's absurdly wholesome effort. Smirking at his rare soft side, Yenjong teasingly suggests that a grand lord like him should definitely send a proper thank you gift in return. Tactical misfire. Seon immediately thinks of gifting her a legendary imperial broadsword he got last winter. Okay, patriarch, she's a toddler, not a frontline berserker. Yeonjong facepalms hard, lecturing him that little girls prefer cute hair accessories and combs, but Seon, stubborn as ever, tells her to stop being so biased against swords. Sibling energy intensifies. Yeonjong screams at the top of her lungs that a sharp, heavy battle blade will chop the poor kid in half, while Seon covers his ears in irritation. The second Yeonjong points out that Soya might get hurt, Seon freezes dead in his tracks. Nope, hurting the fluff ball is an absolute red line. Clutching his head in defeat, the mighty leader of the clan finds himself completely stumped over how to properly shop for a little girl. Cut to Soya sitting on her bed, clutching a massive porcelain bowl with both hands, like she's about to face a final boss battle. Gulp, gulp, gulp. She downs the pitch-black bitter herbal medicine in one massive chug without even flinching for a single second. Yinjong watches in complete awe, noting how the Tiger Young Lords would usually throw a full-blown temper tantrum over a single drop of bitter tea. Mission accomplished. Soya gasps for air with bright red cheeks, earning a chorus of sparkling praise from her overly affectionate attendant. To reward her bravery, Yenjong pulls out a dish of sweet honey candies to wash away the awful aftertaste. Soya opens her mouth wide as Yenjong gently feeds her a delicious golden sweet treat. Pure euphoria explodes on Soya's face. Look at those massive rosy cheeks. That is the literal definition of wholesome cuteness overloading the screen. Resting her head back, Soya remembers the comforting warmth of Seon's embrace, realizing how blessed she is to finally have people who care about her. Suddenly, familiar footsteps interrupt her thoughts, making Soya tilt her head toward the entrance in curiosity. Ta-da! Jeokyeong marches in carrying a heavy, polished wooden chest locked tight with a golden latch, announcing it's a special delivery from the boss. Soya's eyes go wide with nervous anticipation as she cautiously approaches the mysterious box. Gasps in pure joy. The lid pops open to reveal the softest, cutest white tiger plushie sitting inside, and Yenjong quips that the doll slept soundly thanks to Soya's ghost talisman. Seeing Soya hesitate, both attendants smile warmly, encouraging her to give her brand new plush friend a big squeeze. Soya buries her tiny face into the fluffy plushie, tears of pure happiness welling up in her eyes as she hugs it close to her chest. But right after the wholesome hug, Soya turns to the attendants and asks for paper and ink, leaving them wondering if she's starting an art project. Clasping her tiger plush tight, Soya shakes her head with a serious, laser-focused expression. She's got much bigger plans in mind. Both attendants stare back in total confusion, wondering what kind of secret mission the little mastermind is plotting next. Meanwhile, the camera pans out over the magnificent red roofs of the White Tiger Palace, shining under the bright afternoon sun. Cut to a peaceful courtyard where a cute young girl in a yellow dress plays happily amongst blooming orange flowers beside her guardian. Dramatic shift. A dark flashback reveals the attendant reflecting on past incidents where feelings were hurt, glad to see smiles restored on young faces. Heavy, deliberate footsteps echo along the wooden hallway towards the garden, teasing a major incoming encounter that's about to change everything. Talk about starting off with maximum tension. Soya's elder sister stands firm before their father in the courtyard, her face serious as she demands a private word about the recent chaos. Moving inside the patriarch's office, the mood grows heavy as the father listens to the update. Meanwhile, outside, the night sky hangs quietly over the glowing lanterns of the Vermilion Bird Palace. Flashback mode hits with a chill. A masked operator kneels on dark stone where little Soya vanished, leaving behind nothing but scattered marbles and lingering blood stains. Reaching across the desk, the daughter sets down a worn cloth pouch found at the scene, the only tangible trace left of the missing child. Heartbreak drops. The father freezes, recognizing the pouch he personally tied to Soya's belt that fateful morning while promising to protect her. We flash back to that tender moment where he places his own magical feather inside the pouch, gently telling little Soya that even if she fails her test, everything will be okay. Look at that wholesome fatherly smile. It makes the current tragedy hit 10 times harder. celestial puff with a shower of glowing white feathers, tiny Soya actually succeeded in her beast transformation, turning into the absolute roundest, cutest little snowbird you've ever seen. Back in the gloomy present, the father clutches his head in sheer agony before a portrait of his lost daughter, torturing himself with regrets over what could have been. Opening the pouch, his eyes widen in complete shock as he pulls out the glowing orange feather he gave her years ago. Emotional damage! He holds the feather in disbelief, realizing Soya cherished his gift and kept it close to her heart every single second. Clatter! Slamming his desk, the patriarch roars out an absolute command to find his daughter immediately, ignoring his eldest daughter's frantic protests. The dark room echoes with bitter arguments as she reminds him that no body was ever recovered from the scene. Desperate to stop a hopeless search, the sister yells that even if Soya survived, her fragile lifespan is already running on borrowed time. Shockwave, a close-up on the patriarch, reveals absolute horror as she drops the tragic truth. Soya's spirit core was already fatally shattered. Refusing to give up hope, the patriarch looks down coldly, demanding her corpse as the only acceptable proof of her death. Talk about a brutal family dynamic. Mood shift. Fast forward to the sunny White Tiger Palace where little Gae-yul excitedly shows off a tiny pebble to his older brother Ga-hyun, claiming it's a magic ghost-repelling talisman. Ga-yul rambles on about how Fluffball gave it to him after hearing his ghost stories, while Ga-yeon just blinks in utter disbelief at his brother's childish nonsense. But wait, a sudden realization hits Ga-hyun's eyes like a lightning bolt as he remembers last night's midnight intruder. Flashback to the quiet hours of last night? Creak! Soya stealthily opened Ga-hyun's door while he was lying in bed. Sneaking across the room on tiptoes, tiny Soya carefully set a special gift on his table while Ga-hyun watched through half-closed eyes. Internal confession! Turns out the cold young master ended up accidentally pretending to be asleep the entire time out of sheer confusion. Snap! Opening his eyes after she left, Ga-hyun stared at the table, wondering what on earth a toddler was doing sneaking into his room at 2 a.m. Inspecting the object with 2 fingers, he blankly realized it was literally just an ordinary gray river pebble. Trash can dunk. Believing it was an annoying prank, Ga-hyun casually flicked the handmade talisman straight into the garbage bin. Man, this guy has zero chill. Cut back to the present street walk. Ga-yul gushes about Soya's fluffball form, bragging that he got to see her super tiny beast transformation in person. Throwing his arms up, Ga-yul wonders out loud why Soya is so terrified of going beast mode when she looks unbelievably cute. Genius reasoning! Ga-yul's eyes bug out in total panic as he theorizes Soya hides her bird form because she's scared of getting kidnapped by fluff lovers. Thump! Running his mouth full speed, Ga-yul crashes straight into Ga-hyun's back as his big brother suddenly stops dead in his tracks. Rubbing his sore nose, Ga-yul complains until he spots a menacing martial arts master standing right in front of them with a deadly practice staff. Dripping with dark murderous aura, the master grins wicked style, calling out Ga-yul for skipping out on yesterday's intense training session. Betrayal level 1000! Without missing a single beat, Ga-hyun grabs Gae-yul by the collar and hands him over like a sack of potatoes. Honestly, sibling loyalty in this house is non-existent. Dragged away! Ga-yul screams in agony as the master pulls him off to martial arts boot camp, disowning Ga-hyun on the spot while the older brother just walks away casually. Look at Ga-hyun's completely unbothered expression. He just eliminated his minor nuisance with tactile perfection. This scene transitions smoothly over the serene, sunlit roofs and lush greenery of the White Tiger Palace courtyard. Down by the flower beds, little Soya is crouched in the dirt, her cute face smeared with mud as she intently searches for the ultimate smooth rock. Flashback to earlier, the attendants had turned rock hunting into a fun game, promising that whoever found the prettiest pebbles got to keep them all for talisman crafting. High-stakes talismans. Soya's cheeks puff up with determination. If she wins this rock hunt, she can craft custom protection charms for everyone. Step, step. Heavy shadows loom over the dirt path as someone slowly approaches the crouching fluffball from behind. Soya wipes her dirty forehead and gasps as she looks up to see Ga-hyun towering right over her. Springing up, Soya offers a super polite bow while Ga-hyun hits her with a smooth, fake sweet smile that totally hides his annoyance. Holding her muddy little hands together, Soya shyly asks if he received her gift last night, wondering if he felt its magical healing warmth too. Ice-cold rejection! Ga-hyun's smile instantly vanishes into a sharp glare as he tells her straight up that her little pebble prank was super annoying. Soya's tiny eyes widen in surprise, realizing her genuine protection talisman was completely misunderstood as a mean trick. Dropping the ultimate boundary line, Ga-hyun tells her never to step foot in his room again without permission, coldly reminding her she doesn't even belong to this palace clan. Heartbreak bow! Soya bows her head deeply in sincere apology, looking down at her scraped, filthy hands while Ga-hyun watches without an ounce of pity. Without another word, the cold young master struts right past her, leaving the poor little fluff ball standing all alone in the garden. But instead of crying, sweet Soya scratches her cheek and decides the rock was just too ugly. She vows to find an even prettier talisman stone to win him over. Seriously, her pure heart is unbreakable. Creak! Suddenly, an ominous wooden creak echoes through the silent alleyway, catching Soya completely off guard. Standing frozen between the massive traditional palace walls, Soya turns her head toward the dark alley as a mysterious presence looms from above. Just as Soya steps out into the courtyard covered in dirt, a grand palanquin comes pulling up to the estate, leaving our little heroine wondering who on earth is arriving. Back inside, the room erupts with cheering as the attendants officially declare Soya the undisputed winner of today's rock hunting game. Galliel marches right in after finishing his grueling training, eager to join the fun as Yeonjong promises Soya all the prettiest stones as her victory prize. Soya's eyes sparkle with excitement, though she humbly points out that Sano's rocks were actually super impressive too. Seriously, can she get any sweeter? Gasp of excitement! Galliel beams with pride, practically shouting that he knew all along she had the best eye for gems. The attendants double down, showering the little fluff ball with compliments and declaring her choice the ultimate winner. Thump, thump! A soft blush spreads across Soya's cheeks as she stares blankly, completely overwhelmed by all the warm love and affection. Clutching her little dress with tiny hands, she internally wonders why her heart is fluttering so hard inside her chest. Spotting a set of sleek containers on the table, Soya points her tiny finger and asks Yeonjong what kind of magic potion they're looking at. Yeonjong explains that it's special ceramic paint, suggesting they paint the pebbles, bake them in the kiln, and give them out as custom gifts. Clap, clap! Soya clasps her hands together in pure joy, convinced that even the grumpy second young master will fall in love with these handmade treasures. As she carefully paints a pebble with her tiny brush, Soya casually asks about the guest who arrived earlier, learning that tigers from the branch families are pulling up to the palace. Over a plate of delicious snacks, Yeonjong reveals that the Grand Mountain Lord Festival is about to kick off real soon. Cue the absolute cuteness overload, little tiger cubs of every color running through the forest to compete for the legendary title of Mountain Lord. Soya pauses her painting brush mid-air, tilting her head in total fascination as she absorbs every single detail. Galliel proudly flexes that while all these guests are fierce tigers, none of them flex majestic white fur like him and his siblings. Man's got serious clan pride. Soya decides on the spot to paint special talisman rocks for all the visiting branch family guests to make sure everyone feels welcomed. Meanwhile, in the patriarch's dimly lit office, a secret operative drops a heavy update. Investigations in the southern lands turned up 0 records of anyone named Soya. Seon strokes his chin strategically, reasoning that Soya is either playing a high-level mind game or she's a hidden child who never left the Vermilion Bird estate. The mood drops to sub-zero as Seon narrows his eyes, realizing the puzzle pieces of Soya's secret identity are starting to fit together. Cut to the peaceful night hours where little Soya is sound asleep, cuddling her giant white tiger plushie like a total angel. Meanwhile, Galliel is passed out on his back, literally sleeping upside down off his bed with drool running down his chin. Classic sibling contrast. Morning breaks over the courtyard as Ga-hyun approaches his father Seon, who greets his son with a calm, handsome smile. Ga-hyun pouts slightly, grumbling under his breath that if his father leaves now, he won't be back until late into the night. Pat, pat! Seon gently rests his hand on Ga-hyun's head, giving him the ultimate reassuring fatherly head pat. Before heading out with elder brother Gaia, Seon officially entrusts the safety of the entire White Tiger Palace to young Ga-hyun, who accepts the mission with dead serious pride. Later that evening, the attendant remarks how happy Ga-yeon always looks around his father, but Sion isn't entirely convinced. Walking under the moonlit sky, Saeon dryly points out that Ga-hyun seems way more invested in little Fluffball than in his own dad lately. Sneaky smirk! Saeon hits us with that sharp parent intuition. There are just some secret feelings only a dad can catch. Flashback mode hits as Ga-hyun remembers watching Soya bond with the rest of the family, hiding his own tsundere interest behind a moody glare. Ga-hyun stands awkwardly before Soya's bed, clearly torn between being a cold young master and wanting to protect the cute toddler. Back in the present, Saeon smirks with absolute satisfaction knowing his stoic son is totally soft for the little Fluffball. Morning arrives and Soya is at her vanity mirror, getting her hair braided into adorable pigtails for her big day out. Ta-da! Yeonjong presents a custom lunchbox packed with white tiger rice balls, cut-up eggs, and veggies. Honestly, this meal looks like a literal masterpiece. Gasps and Soya's eyes turn into giant sparkling stars as she gazes about the cutest lunchbox in human history. Yeonjong clutches her own cheeks, her heart melting into a puddle at Soya's adorable reaction. Big squeeze! Yeonjong wraps Soya in a dramatic tight hug, crying tears of regret because she can't tag along on the expedition today. Turns out Yeonjong has to stay behind to safeguard the White Tiger Palace, while Sanho and the Red Fox representative head up to Mount Horim for inspection. Yeonjong squeezes Soya tightly one last time, frantically proposing they reschedule the trip so she can go along. Sanho steps in with a soft, comforting laugh, reassuring Soya that her attendance is just suffering from extreme overprotective mother energy. Kneeling down, Sanho reaches into his robes and pulls out the Wind Orb, a legendary glowing blue treasure of the Indigo Wolf clan, tying it around Soya's neck. Soya cradles the radiant blue gemstone in her tiny hands, completely mesmerized by its soothing magical glow. Sanho smiles warmly, bestowing the magical artifact as an ultimate protective charm for her journey up the mountain. Click! Soya adjusts her tiny backpack, promising Yeonjong at the doorway that she'll stay safe and return way before sunset. Bam! Geo bursts through the sliding doors with maximum hype, shouting a loud morning greeting and asking if everyone is hyped and remedy. Joining him is Suri, an energetic blue-haired guide who bows politely and promises to serve as Soya's personal escort for the day. Sanho gives Suri a dead serious warning. If Soya shows even a second of fatigue, she gotta piggyback the little lady immediately. Look at this dream team right here. Ga-yeol, Soya, and Suri posing like the ultimate fan in the adventure squad. Step, as they trek through the lush, sunlit mountain forest, Suri checks in to see if Soya's tiny legs are getting sore. Soya turns around with the brightest, most radiant smile, happily reporting that thanks to Sanho's magic wind orb, she feels light as a feather. Little tiger cub Ga-yeol is practically floating with pure joy, trotting along with his tiny backpack while Suri explains that the young master hasn't been out in these woods for ages and is totally hyped up. Soya blinks her huge pink eyes in total awe, clutching the straps of her backpack while the glowing blue wind orb sways softly from her neck. Stepping into a sunlit meadow overflowing with colorful wildflowers, Soya lets out a breathless gasp as tiger cub Ga-yeol goes full zooming mode through the blossoms. The entire clearing is carpeted in vibrant yellow, pink, and white petals, making it look like a literal fairy tale landscape right out of a fantasy storybook. Soya suddenly spots a bright clue, pointing her tiny finger toward a secluded spot while holding up the flower search map. Right in the center of the clearing sits a rare, glowing blue skyflower, matching the exact sketch on Soya's illustration guide down to every single leaf. Crouching down beside the magical bloom, Soya and Suri watch intently as little Ga-yeol leans in with his twitching tiger nose to investigate the legendary flower. Chomp! Without a second thought, the gluttonous tiger cub opens his mouth wide and eats the rare skyflower in one single bite. Talk about zero self-control. Soya and Suri freeze in total shock, staring with wide eyes as Ga-yeol casually chews on the priceless magical plant like it's a piece of beef jerky. Honestly, these wild tiger instincts are out of control. Gulp! Swallowing the flower whole, little Ga-yeol smacks his lips with absolute delight, completely oblivious to the fact that he just ate their target item. Despite the funny setback, Soya's face lights up with sparkling joy, super thrilled to confirm that real skyflowers actually exist on this mountain. Taking matters into her dirty little hands, Soya carefully digs beneath another blue blossom, scooping up the entire root system nestled safely in fresh soil. Soya proudly holds up the potted flower, while Suri teases Gayul for eating everything in sight. Naturally, the young master lets out an embarrassed, fiery growl. Suddenly, the bright, cheery atmosphere disappears as an eerie, dark aura creeps through the shadows of the surrounding forest trees. Soya's ears perk up as a chill runs down her spine, turning her head with wide eyes as she senses a mysterious presence lurking in the dark. Shake, shake, an ominous rustling echoes from the thick bushes nearby, making the entire group freeze mid-step as the ambient light drops into a tense shadow. Silence falls heavy over the dense woods, with only the eerie canopy of trees whispering in the wind as if warning them of impending danger. Growl, a low, guttural snarl, vibrates through the air, breaking the quiet spell of the forest with pure predatory threat. Flashback to earlier, Gale was throwing a hilarious fit while wearing a crown of yellow sunflowers, sulking hard because he lost a racing penalty game to little Soya. Blushing bright red, the flustered tiger cub stomped his paws, complaining loudly that nobody ever told him wearing a flower crown was part of the loser's punishment. Setting down the empty lunch bowls, they kicked off a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek, with Soya eagerly promising to count to 10 before coming to hunt him down. Soya covers her face against the trunk of a massive ancient tree, loudly counting up to 4, while Suri stands guard right beside her. Soya peeks through her fingers with a mischievous pink eye, totally determined to spot where the white tiger cub snuck off to. Groan! Suddenly, Suri clutches her stomach in agony, her face turning pale as a sudden, brutal bellyache hits her out of nowhere. Soya gasps in worry, urging her guide to head straight back down the mountain, but Suri winces in pain, hating the idea of ruining the young lady's big outing over a stomach bug. Gripping her stomach tightly, Suri begs Soya to stay close to young Master Gayul while she sprints back to the palace for an emergency bathroom break. Poof! Transforming instantly into her sleek indigo wolf form, Suri bolts through the meadow like a blue streak, leaving behind a cloud of smoke and dramatic wolf tears. Soya stands completely dumbfounded in the breeze, blinking in shock at how insanely fast her personal bodyguard just vanished. Shaken off the surprise, Soya reminds herself that she's still on seeker duty and turns around to search the forest for hidden Gayul. Crackle! A sudden violent snap of twigs catches her attention, causing Soya to glance back expecting to see her playful tiger companion. But instead of a cute cub, 2 massive, dark, wild wolves step out from the shadows, drooling menacingly with glowing red eyes locked right onto her. Gasp! Horror strikes as Soya clutches her neck, her heart hammering against her ribs as she realizes these ravenous beasts are actual bloodthirsty predators. Baring their razor-sharp fangs, the feral wolves let out terrifying growls, completely disregarding the golden rule that mountain beasts aren't supposed to attack humans. Soya's mind frantically races back to Suri's parting words, telling her to stick by Gayul's side no matter what happens. But Soya immediately rejects the idea. If she runs toward the young master, she'll lead these killer wolves right to him and put his life in danger. Talk about ultimate selflessness. Remembering the magical blue wind orb glowing on her chest, Soya resolves to handle this solo and use its light-footed power to make a break for it. Swoosh! Soya takes off sprinting at top speed through the dense brush, with the 2 giant wolves hot on her heels, snapping at her feet. Huffing for air with tears in her eyes, Soya pushes her tiny legs to the absolute limit as the furious snarls of the beasts echo right behind her back. Spotting a massive, steep boulder jutting out of the forest floor ahead, Soya zeroes in on it as her ultimate escape route. Channeling the blue wind magic from Sanho's orb, Soya launches herself effortlessly into the air toward the top of the giant rock formation. Climb! Soya pulls her small body over the rocky ledge, taking a desperate breath as she scrambles onto the top of the flat stone surface. Looking back over the edge, Soya blinks in utter confusion as she prepares to gloat at her pursuers. Down below, the 2 aggressive wolves are suddenly whimpering like terrified puppies, shivering violently before turning tail and running away in absolute panic. Rumble! Before Soya can even celebrate, a deep vibration echoes through the rock under her hands, sending tiny pebbles dancing across the stone surface. Soya's eyes widen in sheer terror as she feels the ground beneath her violently shaking and lifting up into the air. Crash! The entire rock structure twists violently, causing poor Soya to lose her balance and tumble headfirst onto the shifting ground. Soya gasps in horror as she looks up. That wasn't a giant boulder at all, but the sleeping body of an ancient demonic beast waking up from its slumber. The massive, shadowy silhouette rears up into the sky, casting a terrifying gloom over the tiny girl as dark energy swirls through the air. Paralyzed by pure aura, Soya's limbs refuse to respond, her tiny hands trembling against the grass as she tries frantically to move her frozen legs. Rising like a dark titan against the trees, the sludgy, shadowy, demonic monster opens its glowing blue eyes and fixates its terrifying gaze right onto little Soya. Talk about jumping out of the frying pan and straight into the fire. Just when you think our tiny heroine is about to get gobbled up by a terrifying shadow monster, she blinks in utter disbelief at the bizarre transformation happening right before her eyes. Poof! Out of nowhere, that creepy, oozing black mass transforms into the roundest, most adorable little bird you've ever seen in your entire life, letting out a cheerful chirp. Soya crouches in the grass, completely flabbergasted, wondering how on earth a shadowy nightmare creature just turned into a cute little feathered chonker. Peep, peep! The tiny black bird tilts its head, perfectly mirroring Soya's white bird form. Honestly, the resemblance is so uncanny, it's practically a fluffy copycat. Talk about top-tier copycat behavior. Slosh! Before Soya can even process the bird transformation, the dark creature starts melting down and reshaping itself yet again like sentient magical boba. Ta-da! The goo hardens into a chubby little black tiger cub with a tiny blue ribbon tied around its front paw. Seriously, could this artist make these beast designs any cuter? Pitter-patter, the little black cub toddles over through the tall grass, making Soya jump in surprise as it inches closer and closer. Looking up with the biggest, glossiest puppy dog eyes and sticking its tongue out, the cub completely destroys any shred of intimidation it had left. Blap! It lets out a tiny squeak, practically begging for chin scratches rather than trying to attack anyone. Soya tilts her head, carefully observing the harmless little beast and letting out a soft sigh of relief. Flop! Wanting maximum belly rubs, the little tiger rolls over onto its back in the grass, wiggling its paws in pure innocence. Soya asks if it's trying to show her that it means no harm, and the little cub squeaks back in enthusiastic agreement. Honestly, if this is supposed to be a dangerous monster, it's failing miserably at its job. Realizing she totally misjudged the little guy, Soya offers a sincere apology, while the cub vigorously shakes its head as if saying, no hard feelings. Staring back at her with pure affection, the little tiger sits patiently like a well-behaved house pet waiting for treats. Swish! Sunlight filters through the peaceful forest canopy, revealing tiny paw prints stamped into the grass, showing how far this little cub tracked her just to make a friend. Clap! Soya gasps as the dots finally connect. This sweet little tiger wasn't stalking her to eat her, but was actually trying to save her from those ferocious wild wolves. Bowing politely, Soya gives her heartfelt thanks to her tiny hero, making the little cub puff out its chest in proud, blushing satisfaction. But as Soya watches the cub, a chill of curiosity hits her. How did this mysterious creature manage to mimic her exact bird form earlier when she hadn't even transformed in front of it? Rumble! History lessons flashed through her mind. 8 years ago, the sinister Black Tortoise clan forged a dark alliance with an ancient evil, unleashing terrifying demonic beasts from the northern wastes. Under the dark rule of Hyan Rebek, these nightmare monsters plunged the entire continent into an apocalyptic war, leaving chaos and destruction in their wake. Boom! Fire rained down on cities as winged dragons incinerated whole towns, forcing the Empire to gather elite warriors from every major beast clan to strike back. Talk about an epic historical lore drop right in the middle of a wholesome forest scene. Soya recalls that back then, her big brother Sanyu and the White Tiger clan's eldest young master both marched off to the blood-soaked front lines to fight off the invasion. Looking back down at the chubby cub, Soya realizes this adorable little furball is technically one of those legendary demonic beasts she's only ever read about in scary storybooks. Everything she was ever taught warned that demonic beasts are mindless, destructive horrors that must be eliminated on sight. Yet looking at this sweet, innocent little guy sitting on the grass, she can't bring herself to believe he has a single malicious bone in his body. Soya kneels down gently, introducing herself and asking the little tiger cub how on earth he ended up all alone in this massive forest. She softly warns him that staying out in the open is dangerous, because if the adults find him, they'll mistake him for a monster and try to hurt him. A harsh reality Soya knows all too well from her own tragic past. Remembering how the court servants treated her like an unwanted outsider, tears gather in Soya's eyes as she projects her own painful memories onto this solitary beast. Scratch! Just as a tear slips down her cheek, the little tiger cub reaches out its fluffy paw and starts violently clawing at the dirt. Scraping sound! With surprising precision, the tiny beast uses its claw to etch clear, distinct letters right onto the muddy ground. Soya blinks in total disbelief as she reads the freshly written words Seoryo. Wait, a demonic beast that actually knows how to write human script? She asks if Seoryo is his name, and the little cub nods his head with absolute pride and a bright, happy smile. Man, this cub is low-key smarter than half the adults in this palace. Sparkle! Soya's face lights up with sheer joy, happily declaring that she and Seoryo are officially best friends from this day forward. But after the excitement settles, reality hits Soya like a sack of bricks. She's still stranded deep in the woods, and the sun is starting to set. A wave of panic sets in as she remembers promising Lady Yanjong that she'd be back at the estate way before nightfall. Over on the distant peaks of Mount Horim, the sky turns a brilliant shade of burning orange and gold as twilight rapidly approaches. Meanwhile, back inside the luxurious palace halls, a young noble bows respectfully to young Master Hyun, offering a polite greeting after a long time apart. But the poor kid awkwardly clears his throat, pointing out that Hyun mistook him for someone else. He's actually Un Seo of the Silver Tiger clan. Talk about an embarrassing social blunder for our top student. Hyun smoothly brushes off the mix-up, keeping his cool demeanor as he shifts the conversation back to business. Seo bows low in gratitude, accepting Hyun's words with complete respect before taking his leave. Sip? Sitting alone with a cup of warm tea, Hyun stares into his reflection floating on the surface of the green liquid, looking unusually distracted. He can't stop thinking about Soya's hurt expression earlier, regretting that he acted so cold and wondering if he should have been nicer to the little girl. Looking out the window toward the courtyard, Hyun realizes something feels completely off. Usually the little fluff ball would be taking her daily stroll around this time, but he hasn't seen a single trace of her all day. Slam! Hyun suddenly leaps to his feet, startling his companion so badly she nearly drops her teacup in shock. Gasp! A cold sweat breaks out across Hyun's face as a horrifying realization hits his brain. Soya isn't just taking a late walk, she's actually missing. Dash! Throwing decorum completely out the window, Hyun sprints down the ornate corridors while a panicked attendant chases behind him, yelling to ask what happened. Hyun searches room after room with growing desperation, his heart pounding in his chest as he searches every corner of the estate. He demands to know where Miss Fluffball is, explaining frantically that she never misses her morning walk or her afternoon playtime. Gritting his teeth, Hyun realizes that her entire daily routine was broken, meaning something terrible must have happened to her while no one was paying attention. Cornering Lady Yanjong, Hyun demands answers, setting up an intense cliffhanger as the palace finally realizes their precious little guest has vanished into the dangerous mountain woods. Imagine being the person in charge when the most precious, tiny guest in the entire realm suddenly vanishes right under your nose. Back inside the lavish palace halls, Hyun strides into the room with zero chill, demanding to know where Soya is hiding. The maid nervously looks up, dropping the bomb that little Soya went on an outing up Horim Mountain hours ago and hasn't shown her face since. Talk about an instant panic button trigger. Right on cue, Suri comes stumbling into the room, looking completely drained, like she just ran a marathon while battling the worst stomach cramps of her life. Lady Yanjong practically jumps out of her skin, demanding to know why Suri is back alone without Soya or the youngest master. Leaving two toddlers unattended on a literal mountain is wild staff management. Read the room. Suri stammers out that her stomach was killing her, so she trusted the youngest master and Soya to stick together while she took a quick break. Hyun's eyes widen in absolute disbelief. Gulp. The heavy silence in the room could be cut with a knife as Hyun's stomach drops to the floor, realizing the sheer gravity of what just happened. Dash! Throwing all noble composure out the window, Hyun bolts through the ornate hallways like a man possessed, while his frantic attendants scramble to keep up. Out in the courtyard, the servants try to calm him down, spotting the youngest young master trudging back toward the palace and assuming everything is fine. But as the young master walks through the heavy wooden gates all by himself, his pale, shell-shocked face says everything you need to know. Hyun immediately corners his little brother, asking where Soya is, but the kid's trembling hands and blank stare reveal the horrifying truth before he even speaks. Seriously, this poor kid looks like he saw a ghost. Breaking down into tears, the youngest master confesses the nightmare. He lost track of Soya on the mountain. He explains that while playing hide-and-seek, he hid in the bushes and accidentally fell fast asleep, only to wake up completely alone with zero sign of Soya's scent anywhere. Boom! Hyun completely loses his temper, screaming at his sobbing brother for coming down the mountain alone like an absolute idiot. The poor kid buries his face in his hands, completely overwhelmed by guilt. Look, yelling at a traumatized toddler isn't great parenting, but you can definitely feel Haeon's sheer panic here. Gritting his teeth until they practically shatter, Hyun's eyes burn with a mix of blinding rage and pure terror for Soya's safety. Swish! Deep beneath the pitch-black forest canopy of Mount Horam, the cool night wind whispers through the leaves as darkness fully settles over the mountain. The search party ventures deep into the spooky forest with glowing lanterns, trying to reassure Hyun that the mountain beasts are harmless. Yet Hyun's sharp tiger instincts kick in as he notices Soya's scent has completely vanished into thin air. A sinister realization settles over him like a dark shadow. Something artificial is actively masking Soya's location from being tracked. Poof! With a sudden burst of blinding, radiant aura, the air around Hyun explodes with intense spiritual energy. Roar! Transforming into a magnificent, massive white tiger, Hyun orders his stunned servants to head back to the palace while he sprints into the gloom alone. Talk about a flex, the artist went all out on this majestic tiger design. Crickets. Meanwhile, deep in the isolated woods, the eerie stillness of the dark night hangs heavy over the forest floor. Little Soya sits huddled against the roots of a giant tree next to her tiny black cub companion, wondering why the young master hasn't sniffed her out yet. Achoo! A cold gust of wind makes poor Soya sneeze and shiver violently as the nighttime chill cuts right through her thin clothes. Reaching into her robes, Soya pulls out the pink scent pouch that Lord Sayo gifted her earlier. Gasp! Her jaw drops in horror as the realization hits. The scent pouch Seo gave her is designed to mask all body odor, meaning no tiger can ever track her scent as long as she holds it. Wait, was Seo secretly trying to sabotage her all along? Seeing her shiver, little Seorio, the black cub, nudges against her side, whimpering softly. Soya gently wraps her arms around him to keep them both warm. Ew! The tiny black cub turns bright red and squeaks in pure, utter bliss as Soya snuggles him against her cheek. But as Soya continues to tremble from the freezing air, Seorio looks up with deep concern in his big, glossy eyes. Zip! Out of nowhere, the little cub wiggles out of her embrace and darts off into the pitch-black brush. Patter, patter, Soya calls out in confusion as the tiny shadow disappears into the dark woods. A few moments later, Seorio comes waddling back, dragging a giant, oversized green leaf in his tiny jaws. Gyeong! With maximum effort, the adorable cub proudly props two massive leaves over himself like a little makeshift leaf tent. This cub deserves an award for absolute peak cuteness. Soya blinks at the bizarre sight, completely stunned by the cub's unexpected genius. Tap. Gently standing on his hind legs, Seorio carefully drapes the massive green leaf over Soya's shoulders like a cozy winter blanket. Soya's eyes light up with tears of joy at the sweetest gesture from her tiny heroic friend. Soya beams with a radiant smile, offering her sweetest heartfelt thanks to her fluffy protector. She softly admits that if she had been stranded all alone in this scary forest, she would have been crying her eyes out by now, while Seorio tilts his head proudly. Foo-foo. Soya lets out a warm, comforting giggle, hugging the leaf blanket tight around her shoulders. But her sweet smile quickly fades as reality sets in. She broke her promise to return before sunset, and now everyone back home must be sick with worry. Worse yet, she remembers the special blue flower she worked so hard to pick for the second young master, fearing it might wilt before she can deliver it. Inside her little wooden cylinder, the beautiful purple-blue flower stays perfectly preserved, holding all her sweet intentions. Snap! Soya suddenly freezes in place, clutching the wooden vase tight as a sharp rustling sound echoes through the surrounding trees.
Thud, thud. Heavy rhythmic thumps echo through the dark woods, making Soya tremble in panic, fearing a predatory beast has tracked them down.
Roar! Siorio immediately leaps in front of Soya, baring his tiny fangs and letting out a fierce roar against the terrifying dark auras shattering the air around them. Man, this tiny tiger has more courage than half the grown knights in the kingdom. Swoosh! Gusts of wind whip through the tree canopy as heavy steps move rapidly through the dark brush. Tap, tap. Soya's eyes widen as she listens closely. Those aren't the chaotic stomps of a wild monster, but the swift, calculated footsteps of a human running at full speed. A wave of relief nearly washes over her, hoping it's a rescue squad from Bako Palace, but then a chilling thought paralyzes her blood. Terrible memories flood her mind of dark-clothed assassins drawing cold steel swords to end her life and her traumatic past. Gasp! Soya tightly shuts her eyes, tears spilling over as she cringes in absolute terror, begging silently in her heart not to die. Soya! A desperate, familiar voice shatters the gloom. Soya opens her tear-stained eyes to see a flash of iconic silver hair. It's Hyun, who finally tracked her down in the nick of time. Talk about a god-tier rescue entrance to close out the chapter. Just when Soya thinks she's about to be shredded by an assassin, a pair of strong arms swoops in out of nowhere and pulls her into a tight, desperate embrace. Soya's eyes snap wide open in utter disbelief. She was preparing for the worst, but instead of cold steel, she's wrapped in warm, trembling arms that refuse to let her go. Under the eerie blue glow of the forest moonlight, Hyun clutches the tiny girl like she's about to vanish into thin air if he lets go for even a single second. Gasp! Looking over his shoulder, Soya realizes something that completely chills her to the bone. The usually composed, arrogant second young master is actually trembling violently. Okay, seeing this proud tiger boy break down in pure panic really hits different. Whimper! Down by their feet, the little black cub lets out a soft, confused squeak, tilting its head while watching the two humans have their dramatic reunion. Pat, pat. Gently cradling the back of her head, Hyun buries his face in her hair, letting out a heavy sigh of relief, as if the weight of the whole world just lifted off his shoulders. Pulling back just enough to look at her, Hyun grips her arms, his voice cracking with emotion as he demands to know why on earth she waited until now to speak up. Thud. Soya flinches at how ice-cold his hands feel against her skin, while Hyun blushes furiously and confesses that he was out of his mind with worry, not for himself, but because he was terrified for her. Talk about top-tier character growth. He went from cold tsundere to worried big brother in record time. He admits with a bitter look that he felt like a total helpless idiot, running around the dark mountain completely blind because he couldn't sense her scent anywhere. Clenching his bloody, scratched fists, Hyun looks away in shame, bowing his head as he stammers out a genuine, heartfelt apology for being so useless. Deep down, his heart aches with guilt as he chastises himself for taking so long to reach her side when she needed him most. Swoosh! Without missing a beat, he slips off his own warm outer robe and drapes it over Soya's tiny shoulders like a blanket. Honestly, seeing this noble prince act like a human heating pad is peak wholesome content. Tap, tap, scooping her up onto his back, Hyun begins trekking through the dark mountain path while the little black cub waddles right behind them like a loyal bodyguard. Soya rests her chin on his shoulder, softly telling him he's totally fine, and worrying that he might trip and hurt himself in the dark, pitch-black woods. Looking at his sharp profile under the moonlight, Soya's cheeks flush with a warm pink blush as a cozy feeling swells in her chest. She smiles softly to herself, thinking about how Hyun's sturdy, warm back feels just like Lord Seon's. Wait, comparing the young master to the ultimate tiger patriarch? She really trusts him completely now. Hyun explains that the reason he took so long was because some bizarre magical barrier was covering the area, forcing him to blast right through it to break in. Growl. Suddenly, Hyun halts in his tracks as a tiny tug pulls at his trousers. The little black cub is chomping down on his hem, glaring up at him with maximum attitude. Han's eyes narrow as a wild suspicion hits him. Could this tiny, suspicious furry fuzzball actually be the one who created that massive magical barrier? Gasp! Soya quickly defends the little guy, blurting out that wild beasts attacked her earlier and this cub saved her life. Hyun's jaw practically drops to the floor hearing that mountain monsters attacked her. Seriously, who let aggressive beasts roam near a palace guest? Soya begins recounting the crazy story of her survival while the quiet night wind rustles through the glowing blue leaves above them. Clutching his shirt tightly, Soya buries her face in his neck, terrified that he's secretly furious at her for wandering off and breaking her promise to stay safe. But instead of scolding her, Hyun glances back with pure concern in his blue eyes, gently asking if she's hurt anywhere on her body. Soya quickly reassures him that she didn't get bitten at all, thanks to the wind orb Lady Sanho gave her that let her fly out of danger. Talk about clutch magical items coming through in the nick of time. Hearing that she's safe, a subtle flush spreads across Hyun's cheeks, his fierce warrior facade completely melting away. Blink. As Soya rests her cheek against his shoulder, her eyes catch a sudden glimpse of something red and torn on his clothing. Gasp! Blood drips through deep rips in his white robes. Hyun tore through sharp briars and rocky terrain at full speed just to find her, completely ignoring his own injuries. Clearing his throat awkwardly, Hyun stammers out that he wants to talk about what happened between them yesterday. Hearing the little cub whining behind him, Hyun glances back and decides that if this little fluffball really protected Soya, he'll let it tag along for now. Look at that cub trotting along like a tiny, aggressive bodyguard. It's hilarious. Soya mentions the hand-carved tiger stone charm she gave him before, saying she made a partner for it so it wouldn't feel lonely anymore. Panic! Hyun goes full chibi mode, flustered beyond belief as he stammers. He never threw her gift away. He desperately explains that Hojik didn't tell him it was a protective charm, so he only said mean things because he was totally ignorant. Blushing up to his ears, Hyun lowers his head and admits that everything he just said was just a lame, stupid excuse. Seeing this arrogant tsundere prince crumble in embarrassment is pure gold. He confesses that she must have been terrified arriving in a strange place. Yet he treated her terribly, ignored her pure kindness, and said awful things. And it was 100% all his fault. Under the peaceful moonlight, Hyun asks in a quiet, hesitant voice if she could ever find it in her heart to forgive him once she feels better. Soya beams with a radiant, heart-melting smile, softly telling him that while she was a little sad at first, she's completely okay now and doesn't hold any grudge at all. Foo-foo, Soya nestles against his neck and whispers a heartfelt thank you, causing a soft, genuine smile to break across Hyun's face. The art style in this tender scene is honestly so soft and breathtaking. As the grand gates of Baeko Palace come into view, Hyun clears his throat and softly asks if she could stop calling him young master and start calling him older brother instead. Step! Hyun strides confidently into the palace courtyard, carrying the tired, cozy little girl safely on his back. Standing at the grand stairs, Lord Seon steps forward with a warm smile, praising Hyun for protecting the palace and handling everything so maturely while he was away. Gasp! Lord Seon reaches out to carry Soya to her room, but half asleep Soya snuggles tighter into Hyun's neck, sleep-talking Hyun Oppa out loud. Hyun's eyes pop out of his head in absolute shock. Swish! Flushing bright red, Hyun pulls back, glaring at his own father and coldly declaring that no way is he handing her over. He's carrying her to her room himself. Lord Seon freezes mid-reach, completely stunned by his usually aloof son's sudden possessiveness over the little girl. Snicker! Lord Seon covers his mouth as a smug, mischievous smirk spreads across his face. He knows exactly what's going on, and he's loving every second of this drama. Thud, thud. Hyun marches up the grand marble staircase like a protective guard, while the little black cub trots right up the steps behind him like it owns the place. Turning his head, Lord Seon's sharp eyes catch sight of the unusual furry guest trailing behind his son. Whimper? Seon frowns in confusion, wondering why on earth a non-tiger mythical beast is casually waddling into the sacred white tiger palace. Creak! Over by the inner corridors, a sliding door opens a crack, revealing a young girl with piercing purple eyes, glaring out with pure envy. Cue the unexpected villain spawn entering the chat. Clenching her fists, she angrily fumes over how an outsider who isn't even a tiger managed to steal all the attention, ruining her flawless plan to get adopted and rule the Western Wing. Biting her thumbnail in a fit of bitter rage, she curses Soya as a worthless brat, terrified that Lord Seon will officially adopt Soya and strip away all her power and status. Gasp! Covering her trembling mouth, her eyes swirl with dark jealousy as she realizes her comfortable life is about to be completely upended, leaving us on a massive cliffhanger for what dangerous scheme this jealous girl will pull next. Talk about an epic setup for the next chapter. Talk about a plot plotting in the shadows. Just as the snake-eyed villainess thinks her evil scheme is foolproof, her masked assassin kneels down with the coldest reality check, letting her know that things definitely aren't going her way. Gasp! The purple-eyed brat freezes in sheer terror, clutching her mouth as she stares down at her shadowy operative like she just saw a ghost. The assassin points out how bizarre it is that mountain beasts would suddenly turn aggressive and attack humans, sending the villainess into a total tailspin of panic as people pass by the corridor. Slam! She grabs the heavy wooden sliding doors and shuts them shut before anyone can catch her red-handed in her private villain den. Fuming with pure rage, she turns on her assassin and screams at him for failing, demanding to know why her curse-filled sachet didn't wipe out Soya like he promised. Honestly, blaming your hired help when your own cheap curse fails is peak toxic behavior. The masked assassin remains stone-cold calm, nonchalantly replying that an unexpected variable ruined their bulletproof hit job. Pacing back and forth in her luxurious quarters, the jealous girl whines about how everyone in the palace is utterly obsessed with Soya, terrified she'll get adopted right under her nose. But with an evil smirk hidden under his mask, the assassin whispers that she shouldn't worry at all, because he already knows Soya's ultimate weak point. Blink, cut back to the cozy inner chambers where our little princess Soya wakes up looking like the most precious angel to ever grace the story. Siri and the red-haired maid rush over to her bedside, practically sobbing with relief as they shower Soya with love, making sure she didn't catch a cold after her terrifying night in the woods. Gulp. Soya lowers her head sweetly, apologizing for making everyone worry so much, which only makes her maids' hearts melt into total puddle status. Thud! A hilarious mini flashback shows poor Suri getting chewed out by Lady Sanho for letting Soya out of her sight last night. Look at the maid sweating bullets while Suri gets lectured. Art quality on these chibi moments is honestly unbeatable. Outside, the soft morning breeze rustles through the courtyard trees as Soya sits peacefully by her bedroom window. Suddenly, the youngest tiger prince, Gayul, pops up out of the tree branch like a timid squirrel, blushing furiously while stammering that he definitely wasn't peeking on her. Tears spring to his huge blue eyes as he stammers out a heartbroken apology, feeling utterly useless for failing to protect her during the beast attack. Poof! Overwhelmed with guilt, the poor kid accidentally transforms into a tiny white tiger cub and comes tumbling head over heels off the tree limb. Soya gasps in sheer shock. Leaning out the window frame with a soft, comforting smile, Soya reassures the little tiger fluffball that she's totally unhurt and back safe and sound. Step. Out of nowhere, a sleek, embroidered sleeve enters the frame as Second Master Huan steps up, coldly telling Soya to leave the kid alone because he deserves a serious lecture. Soya turns around to see Hyun looking absolutely radiant in his crisp noble attire. Seriously, this man upgraded from edgy tsundere to top-tier main character visual overnight. Sitting together over a warm cup of herbal tea, Soya proudly presents a vase of skyflowers, blushing as she admits she gathered them specifically because she heard they were his absolute favorite. Hyun's fierce eyes soften completely as he offers her a genuine, heartwarming smile, though inside he's secretly dying of worry seeing her scratched hands and bruised feet. Soya's eyes widen in total awe at his gentle expression. It's like the chilly frost around his heart just melted away completely. Bowing her head with a rosy flush across her cheeks, Soya softly addresses him as her dear brother for the first time, sending the cozy vibes off the charts. Roar! The wholesome mood is instantly shattered as the little white tiger cub Gayul bursts into the room, throwing a massive temper tantrum over why Hyun gets to be called brother. Rolling around on his back like a dramatic toddler, the tiny cub wails at the top of his lungs, begging Soya to let him be her brother too. Hyun just gives him the ultimate side-eye like, absolutely not. Pout. Hyun drops the brutal truth bomb, telling the cub he's a complete disgrace to all tigers who does nothing but throw tantrums instead of protecting his loved ones. Ouch. Talk about savage big brother discipline. Gasp! Stunned by his own harsh tone, Hyun flinches in awkward embarrassment while Soya just stares at him in cute, deadpan silence. Clearing his throat to salvage his dignity, Hyun stammers out an awkward question, asking Soya why she's staring at him like that. Foo-foo! Soya giggles softly into her hand, teasingly telling him that she finally realizes he only talks rough because he cares so deeply about everyone. Look at Hyun blushing up to his ears. He got totally read like a book. Grrr! Pointing an accusing paw, the little cub huffs that Hyun is just a mean, bad tiger who picks on little kids, sparking an immediate shouting match between the two brothers. Suddenly, Soya's smile fades as a dark memory hits her. She softly asks what became of the mysterious black cub that fought off the wild beast to save her life. Hyun sighs, explaining that the creature trailed them for a bit before mysteriously vanishing into the shadows. Soya secretly thinks to herself that it's probably for the best, since people would harm it for being a demon beast. Flashback. A haunting image of the mythical demon beast appears in her mind, shrouded in eerie purple mist and ancient mystery. Soya gazes down at her teacup, the heavy silence settling over the room, as deeper worries begin to weigh on her mind. Clench. She tightly squeezes her hands together in her lap, her knuckles turning pale as she grapples with the dark truth behind her attack. Her gentle red eyes cloud over with quiet sorrow, realizing the peaceful life she just found might be built on dangerous secrets. Swish. Dressed in a vibrant yellow hanbok, Soya sits on the grand palace ledge later that day, staring up into the bright blue sky in deep contemplation. She recalls Hyun's serious warning about the scented sachet she received earlier, how its dark magic suppressed her presence and drove the mountain beast wild. Gasp! Realizing that Miss Orang deliberately gave her the cursed sachet to get her killed for the Western room, Soya wonders if she should report this evil plot to Hyun right away. Soya! A loud, cheerful voice suddenly breaks her train of thought, making her jump in surprise. An energetic brown-haired girl in a pretty hanbok comes sprinting up the stairs, panting heavily as she asks if Soya is okay after yesterday's chaos. Punch! Clenching her fists with fiery passion, the newcomer fumes about how irresponsible Baek Ga-yul was for abandoning a tiny girl in the mountains. Soya immediately smiles and defends her tiger friend's honor. Soya sweetly begs her not to hold a grudge against Ga-yul, showing off her saintly, forgiving nature once again. The brown-haired girl huffs, telling Soya to stay away from those clumsy tiger boys anyway, especially since she'll be moving out of the palace very soon. Soya's jaw drops in utter shock. Good! A dramatic narrative card confirms that a new young lady is arriving shortly, forcing the current guests to pack up their rooms. The girl tilts her head in confusion as Soya stands completely frozen in place, processing the unexpected news. Zoom in! Soya's pink eye widens with a sudden stroke of genius, or sheer panic, as a brand new opportunity unfolds right in front of her. Grab! Without missing a beat, the enthusiastic girl grabs both of Soya's hands in a tight, desperate grip. She passionately pitches her home territory, boasting about the giant lakes for swimming, the endless mountain paths, and promising that Soya will never get lost with her around. Sparkle! With bright flowers blooming in the background, she flashes the most dazzling smile and begs Soya to come live at her house instead. Talk about an unexpected recruiter joining the race for Soya's affection. What a wild cliffhanger to close out! Soya's new brown-haired friend beams with a million-watt smile, completely overflowing with bubbly enthusiasm as she pitches her grand house offer. Grabbed by the hands, little Soya gets pulled into an intense handshake, while the girl hilariously promises to take care of her no matter what. Just as they're chatting away, an ornate palanquin pulls up in the palace courtyard, drawing everyone's immediate attention. A sleek young lady from the Black Tiger clan named Hyuk's Hae steps out, oozing pure noble arrogance. Flipping her hair in total annoyance, Sahai struts past like she owns the place. Honestly, the attitude on this girl could cut glass. The brown-haired maid leans into gossip, explaining how Sahai always planned to marry Prince Gaia, but becoming adoptive siblings completely ruined her romantic dreams. Soya lowers her head in quiet understanding, processing all the complicated political drama brewing inside these palace walls. The brown-haired girl insists that Soya needs self-defense lessons because cuteness alone won't survive the Tiger clan. Meanwhile, a mysterious dark-striped tail flicks into frame. Gasps. Soya's eyes widen as she catches a glimpse of dark ears poking out behind the stone pillar. Bam! She suddenly leaps to her feet, surprising her friend completely mid-sentence. Excusing herself in a flurry of excitement, Soya promises to catch up with Miss Orang later and bolts toward the courtyard wall. Peeking behind the wall, Soya immediately recognizes the adorable little black tiger cub hiding in the shadows. The tiny black cub lets out a cheerful squeak and bounces right toward her like a hyperactive puppy. Frantically waving her arms, Soya desperately whispers for the little guy to run back up to the safety of the mountain before someone spots him. Instead of listening, the stubborn little cub rubs his soft fur against her cheek, completely oblivious to the danger. Man, talk about zero self-preservation instincts. A cool, majestic voice echoes from right behind her, remarking that Soya seems to have made a very unusual new companion. Soya's heart instantly drops into her shoes as she turns around to find Lord Sion standing over them like a towering mythical deity. Imagining worst-case scenarios with blood splattering everywhere, Soya trembles in sheer terror, thinking Sayon is going to execute the cub as a demonic beast. Holding the little black cub tightly in her arms, Soya looks up like a protective mama bear ready to shield her fluffy friend at all costs. But instead of drawing a sword, Lord Sayon offers a remarkably soft, benevolent smile that melts the tension in a single second. He reveals that he actually rescued this exact demon cub from a burning battlefield 7 whole years ago. Look at young Sayon looking like an absolute powerhouse badass in full combat armor. Crouching down to their eye level, Sayon casually confirms Soya's guess that the cub was taken just like she was. Soya gasps as the pieces suddenly click together, realizing Lord Sayon has been secretly harboring this fluffy outlaw the entire time? Soya frantically looks over both shoulders, making sure no sneaky palace guards are eavesdropping on their top-secret conversation. Leaning in close, Sayon chuckles mischievously, warning her to keep quiet unless she wants everyone to know he had his luxurious white fur yanked out like a stray cat. Sayon gives a smooth, playful smile, totally unbothered by his secret being out as long as his favorite little princess keeps it between them. A deep crimson flush spreads across Soya's cheeks as she stares up at him. Seriously, this man's visual game should actually be declared illegal. Looking down with boundless warmth, Sayon treats her with the kind of gentle care that makes you forget he's the ruler of an entire realm. Sitting together on the stone walkway, the unlikely trio forms the most heartwarming makeshift family moment in the whole series. Without warning, Sayon scoops little Soya up into his arms in one effortless motion. Clinging to his collar for dear life, Saya squeaks in surprise while Sayon teasingly asks if she's gained a bit of weight lately. Soya's jaw drops as she wriggles to get down, while the black cub watches from below, looking like, yep, definitely not getting involved in this. Tucking her closely against his chest, Sayon chuckles softly and admits he was only teasing her. Soya buries her face in her hands, completely burning up from embarrassment, as Sayon declares they urgently need to fatten her up. Down on the pavement, the little cub gives the most hilarious deadpan sweat drop expression. This art style shift for comedic beats is peak webtoon perfection. Cut to later that evening, where Sayon hosts a grand feast and warmly praises Soya for returning home so bravely after that terrifying beast encounter. Soya's face turns beet red as the sincere compliments shower over her, completely unaccustomed to such overwhelming love. Bowing her head politely, she soft-spokenly apologizes for causing everyone so much unnecessary worry and heartbreak. Sayon gazes down at her with striking blue eyes, his intense gaze softening into pure admiration. He gently reminds her that by staying safe, she ended up protecting the entire White Tiger Palace from chaos and dark forces. A cute mental diagram pops up listing all the clan members, from Old Fox Jokyong to Gahyeon and Yule, who were all saved thanks to her survival. Noticing there aren't enough spoons, Sayon casually picks up his chopsticks to hand-feed Soya right then and there. Surrounded by sparkling floral effects, Sayon offers her a bite with the most dazzling main character smile imaginable. Talk about elite fan service. Later that afternoon, Soya walks down the long carpeted hallway of the palace in deep thought. Memories flood back regarding Miss Sayo, the White Tiger clan's grand scheme, and the mysterious curse sachet meant to ruin everything. Soya grips her yellow hanbok dress with resolve, deciding she won't stay silent when suddenly a sweet, artificial voice greets her from behind. Surrounded by eerie purple roses, Miss Sayo appears with a flawless, deceptively innocent smile on her face. Soya turns around, her gentle red eyes locking in with intense determination as she prepares for the ultimate showdown. Pointing right at her, Soya boldly demands answers about the cursed sachet meant to harm her. Covering her mouth with a dark, evil chuckle, Miss Sayo drops her fake persona, admitting she severely underestimated Soya, leaving us on an absolute fire cliffhanger for the next episode. Imagine thinking you finally found a peaceful home, only for a snake in silk to corner you in the dark. Soya stands frozen as the room instantly goes ice cold, her heart hammering against her ribs. Emerging like a shadow, Miss Sayo wraps Soya in a fake suffocating hug while whispering straight-up venom into her ear, calling her a thief who stole her entire life. Trembling with wide, terrified eyes, little Soya desperately gasps out that she never intended to take anything from anyone, but Sayo isn't buying a single word of it. Bam! The atmosphere drops below freezing as Seo cold-heartedly delivers her brutal ultimatum, ordering Soya to get lost before things get ugly. Honestly, the nerve of this villainess is off the charts. Leaning in close with a sinister smirk, Seo viciously threatens that if Soya doesn't walk away on her own right now, she'll make sure everyone turns against her. A terrifying flashback flashes through Soya's mind, showing how fast Lord Sion and the rest of the White Tiger clan would disown her if they thought she was tied to the evil faction. Tears spill down Soya's face as the painful memory of being abandoned by her past clan cuts through her heart like a rusty blade. Man, seeing our wholesome little cinnamon roll get tormented like this is pure agony. Sob, Soya sweetly begs for just one final chance to say goodbye to Lord Sion, but Seo roughly grabs her shoulders, accusing her of using tears just to cling to power. Pan out, glaring at the magnificent Western room, Seo growls that she can't stand the thought of a nobody like Soya occupying her rightful throne for even one more night. Poking her right in the chest with zero mercy, Seo warns Soya to pack up and sneak out before sunrise, or face complete destruction. Fast forward to midnight in her dimly lit quarters, Soya sits on her bed, gently packing up her tiny plush white tiger with trembling hands. Hugging her little travel bundle, Soya choked uply realizes she's being forced to run away like a criminal without even saying a proper thank you to the man who saved her. Tightening her grip on her bag, Soya wipes her tears away and prepares to step out into the cold unknown. Talk about peak main character resilience. Creak! Soya quietly slips out into the dark garden, but a sudden rustling noise in the bushes makes her freeze dead in her tracks. Swish! Out pops the adorable little black tiger cub, letting out a fiery little growl before vaulting over the wooden railing like a tiny ninja. Soya's face lights up as she kneels down to hug the fluffy cub, softly telling him that while she's thrilled he came to say bye, she really has to get moving. Tilt! The little cub lets out a squeaky kyo and gazes up at her with big round eyes, prompting Soya to realize he's actually trying to tag along on her escape mission. Sparkle! Hugging her dark, fluffy sidekick against a backdrop of shimmering stars, Soya whispers her heartfelt thanks, feeling like the world isn't so terrifying with a friend by her side. Okay, this duo is officially the cutest package deal in webtoon history. Turning back toward the majestic palace beneath the full moon, Soya offers one last tearful bow, silently thanking Lord Sion for all his warmth and kindness. Sniff! Suddenly, a strange pink haze drifts past her nose, carrying an uncanny scent that Soya immediately recognizes as the orchid fragrance used to lure wild beasts. Tap, tap, tap. Following the glowing trail of ominous mist, Soya and her fluffy cub hurry across the courtyard toward a row of royal carriages parked in the shadows. Gasp! Soya's eyes widen as she remembers Miss Arang and Miss Sahai arriving in those exact palanquins earlier that morning. Zoom out. An overhead shot reveals a grand procession marching through the forest under tiger banners, setting the stage for tomorrow's massive Mountain Lord Festival. Roar! A dramatic banner showcasing a fierce white tiger confirms that the realm's most dangerous annual gathering is literally hours away. Soya stares in utter horror as she realizes the cursed aura is floating right around Lady Arang and Lady Saha's festival carriages. Peeking through the wooden lattice with her cub, Soya catches sight of a familiar pink sachet hanging right inside, radiating waves of dark magic. Flashback. Connecting the dots, Soya realizes Seo gave her that exact same scented pouch earlier, meaning the villainess is planning to sabotage the entire festival and kill everyone inside. Dramatic pause. Text cards highlight the terrifying question haunting Soya's mind. Why in the world is Seo willing to slaughter innocent people just for her twisted game? Soya remembers Sion threatening to expose her secrets, dreading the thought of being branded as a villain again, but she knows she can't just walk away and let people die. Glow! Memories of Lord Sion's warm, radiant smile flood her mind, instantly igniting a blazing fire of determination in her heart. Standing tall under the moonlight, Soya looks down at the festival carriage, her initial terror completely replaced by a bold, heroic resolve. Clenching her tiny fist with absolute conviction, she turns to her black tiger cub and asks if he's ready to help her pull off an impossible mission.
Mew! Mew! The fluffy cub wags his tail like a hyperactive pup, giving his total seal of approval with the most hilarious head tilt imaginable.
Meanwhile, deep inside the palace archives, young Master Ga-hyun is hard at work late at night, surrounded by stacks of ancient scrolls and glowing lanterns. Flashback. We cut back to earlier that day where Ga-hyun sat across from Soya over tea, casually asking if anyone else knew about their planned trip up Mount Horam. Soya had looked down nervously, softly replying that she wasn't entirely sure who might have overheard them. Stare. Ga-hyun had remained silent, his sharp blue eyes instantly detecting that Soya was hiding something crucial from him out of pure fear. Back in the present, Ga-hyun writes in his journal, realizing Soya knew exactly who set the trap on the mountain, but was far too kind-hearted to point fingers and cause trouble. Determination! Ga-hyun vows that as her protective senior martial brother, it's his sole duty to uncover the truth, recalling how he personally inspected the mountain trail and found only Soya's footprints. Crash! A dark visual shows the cursed sachet unleashing red chains of dark sorcery over bloodthirsty wild wolves. Ga-hyun deduces someone planted a wicked artifact to trigger the beast frenzy on purpose. A somber flashback shows little Soya desperately fleeing through the foggy woods during the attack. Ga-hyun's just thinking, everyone in the White Tiger Palace absolutely adored Soya. They even gave her this little nickname, their little fluff ball. Contrast? An adorable memory shows Lord Sion holding baby Soya while the entire staff gushes over her, leading Ga-hyun to figure out that whoever hated Soya's popularity the most was the mastermind behind the attack. Tack. Interrupting his deep thoughts, an assistant enters the library and hands Ga-hyun a small wooden box containing a custom stone seal fresh from the kiln. Sparkle! Ga-hyun opens the box and beams with pure joy, admiring the custom stamp engraved with an ultra-cute chibi drawing of Soya's smiling face. Seriously, this guy's subtle big brother simping is high-key wholesome. Smiling warmly to himself, Ga-hyun decides that presenting this cute custom gift is the perfect excuse to drop by Soya's room late at night to check up on her. Knock, knock. Arriving at the western room, Ga-hyun gently taps on the sliding door, softly calling out Soya's name to see if she's still awake. Slide. Receiving no answer, he steps into the pitch-black room, instantly noticing that the bed is completely empty and untouched. Gasp! Suddenly, Ga-hyun catches the lingering whiff of dark purple magic lingering in the air, his face twisting into sheer terror. Impact! Reaching his hand out toward the vacant room, Ga-hyun realizes in complete horror that the enemy has struck again, leaving us on an absolutely insane high-stakes cliffhanger. Imagine walking into a villain's room late at night, expecting a quiet search, only to get caught red-handed by her suspicious maid. Ga-hyun strides right into Miss Sayo's quarters without skipping a beat, ready to demand answers about Soya's sudden disappearance. Gasp! Miss Seo's purple eyes widen in absolute terror as a cold sweat drop drips down her face. She definitely wasn't expecting the young master to crash her room like an angry landlord collecting overdue rent. Grab! Dropping all polite etiquette, Ga-hyun grabs Seo by her collar with an icy glare, furiously demanding to know where she hid Soya. Man, seeing our calm big brother completely snap shows just how much he treasures his little fluff ball. Swipe, Seo violently slaps his hand away, screaming about why he'd look for that annoying brat in her room. But Ga-hyun isn't buying her innocent act for a second, coldly declaring that he knows this whole disaster is her doing. Feigning complete ignorance, Seo stammers that she has no idea what lies Soya fed him, swearing up and down that she's totally clueless. Honestly, the level of fake innocence coming from this girl deserves a Golden Globe Award for Best Snake Performance. Seo's maid immediately steps in front of her mistress, boldly scolding the young master for harassing a noble lady based on the mere words of a lowly commoner. Bang! That trashy line sets Ga-hyun off big time. He yells right back, warning her to watch her mouth because Soya isn't just some commoner. She's his father's most honored guest and his personal freeze. Ga-hyun suddenly cuts himself off mid-sentence, his face turning bright red as he stutters to a halt. Poor guy realizes mid-rant that he doesn't even know what title to give Soya yet. Is she his little sister, his protege, or his precious fluff ball? Talk about peak tsundere sibling energy. Outside in the hallway, the palace staff is busy gossiping about the huge argument blowing up inside, but while they're busy enjoying the tea, a menacing white-haired shadow looms over them from behind. Swish! Lord Sion's chilling voice cuts through the air like a razor, ordering everyone to step aside. The room instantly drops below freezing as the clan master enters the chat. Radiating pure, unmatchable aura, Lord Sion steps through the doorway, demanding to know why everyone is causing an uproar when they should be sleeping. Ga-yeon stammers out a nervous greeting, instantly wilting under his dad's terrifying presence. Turning around with cold sweat on his neck, Ga-yeon braces himself to explain the situation as Seo shrinks back in fear. Dramatic pause. The artist gives us a close-up of Sion's grim expression, building up insane tension before the ultimate truth gets dropped. Sion closes his eyes and sniffs the air, realizing in shock that Soya's sweet scent has completely vanished from the entire palace. Suddenly, news breaks out like wildfire. Soya has officially vanished into thin air. What? Soya's little sidekick screams out in pure horror alongside Lord Sion. You can literally feel the panic rising through the roof right now. Ga-hyun turns to the young girl in total confusion, asking where on earth Soya could have gone in the middle of the night. Flashback. A depressing memory reveals little Soya clutching her small travel bundle alone in the dark. The girl explains that Soya ran away because she believed the West Wing belonged to Xiao now, promising to retreat back to her old home instead of causing trouble. Ga-hyun's face twitches in heartbreak as he realizes Soya packed her bag solely because she felt unwanted. Bro, seeing our wholesome cinnamon roll beat herself up like this is literally crushing my soul. Boom! Lord Sion's eyes flash with murderous fury as the reality hits him. The heavy atmosphere in the room turns so suffocating that even the air pressure feels like it dropped 10 levels. Sion lowers his head with a terrifying calm demeanor, softly whispering that it's time to settle the score once and for all. Turning his gaze straight towards Seo, Sion sharply questions why she blames Soya's disappearance on the Yunho clan. Ga-yeon steps up, pointing a finger right at Seo and calling her out for using forbidden dark magic to frenzy the mountain beasts. Shout! Seo completely loses her cool, shrieking at them not to slander her family without concrete evidence. Seriously, watching the snake squirm when she gets cornered is so ridiculously satisfying. Desperate to shift the blame, Seo frantically points at the other side branch girls, claiming they also came to steal the West Wing. Poor Lady Sahai instantly hides behind a curtain, whining that her mom literally forced her to come. Seo smugly argues that wild beast turning aggressive is just a big fat lie created by Soya. But right as the words leave her mouth, rumble! A massive earthquake shakes the entire palace foundation, shattering her confidence in a microsecond. Thud, thud, thud. The ground vibrates violently as panic spreads through the servants. Out of nowhere, a guard comes sprinting down the carpeted hallway at top speed, screaming for the Lord. Saiyan turned around with a sharp, lethal look, waiting for the guard's update. Panic! The guard gasps for air, yelling that little Soya is currently out in the forest, getting hunted down by a massive pack of bloodthirsty wild beasts. The scene cuts to monstrous wolves with glowing red eyes charging furiously through the woods. Dash. Without wasting a single millisecond, Lord Sion charges out into the moonlight, screaming Soya's nickname Fluffball at the top of his lungs. Okay, dad mode has officially been activated, and somebody is gonna pay. Cut to the dark forest. Soya is literally riding on top of her fluffy black tiger cub like a battle charger. She turns back in absolute shock upon hearing Lord Sion's distant roar, desperately yelling for him to run away. Zoom out. An overhead shot of the moonlit trail reveals a sight straight out of a nightmare. Little Soya leading a horde of terrifying red-eyed wolves right toward the palace gates. Looking back over her shoulder, Soya grins with sharp determination, realizing her plan worked. The beasts are locked onto the cursed sachet's fragrance, tracking her every move. Soya tightly grips the cub's dark fur as they tear through the forest at breakneck speed. Talk about peak main character bravery from a kid who looks like she belongs in a plushie store. Flashback. Soya remembers a memory from her childhood back in her original clan, watching a servant get kicked out for stealing family assets while crying her eyes out. Soya remembers her father holding her warmly, teaching her that whenever she sees something evil, she must always gather the courage to speak up and expose the truth, no matter what. Tears stream down baby Soya's face as her dad reminds her that as a direct descendant of the vermilion bird, it's her sacred duty to protect the innocent fledglings around her. Back in the present, Soya rides her beastly mount through the brush, knowing in her heart that even if her father abandoned her later, his words of justice still ring true, and Lord Sion would want her to do the exact same thing. Glow. Soya's red eyes shine with fiery conviction as she prepares to confront her fears head-on. A breathtaking vision of Lord Sion appears in her mind, standing tall in his majestic tiger-embroidered robes with a sword in hand, representing the ultimate symbol of safety and warmth. Leap? Soya's dark beast vaults over the final stone ridge, bursting straight onto the open courtyard path leading directly to the White Tiger Palace. Lord Seon comes sprinting around the corner, his eyes lighting up as he catches sight of his precious little fluff ball riding out of the shadows. Relief. Soya gasps with joy seeing everyone gathered outside, relieved that once they see the enraged beast horde with their own eyes, they'll finally know she was telling the truth all along. Chibi mode! Suddenly, Soya's face turns totally blank as she realizes a massive flaw in her plan. She completely forgot to think about what happens after she leads the army of monsters right to their doorstep. Honestly, this comedic shift in the middle of a life-or-death crisis is pure gold. Waving her tiny arms frantically from atop the beast, Soya yells out at the top of her lungs for Lord Seon to take cover and run for his life. Stomp! Lord Seon and Gayen stand firm at the palace gate as the charging beast unit comes speeding toward them like an armored freight train. Epic shot! Without hesitating for even a split second, Lord Seon steps directly between little Soya and the wall of snarling, red-eyed wolves. Swing! Seon unsheathes his gleaming katana, his expression turning colder than absolute zero. The sheer sharpness of this artwork literally gave me goosebumps. Dominance. Radiating a terrifying aura of pure conqueror pressure, Seon glares down the beast pack and barks a single crushing command. Go back. The monstrous wolves instantly freeze in midair, trembling in sheer terror under his divine power. Scramble! Yielding to the absolute ruler of the mountain, the entire pack of ferocious wolves turns tail and flees back into the dark woods like whimpering puppies. Danger finally avoided, little Soya completely slumps over on the tiger cub's back, letting out the biggest sigh of relief in human history. Seon gently scoops little Soya up into his massive arms like a fragile porcelain doll, gazing down at her with pure relief, while the giant black cub stands by with the funniest, most derpy dot-eyed expression ever. What an absolute peak ending to an insane high-stakes chapter. Just as the chaos reaches peak levels, Lord Seon scoops up little Fluffball into his arms, asking why on earth a tiny baby Fluff is awake at such a ridiculous hour instead of tucked into bed. Holding her safely, Lord Seon points out the strange sachet dangling from Soya's little hand, bringing everyone's attention to the mysterious object in question. Soya doesn't hesitate for a second, explaining that this exact incense pouch caused a ferocious beast stampede back on Mount Horam. Check out CEO's face right now. She's sweating bullets because her secret scheme is getting blown wide open. Before anyone can play dumb, the young tiger guard points his finger in shock, recognizing that this is the very same pouch the Silver Tiger family tried to pass off earlier. Soya lays out the entire puzzle, revealing she caught the exact same suspicious scent coming from the other young ladies' carriages, and knew she had to speak up before someone got hurt. Honestly, our little Fluffball's detective skills are completely off the charts. Scream! Completely cornered, Lady CEO erupts in fury, shrieking that Soya is putting on a massive show full of lies. Desperate to save her own skin, CEO turns around and tries to slander Soya, shouting that she's nothing but a runaway thief who stole someone else's identity down south. Talk about the ultimate snake behavior when caught red-handed. The entire courtyard breaks out into quiet murmurs as the crowd gasps over CEO's wild claims about Soya being a fake daughter banished from the Vermilion Bird Clan. CEO continues her unhinged rant, claiming Soya is framing her just to steal the coveted Western corner room. Meanwhile, Soya just stands there quietly taking the verbal blow, which honestly makes my heart ache for her. Flashback! Soya knew this moment would come. She knew exposing the truth meant her dark secrets would be dragged into the light, but her golden heart couldn't let innocent people suffer. The level of maturity on this kid is unbelievable. Unbothered by CEO's dramatic performance, Lord Seon holds out the sachets collected from the carriages, staring down at them with a lethal look in his eyes. Seon raises an eyebrow, asking Soya to clarify what she meant about smelling a hidden scent on the pouches. Looking down at the little girl, Seon gently asks if she can really sense something from these pouches, and Soya softly confirms that she can. Seeing the nearby nobles whispering that they can't smell a single thing, CEO wears a smug, evil grin, foolishly believing she just caught Soya in a lie. But Seon isn't dumb. He immediately hands the suspicious sachet to his guard, ordering it to be delivered straight to High Priestess Sarah for an expert examination. Seon cold-mindedly states that if anyone can uncover the hidden dark magic inside that pouch, it's the High Priestess of the White Tiger Palace. Now that's what I call a checkmate move. Panic. Seo's face turns ghostly pale as her soul leaves her body. She realizes that if the magic is exposed, her dreams of joining the main clan line will crumble into dust. A dark memory flashes through Seo's mind, showing how her abusive parents branded her as a useless failure. While her past is tragic, taking it out on an innocent kid like Soya is still totally unacceptable. Seeing her mistress collapse, Seo's maid steps up with audacious nerve, daring to question why Lord Seon is taking the word of a random stray over noble blood. The maid arrogantly argues that punishing a noble silver tiger for an insignificant commoner is completely unseemly, while Seon's expression turns terrifyingly cold. Silence. Seon's voice drops like lead as he firmly cuts her off, declaring that Soya isn't just some commoner, she is his child, brought to this palace by his own hands. The maid stammers back in a frantic sweat, trying to claim they all know Soya is just an honored guest, but Seon has zero patience left for their nonsense. Gentle touch. Seon reaches down and tenderly holds Soya's small hand, correcting them once and for all. Soya isn't just a guest, she is his child. Tears. Big, sparkling tears pool in Soya's eyes as those words wash over her heart. Hearing the Grand Lord publicly claim her as his daughter is the sweetest, most wholesome moment ever. Cut to the peaceful, sunlit interior of the White Tiger Palace, where the air finally cools down after all that crazy outdoor drama. Inside the guest hall, young Master Ga-hyun pulls up a chair for Soya, telling her to relax inside while the guards handle the messy cleanup outside. Soya politely bows her head, soft-spokenly thanking the young master for his kindness. Pout. Ga-hyun turns away with a subtle pout, sulking internally because Soya went back to calling him young master instead of calling him brother like she did yesterday. Seeing his brooding expression, Soya tilts her head in total confusion, completely unaware of the tsundere brother crisis happening right in front of her. Ga-hyun suddenly turns around with a serious look, bringing up the fact that he heard from the brown tiger cub about her secret plan to run away from the palace. Leaning right into Soya's face, Ga-hyun demands to know if she tried to abandon him because he spoke harshly or treated her badly before. Talk about an overprotective brother acting dramatic. Chibi mode. Ga-hyun whines like a dramatic toddler that she's calling him young master again, while Soya nervously stammers that she's just not used to calling him brother yet. Soya's ruby eye expands in surprise as the mood in the room suddenly shifts to something far more serious and emotional. Tears well up in Ga-hyun's eyes as he drops his tough act entirely, desperately pleading with her not to leave them behind. Seriously, seeing this arrogant boy cry for his new sister is so touching. Soya sits frozen on her chair, her heart melting from the overwhelming warmth and affection being showered on her. Fidgeting with her fingers, Soya timidly explains that remaining in the palace might make Lady Seo uncomfortable, feeling like her presence causes unnecessary friction. Sure, totally selfless. Not at all like she's just trying to avoid getting caught. Slide! Before she can even finish her sentence, the wooden sliding door bursts open with a sharp sound, catching both of them completely off guard. Soya turns her head around, her teary eyes widening in shock at whoever just walked through the doorway. Standing in the frame with a deeply hurt expression is none other than Lord Seon himself, asking if his precious fluffball really intended to abandon him. Seon steps into the room with heavy steps, looking down at the little girl and asking why on earth she was planning to pack up and leave. Lowering her tiny head, Soya confesses that deep down she truly wants to stay, but felt she had no other choice to protect everyone's peace. The artist gives us a close-up of Soya's adorable, anxious face as she awaits the clan lord's reaction. Oh my gosh, is she gonna be okay? Seon's sharp features soften completely, filled with immense regret and tenderness for making her feel so insecure in his home. Seon steps closer, firmly reminding her that since he personally stole her away to this palace, she isn't allowed to change her mind and run off now. Soya looks up with innocent pink eyes, pointing out that when he brought her here, he explicitly said she could stay for now. Flustered, Seon stutters in a cold sweat, frantically denying that he ever said the words "for now." A flashback shows him saying those exact words, proving our legendary clan leader is getting caught lying to save face. Soya stares in utter disbelief, realizing that the terrifying, powerful Lord Seon is actually squirming in embarrassment like a tsundere dad. Seon feels a wave of guilt crashing over him, calling himself a foolish tiger for failing to make his little fluff ball feel truly cherished and safe. Kneel! In an incredible display of humility, the mighty ruler of the White Tiger clan drops down on one knee right in front of Soya's chair. Soya gasps in sheer terror, screaming out why a supreme lord is kneeling before her. Sayan softly apologizes, stating that he failed to give her proper reassurance and promises to never let her feel anxious again. Talk about peak father-daughter relationship goals. Ever wonder what happens when the most terrifying clan leader alive drops all his pride just to keep a precious little girl from crying? Right here, Lord Sayan stammers like a nervous first-time dad, promising Soya that he's going to do better and begging her to stay by his side forever. Look at that dramatic side profile view. The artist is pulling out all the stops to show the absolute inner turmoil of a legendary warrior, realizing that he almost lost his new daughter. Crouching down to her eye level, Se-yoon gently asks if she was genuinely disappointed in him, his eyes practically trembling with rare vulnerability as he waits for her response. Poor Soya clutches her hands in her lap, her eyes cast down in total guilt as she stammers out that she feels like a terrible person who stole a life meant for someone else. Instead of agreeing, Seon catches her completely off guard by declaring that the only person he's disappointed in is himself, causing Soya's ruby eyes to pop wide open in shock. Talk about an S-tier dad move. Soya's jaw drops as she stares at him, her tiny heart racing while she tries to process why this terrifying clan lord is taking all the blame on his own shoulders. Sitting right there on the floor like a humble protector, Seon softly tells her she hasn't done a single thing wrong, while Soya insists that he shouldn't be apologizing to someone like her. Soya squeezes her eyes shut, her voice trembling as she confesses the dark secret eating her up inside, that she feels responsible for stealing another girl's destiny and living a stolen life. A tragic memory flashes through her mind of poor Lily suffering on the cold floor while the elders blamed Soya for every single misfortune that fell upon the family. Seriously, those toxic elders deserve a one-way ticket to a dragon's lair. Before she can spin further into her trauma, Sion pulls her into a warm, fierce embrace, firmly asking how any of those terrible things could possibly be the fault of a helpless child. With a lethal glow in his blue eyes, Seon curses out the absolute trash parents who fed those vile lies to an innocent kid, his aura turning ice cold with righteous fury. A grim flashback reveals the moment the guards found Soya's tiny body covered in horrific scars, proving to everyone in the room that she was the victim all along. Sayan tenderly cradles her face, gently reminding her that she's only 9 years old and way smaller than other kids her age, so her only job right now is to let adults protect her. Big fat tears stream down Soya's red cheeks as those gentle words tear down every emotional wall she spent years building up to survive. Kneeling on the floor in front of her small chair, Sayon promises to show her what a real, loving world looks like, while Soya cries out in disbelief over someone finally standing up for her. Framing his handsome face with blossoming cherry blossoms, Sion drops the ultimate declaration, warm-heartedly asking her to officially become his daughter. Soya's eyes widen like giant pink moons, tears sparkling as the sheer weight of having a loving father finally hits her soul. Honestly, if you didn't shed a tear here, do you even have a heart? Cut to the hallway outside where Sion meets up with his trusty aide, Jukyoung, who smirks and teasingly congratulates his lord for finally making the adoption official. Sion looks out the window with a soft smile, admitting that maybe from the very first moment he brought this little fluffball into the palace, fate had already set this in motion. Sion starts chuckling like a proud dad, describing how cute Soya was when she sobbed earlier about not having sharp tiger teeth or claws like a real beast. I swear, this guy went from ruthless conqueror to overly enthusiastic father in under 5 minutes. Jukyoung raises an eyebrow with a fond grin, teasing his master for somehow managing to soothe the little girl's broken heart with his clumsy dad speeches. Flashing back to the adorable room conversation, Sion remembers teasing her about whether she really wanted a stubborn, wingless dad like him, which made Soya burst into another round of emotional tears. In a hilarious little chibi memory, young Master Gayun freaks out and screams for his dad because Soya started crying again, making Seon hold her in a frantic dad sweat. Back in reality, Jeok-young chuckles and expresses his genuine relief that everything worked out, seeing how much warmth this tiny fluffball brought into the gloomy palace. But as Jeok-young brings up the heavy duties of being a direct descendant, Seon's expression shifts into something far more serious and contemplative. Jeok-young reports the disturbing findings from High Priestess Sarah, confirming that the mysterious sachets were indeed infused with dark northern magic, raising major red flags about the Silver Tiger clan child. Seon narrows his eyes in deep thought, weighing the political mess that's about to unfold regarding the candidate line and the shady schemes behind it. A dark vision of Lady Seo and her greedy family appears in his mind, making Sayan question if forcing young kids into brutal rivalries for a political marriage candidate position was ever right to begin with. Turning to Jeok-young with a dangerous drop in his tone, Seon prepares to drop an absolute bombshell order that's going to send shockwaves through the entire realm. Pointing up at the clan banner, Seon flat out states that making innocent children fight over the title of Yellow Dragon's bride is a completely stupid and ridiculous tradition. He waves his hand dismissively, firmly declaring that ranking tiny kids based on political value is unnecessary and totally twisted. A bright, beautiful visual of Soya running happily with butterflies pops up, illustrating Seon's belief that children are meant to smile and enjoy their youth, not fight in adult games. Seon delivers the ultimate power move. He's officially abolishing the candidate selection custom permanently, proving that his clan is strong enough to stand without selling off little girls. Absolute Chad energy right here. Crossing his arms with a confident grin, the White Tiger Lord looks like a majestic king who just changed the entire political landscape with a single sentence. But his smile fades into mystery as he ponders how on earth Soy was the only person capable of detecting the faint scent of the yellow dragon inside the dark magical pouch. A mysterious aura fills the screen as a divine voice echoes that Soya's spirit core is fundamentally different from normal human beings. The stunning, white-haired High Priestess Sarah rests her chin on her hand, analyzing the strange magical phenomenon surrounding the child. Flashback to Sarah examining a sleeping Soya alongside Sayan, confirming that while Soya's spirit core hasn't fully matured yet, its potential is terrifyingly unique. A soft, ethereal light shines from Soya's chest as she slumbers peacefully, hinting that our little fluffball might actually possess god-tier hidden magic. The next morning, bright sunlight streams into the cozy bedroom, where little Soya rubs her sleep-filled eyes and struggles to wake up after such an exhausting day. Opening her eyes, she finds her loyal servant Yen and the handsome guard Jaho standing by her bedside with massive, suspicious grins plastered across their faces. With absolute excitement, Jaho proudly announces that Lord Seon has officially appointed him as Soya's personal bodyguard from this day forward. Soya's eyes sparkle with excitement as Yeon adds that top-tier tutors will be assigned to her right after the festival, promising to pamper her like a true princess. Sitting on her massive, comfy bed in chibi form, Soya feels totally overwhelmed by how drastically her life changed overnight from abused outcast to beloved young miss. Soya clutches her outfit near her heart, her cheeks turning bright pink as the thrilling reality sets in. She truly belongs to a real, loving family now. Later in the dining room, Soya sips her warm tea peacefully while Yen brings in a fresh tray of delicious food. Life is good. The peace is violently shattered when the energetic brown-haired Lady Orang bursts through the sliding doors, yelling at the top of her lungs about the crazy rumor she just heard. Young Master Ga-hyun and the cute tiger cub stroll in right behind her, cheerfully wishing Soya a good morning while completely ignoring Orang's chaotic entrance. The room immediately turns into a hilarious battleground as Ga-hyun smugly tells Orang to give up because Cotton Puff is living in the White Tiger Palace forever now. Lady Orang grabs Soya's hands with wide, frantic eyes, begging her to remember the promise she made to join the Brown Tiger clan instead. Talk about a high-stakes sibling custody battle over our adorable fluffball. Ga-hyun facepalms so hard you can hear the smack, scolding Ga-yeol for calling her Cotton Puff when her actual name is Soya, complaining that everyone just copies their dad. Before Ga-hyun can finish his rant, Orang snatches Soya into a bear hug, declaring Soya is her little sister now, leaving Ga-hyun standing there in utter disbelief. Look at this adorable side-by-side comparison. The artist literally had to drop a label reminding us that both of these chaos gremlins are actually 9 years old. When Ga-hyun points out they're the exact same age, Orang's soul leaves her body as she stammers in total denial, while Soya just gives an awkward little smile. Smirking like he just won a gold medal, Ga-yeon tells Arang to call both Soya and him her older siblings, triggering an absolute meltdown from the poor brown tiger. Turning back to Soya, Ga-yeon softens his tone, reassuring her that if her upcoming tutoring lessons get too tough, she can always rely on her awesome older brother. Standing over her desk like a proud mentor, Ga-yeon promises to teach her everything she needs to know, making Soya nervously stammer out her very first older brother. With a gentle smile that could melt glaciers, Ga-yeon chuckles and patiently corrects her pronunciation, encouraging her to try saying it again naturally. Soya covers her blushing cheeks in complete sensory overload. Seriously, going from an abused outcast to having a super caring brother is giving her major emotional whiplash. Right on cue, Ga-yeol barges in like a hyperactive puppy, demanding that Soya hurry up and call him older brother too before he misses out. With blossoms practically floating around her, Soya sweetly calls him Brother Yeol, making chibi Ga-yeol puff his chest out in pure, unadulterated pride. Ga-yeon gives him current ultimate deadpan stare, asking if he ran across the entire estate just for a nickname, which instantly wipes the memory clean from Ga-yeol's brain. Clearing his throat to restore order like the responsible eldest child he is, Ga-yeon gets back on track. Extending a polite hand to Soya, Ga-yeon warmly invites his new little sister to go pay their formal morning greetings to their father together as a family. Cut to Lord Seon sitting gracefully on his throne, wearing a smile so bright and peaceful you'd forget he's a feared martial arts warlord. Look at this wholesome family portrait. Soya surrounded by all three of her protective new siblings, looking like the happiest princess in the realm. The peaceful vibe gets interrupted when Jok-young walks in stacked high with paperwork, mentioning that High Priestess Sarah wants a quick word with little Soya. Bowing respectfully, Jok-young bids farewell to the young lords and ladies as they head out, leaving him alone in the room with the clan leader. Sayan rests his chin in his hand with a dreamy look, asking his aide if this warm, fuzzy feeling is what it actually feels like to have a daughter. Sayan smirks and teases Jok-young for being single without a daughter, but Jok-young slams the papers down, reminding his boss that he works 24/7 because of him. Instead of apologizing, Sayan cheekily blames Jok-young's lack of game, making a giant red anger vein pop on the poor aide's forehead. Jok-young delivers a fatal blow to Sayan's ego, teasingly noting that despite all his pride, Soya still seems pretty uncomfortable around her new dad. Sayan's eyes widen in shock as Jok-young points out that Soya still formally calls him Lord Sayan instead of father. Ouch! Right in the dead heart. A painful memory replay hits Seon's brain of Soya smiling brightly while addressing him as Lord Seon, sending him into an instant existential crisis. Desperately trying to cope, Seon claims she just needs time, but Jok-young ruthlessly points out she had zero problem calling the boy's older brother. Jok-young keeps twisting the knife, snickering that even Soya knows his personality is too intimidating, causing Sayan to literally huff and blow papers everywhere in rage. Papers scatter like confetti across the study as Jok-young screams at his master to stop throwing a temper tantrum like a 5-year-old child. Among the floating documents, a wanted poster lands on the desk, displaying a sketch of a dangerous masked operative involved in the recent dark magic plot. A dark flashback reveals that despite interrogating the Silver Tiger clan child, the mastermind behind the cursed sachets remains completely shrouded in mystery. An ominous vision appears of a high-ranking noblewoman adorned in golden headpieces and lace, hinting at a deep political conspiracy brewing in the background. Gathering the loose papers off the floor, Jok-young casually asks if they should also break the adoption news to Lady Changha. A striking shadow silhouette appears of Lady Changha, the mother of the young masters, while Jok-young notes they also need to send a message to young master Gaia, who's currently away fighting at war. Sayan gazes out the window with a sharp, serious expression, realizing that introducing Soya to the rest of the high nobility will be a whole different battlefield. Meanwhile, inside the tranquil temple room, sweet incense smoke rises peacefully from a golden burner. High Priestess Sarah kneels down to Soya's eye level, examining her floating spirit core and confirming that the restorative medicine is working wonders on her body. Sarah gently explains that frequent beast transformations would normally help heal her core faster, but acknowledges how terrified Soya is of losing control. Close up on Soya's ruby eyes glistening with curiosity as she listens to the priestess's every word. Reassurance shines on Sarah's face as she promises Soya that once her health stabilizes, her spirit core will undergo its first growth surge and unlock a hidden special ability. Soya's face lights up like a Christmas tree, her hands clutched tightly in sheer excitement over the news. But then, Sarah goes completely silent, stroking her chin while studying Soya with a mysterious gaze. Soya tilts her head, wondering if she said something wrong or if another secret is about to drop. A dramatic textual reveal drops on screen as Sarah softly requests that Soya call her aunt from now on. Soya stammers in utter shock, her hands trembling as she asks if an outcast like her is really allowed to address the high priestess so familiarly. Crossing her arms with a regal smirk, Sarah firmly states that since Soya is officially Seon's daughter, that makes her her niece. End of story. Sarah pouts playfully, asking if Soya only considers that rascal Seon as family, causing poor Soya to frantically shake her hands in panic. Tears of gratitude well up in Soya's eyes as she claps her hands together, realizing just how much love and warmth this whole clan is pouring into her life. Sarah chuckles softly at her adorable reaction, giving Soya a gentle nod of approval and permission to run along. Stepping out into the sunlit garden, Soya gazes up at the blue sky, sighing to herself about how overwhelming it is to learn all these new family titles. Crouching down on the lush green grass, Soya vows to practice hard so she doesn't disappoint anyone who's opening their heart to her. Ending on the most adorable note ever, Soya uses a little pebble to draw cute stick figures in the dirt, labeling aunt, brother, and nervously drawing a little sword-wielding father with a huge blush on her face. Fresh off her emotional conversation with the high priestess, Soya crouches down in the courtyard garden, completely lost in her own thoughts as the reality of her new life sinks in. Her heart races as she wonders if an outcast like her is truly worthy of calling a legendary martial arts lord father, still feeling that lingering self-doubt. Suddenly, a familiar furry paw interrupts her overthinking. Seolyo, the adorable black wolf pup, comes bounding out of nowhere with an energetic bark that instantly brightens the mood. Soya watches in complete awe as the little wolf uses his paw to carefully trace a giant circular shape right into the dirt at her feet. Seolyo lets out a proud little yip and flashes a satisfied grin, clearly expecting major praise for his masterpiece. Soya giggles softly while picking up a stick, teasing the pup that while he can write his name like a champ, his drawing skills are honestly a work in progress. Talk about harsh art criticism from a 9-year-old. Finishing up her own cute drawing in the soil, Soya softly thanks Seolyo, crediting him for helping expose the dark conspiracy and keeping everyone safe during the festival chaos. But before they can enjoy the moment, the air suddenly turns ice cold as Seolyo's ears perk up, letting out a low, menacing growl toward the nearby treetops. Leaves rustle unnaturally against the gentle breeze as Soya blinks in confusion, wondering if it's just a tiny bug or something far more dangerous lurking in the shadows. Hidden high among the thick branches, a masked assassin clad in dark green robes grips his dagger tightly, his sharp eyes locked onto little Soya below. Sensing immediate danger, Seolyo steps right in front of Soya, baring his fangs like a ferocious guard dog ready to protect his human at all costs. The assassin narrows his glare, revealing the cold, calculating eyes of a trained operative who clearly isn't here to play nice. An ominous flashback reveals his dark mission, a sinister command from the shadows ordering him to throw the 3 major clans into utter chaos so they can never produce the Golden Dragon's bride. Dark, shadowy chains twist around the memory as a high-ranking figure mocks the operative, questioning if he's truly loyal enough to the Black Tortoise clan to execute such a ruthless plot. Glaring down from the tree canopy, the assassin grinds his teeth in frustration, bitterly realizing that his supposedly foolproof plan was ruined entirely because of one random child. He can't even fathom how Soya managed to sniff out the hidden curse on the sachets in the first place, completely throwing a wrench into his grand conspiracy. With a dangerous glint in his eye, the intruder vows to investigate this mysterious fluffball further before making his next move. Fast forward to a lavish dining room filled with delicious food. Lord Sayon sits at the head of the table, officially announcing that Soya's name is now officially registered in the family books as Bake Soya. Flashing a dazzling, fatherly smile that could blind a sun, Sayon proudly tells her that from now on, she must proudly introduce herself to the world as his beloved daughter. Soya's entire face lights up with sheer joy as she enthusiastically agrees, cheering out a hearty, "Yes, Lord Sayon." She clutches her chopsticks with a soft, heartwarming blush, soaking in the overwhelming happiness of finally having a real family identity. Over on the side, hyperactive little Galil bounces out of his seat in excitement, bragging that he and Soya share the exact same surname now, while Gaeon tells him to sit down and stop talking nonsense. Stuffing a delicious meatball into his mouth, Gaeon deadpans that Galil's loud antics are probably going to scare Soya into running away. Man, these brothers have top-tier sibling banter. Seeing them bicker like a normal family brings the sweetest smile to Soya's face as she softly chuckles to herself. Gail smugly points out Soya's adorable reaction, boasting to his older brother that Soya is clearly thrilled to be part of the Bake family fold. Meanwhile, Sayan sits there sweating bullets, secretly panicking as he remembers his aide's brutal reminder that Soya still called him Lord Sayan instead of father. Ouch! The poor guy's heart is taking critical damage. The clinking of chopsticks and warm chatter fill the cozy dining room as the new family enjoys their morning feast together. Resting his chin gracefully, Sayan looks over at Soya with the gentlest gaze, clearly determined to earn her full trust and affection. He warmly asks if her first official day as a Bake family member is going smoothly, and Soya eagerly confirms that everyone has been incredibly sweet to her. Gathering her courage, Soya timidly speaks up, raising a gentle request regarding the little black wolf pup she brought along from the mountain. Sayan raises an eyebrow, instantly recognizing that she's referring to Seolyo, the fierce creature currently sticking to her side like glue. Soya passionately vouches for Seolyo, gushing about how smart and helpful he was during yesterday's crisis and pleading his case like a tiny lawyer. With wide, hopeful eyes, Soya asks if Seolyo can officially stay with them right here at the White Tiger Palace. Deep down, her heart pounds nervously. She's secretly terrified that Sayan might reject him because Seolyo is technically a demonic beast. But Sayan smoothly chuckles, revealing he already worked out a secret arrangement with the Indigo Wolf clan to let Seolyo pass as one of their clan children so nobody panics. Now that's what I call proactive parenting. Soya's jaw literally drops in utter delight as she beams with endless gratitude, thanking Lord Seon for being the ultimate savior. Gayul nearly chokes on his food, gasping in disbelief that Soya managed to tame a supposedly ferocious demonic beast without shedding a single drop of sweat. Soya humbly explains they just became best buddies, while Gahyun smirks, noting that the stubborn wolf doesn't care about anyone else in the world except Soya. Seon clears his throat to bring order back to the table, adjusting his posture to drop a major announcement. He reveals that the official succession ritual will be held during the upcoming Mountain God Festival instead of today. Standing tall, Seon proudly declares that the festival is the perfect stage to formally present Soya to all his vassals and the entire realm as his official daughter. When Soya asks if she really has to attend such a grand event, Sayan gives a reassuring nod, affirming that she is a core member of the Bike family now. Hearing this, Gayil enthusiastically cheers that everyone will finally get to witness Soya's beastification, which instantly causes Soya to freeze in pure terror. A dramatic shift hits the room as it's revealed that displaying one's beast form is a strict, mandatory requirement to participate in the festival. Soya lowers her head in deep distress, her cheeks turning pale as traumatic memories start flooding back into her mind. In a heartbreaking flashback, she remembers how her former abusive father realized she was a fake child right after her first failed beastification, leading to years of suffering. Noticing her panic, Sayan immediately softens his voice, reaching out to gently reassure her that if she's uncomfortable, she doesn't have to force herself to transform at all. Gayun suddenly shoves Gayul's head out of the frame with a hilariously blunt slap, stepping up to take the floor like the protective big brother he is. With a warm brotherly smile, Gahan vows that they brought her here to give her happiness, not burdens, promising to protect her from anyone who tries to force her into anything. Gahyun casually adds that he'll even scold their own father if he tries to push her, leaving Lord Seon sitting there completely dumbfounded in total comedic shock. Talk about top-tier family dynamics. Sitting back with the sweetest little smile on her face, Soya giggles softly as she finally lets the reality of her new family sink in. But as night falls over the grand White Tiger Palace, an eerie crimson glow bathes the silent courtyard, casting dark shadows over the ancient architecture. Deep in her sleep, Soya gets dragged right back into a heartbreaking nightmare, praying with all her heart to manifest a magnificent firebird beast form so her former father and brothers would finally love her. Poof! Instead of a majestic, mythical bird, her former transformation turned her into the fluffiest, roundest little chick you've ever seen. And the terrifying shadowed silhouettes of her abusive family glared down at her with pure disdain. Talk about absolute heartbreak, guys. In a terrifying flash of dark memory, her former father's brutal voice echoes out in rage as shadowy hands reach out to discard her like trash. Sobbing uncontrollably against the heavy wooden door, little Soya desperately cried out apologies to a man who never deserved her tears in the first place. She begged on her knees, promising that she'd try harder next time and become a proud firebird if he just wouldn't abandon her into the cold dark. Gasp! Soya bolts upright in bed, her eyes wide with sheer horror as cold sweat drips down her face, trapped in the lingering trauma of her past. Hearing her distressed gasp, little Celio hops right onto the mattress, letting out anxious whimpers as his ears droop in deep concern for his favorite human. Honestly, can we give this good boy an award already? Softening her pale face, Soya gently cradles the wolf pup's snout, reassuring him with a faint smile that it was just a silly bad dream and nothing more. Hugging Celio tightly against her chest, her mind heavy with anxiety, she admits to herself that she's still deathly afraid. What if calling Lord Scion father ends in the exact same painful rejection? Before she can spiral any further, rays of golden sunlight pierce through the clouds as the day of the Grand Mountain God Festival finally dawns. Towering white banners bearing the majestic white tiger emblem flutter proudly across the palace grounds, signaling the start of a massive realm-wide event. Inside her quarters, the maids get to work styling Soya's silver hair into the cutest double buns, while Soya blinks in awe at her crisp new traditional outfit. The head attendant proudly holds up a pure white outer robe featuring an exquisitely embroidered tiger crest, the exact same high-tier emblem worn on Lord Seon's iconic robes. As she helps Soya slip into the garment, the maid explains that every major noble family across the western lands has been invited, proving that Lord Salian is making a massive power play to announce Soya to the whole world. Pumped up with newfound motivation, Soya clenches her tiny fists with a fiery gaze. She's definitely ready to represent her new family. While adjusting Soya's sleeves, the maid casually drops a bit of ancient lore, asking if Soya knows the true origin behind why the festival takes place on Horam Mountain. She reveals that according to ancient legends, the entire Horam Mountain isn't just land, it's actually the physical, spiritual body of the ancient divine white tiger itself. An epic illustration shows a giant cosmic white tiger curled up asleep beneath the mountain ranges, causing Soya to instantly freak out in cute panic over the fact that she's been stomping all over the white tiger's back this whole time. Seeing her hilarious panic, the maid chuckles softly, assuring her that the ancient divine beast is far too massive and sturdy to care about a tiny 9-year-old's footsteps. The maid then leans in to share even deeper historical secrets that most commoners could only dream of hearing. Gorgeous ancient murals reveal the legend of the 4 sacred beasts, the azure dragon, vermilion bird, black tortoise, and white tiger, who fell into a deep slumber centuries ago. A glowing golden prophecy states that one day, the mythical golden dragon's bride will appear to reawaken the divine beasts and restore balance to the entire world. Okay, serious main character vibes building up right here. Cutting off her dramatic story hour, the maid flashes a cheeky grin, announcing that it's time to get down to the actual important stuff. She explains that while the other 3 divine beasts left behind powerful holy weapons like sacred swords, bows, and mirrors, the white tiger didn't leave a single relic behind when it went to sleep. Because of that, the Mountain God Festival originally started as a realm-wide treasure hunt to locate the white tiger's hidden artifact, though nowadays it's mostly a fun trial event for young beastkin. Finishing up her styling session, the maid ties snug leather arm guards onto Soya's wrists, making her look like a stylish little martial artist ready for action. Stepping out into the sunlit courtyard, Soya is greeted by her handsome silver-haired brother Gaeyun, who smiles warmly with a sleek sword strapped to his hip. Soya brightens up immediately, greeting brother Hyun and innocently asking where her other chaotic brother Gaeul ran off to. Swoosh! Out of nowhere, a firm hand reaches down and grabs someone right by the back of their collar. It's Lord Scion casually dangling a flailing miniature Gaeul in the air like an angry kitten. Scion deadpans that kids who haven't completed their first growth phase aren't allowed to walk up the mountain and must ride in a carriage, despite Gaeul's furious protests. This parenting style is top-tier hilarity. Scion turns towards Soya with the gentlest tone imaginable, pointing her toward her own personalized transport for the journey up the summit. Soya tilts her head in utter confusion as she steps closer to inspect the arrangement. She gasps in surprise upon seeing a massive, muscular brown wild boar hooked up to a lavish wooden carriage, realizing that actual wild beasts handle transportation around here. Being the absolute sweetest soul in existence, Soya gently pets the giant boar snout, politely asking Mr. Wild Beast to take good care of her today, while Ga-hyun watches with a fond smile. Growl! Suddenly a low, jealous rumble shatters the peaceful vibe, catching Soya completely off guard. Bark! Bark! Seolyo comes charging out of nowhere, having noticeably puffed up in size, and aggressively barks right in the boar's face to establish total dominance over Soya's attention. Poor Soya frantically waves her hands in adorable chibi panic, begging her dramatic wolf pup not to bully the terrified boar who is literally sweating bullets. Heavy, confident footsteps echo against the stone floor as a tall figure steps right into the middle of the chaotic scene. Lord Seon stands there with crossed arms and an amused smirk, admiring the wolf pump's feisty territorial attitude. With a calm smile, Seon reaches down and places a firm, soothing hand on Seolyol's head, deciding to smooth things over before a full-blown animal brawl breaks out. Tail wag intensifies. In a hilarious 180-degree shift, Seolyo instantly transforms into the happiest puppy ever, prancing around in circles with floaty hearts all around them. Sayan scratches the back of his neck with a wry chuckle, totally amused by how much personality this little demonic wolf actually has. Soya wraps her arms around Seolyol's neck as the fluffy wolf lovingly licks her cheek, celebrating their unbreakable bond. Thud, thud, thud. Paws blur through the lush green mountain trails as Seolyo personally pulls Soya's carriage at top speed through the sunlit forest. Feeling the cool wind rush through her hair, Soya closes her eyes with a serene expression, completely mesmerized by the beauty of nature. Gliding side by side along the trail, Ga-hyun rides along in the boar carriage just to keep Soya company so she won't feel lonely, while hyperactive Ga-il pouts in the corner. Sibling goals right here. Gazing out at the canopy, Soya reflects on how she used to run down dark mountain paths in absolute terror while fleeing Lady Seo's cruelty, making her appreciate this peaceful ride on Seolyo's back even more. Reaching the bustling mountain summit, Soya pets her loyal wolf as crowd whispers break out all around them, all eyes locking onto the white tiger emblem on her back as the realm realizes Lord Seon's newly adopted daughter has officially arrived. Whispers ripple through the surrounding crowd as onlookers eye the small girl, questioning her age and openly doubting how someone so tiny could possibly be 9 years old. Ignoring the judgmental gazes, Lord Seon steps forward and tenderly clasps her tiny hand in his own, radiating absolute warmth and reassurance. Seeing their father step up, Ga-hyun and little Ga-yeol beam with excitement, hyped up to witness their dad execute a high-stakes ceremonial dance that almost nobody ever gets to see. Little Soya's pink eyes light up like fireworks as she gazes toward the grand altar, her heart pounding with anticipation. Honestly, if this precious girl doesn't get a happy ending, we're rioting. Swoosh! Clad in spotless ceremonial robes with intricate silver embroidery, Seon readies himself for the sacred performance. With a solemn, razor-sharp focus, Seon draws twin ceremonial blades ornamented with golden bells, crossing the steel before his face as the crowd holds its collective breath. Ring, ring! Donning a terrifyingly stylized tiger mask, he bursts into a breathtaking ritual dance, spinning through the air with fluid, hypnotic grace. Talk about an absolute boss entrance. Clack! Seon strikes his final stance on the elevated stone altar, leaving Soya utterly spellbound with her mouth agape in pure wonder. Cheers! The entire assembly erupts into thunderous applause, completely mesmerized by the sheer majesty of the White Tiger clan leader. Standing tall beneath the grand White Tiger banner, Seon turns toward the audience, his presence commanding absolute respect across the summit. Gasp! Without missing a beat, Seon stoops down and effortlessly scoops little Soya right into his arms. Holding Soya proudly for the entire realm to behold, Seon introduces her as his legitimate child. I swear, the way he flexes his devotion as a proud dad is top-tier wholesome energy. Jaw-dropping shock paralyzes the surrounding nobles, who can barely process the fact that the terrifying Tiger Lord just formally adopted a tiny outsider. With the formal succession ritual officially complete, the grand announcer's voice booms across the courtyard to inaugurate the long-awaited Mountain God Festival.
Banners featuring the iconic white tiger crest flutter proudly against the clear blue sky as excitement reaches a fever pitch. Gathering all the young beastkin around a massive ceramic vessel called the Illusion Beast Jar, the host explains the rules. Whoever captures the most magical illusion beast will claim the prestigious title of Mountain King. But here's the catch. Harming any real living animal in the forest results in instant disqualification. You gotta appreciate a fantasy tournament that actually cares about wildlife protection laws. Whoa! A deep horn blast echoes through the clouds, signaling the official start of the hunt. The polished silver horn glints under the sunlight as energy surges through the crowd of eager participants. Pumped up to prove their worth, the young beastkin charge forward with fiery determination, each boasting that they'll take home the championship. Poof! Cloud puffs of magical transformation smoke detonate everywhere as the kids instantly shift into tiny, hilarious tiger cubs. Soya blinks in total bewilderment as fluffy little wild beasts sprint past her, leaving her feeling totally out of her depth. Crackle! Stepping out from the foliage, sweet big brother Gahyun rushes to Soya's side, warmly offering to team up for the hunt. Gahyun flashes a confident smile, reminding her that since he won the tournament last year, he's the ultimate mentor to guide her through her very first festival. Seriously, give this guy the Big Brother of the Year award already. Reassured by his gentle smile, Soya takes his hand, and together they venture deeper into the sun-dappled forest canopy. Rustle! Unbeknownst to them, a shadowy assassin crouches high in the branches above, snickering to himself now that Soya has finally left the heavily guarded palace grounds. The tension just spiked through the roof, guys. Unaware of the danger lurking overhead, Gahyun leads Soya into a peaceful glade, suggesting they start by hunting a tiny, manageable target first. Soya nods eagerly, though a small pang of guilt hits her heart when she remembers leaving her big wolf pup behind. Flashback to earlier, where Soya gently patted poor Sioyo's drooping head at the gate, promising to return with delicious treats after being told pets weren't allowed past the border. Gasp! Suddenly, Soya spots a glowing, magical illusion bunny nibbling softly on the lush grass nearby. Gahyun crouches down and whispers expert tips, telling her to sneak up quietly and pounce just like they were playing tag back at home. Tiptoe! Soya carefully creeps forward, her tiny hands poised to make her very first capture. Pounce! Soya dives for the bunny, but out of nowhere, a tiny striped tiger cub swoops in like a furry lightning bolt and snatches it right out from under her nose. Taunt! It's hyperactive little Gahyul in tiger form, gloating cheekily as he scampers off with the prize. Okay, that stealth steal was pure comedy evil. Tears! Poor Soya slumps onto her knees in total comical despair, looking utterly betrayed, while Gahyun sweat drops in background panic. Wanting to lift her spirits, Gahyun gestures toward a vibrant patch of golden flowers, quietly pointing out another hidden creature. Soya gasps in sheer delight, quickly clamping her hands over her mouth so she doesn't accidentally scare off her second chance. Sneak, sneak, she stealthily maneuvers through the tall grass toward the bright yellow petals. Poof! A cute little gopher pops its head up, and Soya slams both hands down, successfully capturing the illusion beast in a bright burst of magical smoke. Sparkle! Cheeks flush with pride, Soya squeals in excitement as Gahyun heartily applauds her first victorious catch. On a total roll now, Soya spots a fluffy illusion squirrel further up the path and decides to prove her independence by catching this one all on her own. Clap! She lunges forward and nabs the squirrel in record time, beaming like a true champion. Giddy with joy, Soya dashes through the woods to go show off her accomplishment to Brother Hyun. Rustle! But as she rounds a giant ancient tree, the distant sound of harsh voices catches her attention, causing her to freeze in her tracks. Behind the trunk, two elitist noble kids snicker maliciously, trash-talking Soya for being a nameless stray bird beastkin who can't even shift into a proper beast form. They go on to sneer that Lord Sayun must have manipulated the festival rules just to accommodate a useless child, striking Soya like a punch to the gut. The sheer audacity of these background kids is infuriating. Heart heavy with dark self-doubt, Soya trudges back toward Gahyun with her head hanging low. Clutching her robe tightly, she timidly asks Gahyun if Lord Sayan really altered the entire tournament's rules just because she lacks the ability to transform. Gahyun's warm expression instantly hardens into serious protection, reassuring her that whoever spreads such nonsense is completely full of it. As fiery orange feathers of trauma swirl through Soya's memory, recalling how her birth family discarded her like trash for not shifting, Ga-hyun places a firm hand on her shoulder, declaring that no matter what, she is his beloved sister and true family. Talk about an absolute emotional hook to open today's video. Ga-hyun grabs little Soya by the shoulders, eyes full of determination, as he straight up calls out her former toxic abusers, reminding her that true family never discards a child over something as silly as lacking transformation magic. Soya's big pink eyes immediately well up with tears because after surviving a childhood filled with literal abuse, hearing someone validate her like this hits right in the feelings. Sparkle, standing tall in the dappled forest sunlight, Ga-hyun vows to be an unbreakable shield that will protect her forever, proudly declaring that he is her real big brother now. Seriously, give this boy a medal already. In a hilarious chibi panel, Ga-hyun gets super hyped up, pumping Soya's spirits by insisting that together, they're going to show all those snobbish noble kids exactly what this brave little baby bird is made of. Snatch? Motivated to maximum levels, Soya dashes through the grass and tackles a magical deer illusion beast with top-tier athletic energy. Soya wipes off her brow with a triumphant giggle, realizing that's already her 5th capture of the festival tournament. But as the surrounding forest suddenly goes dead silent, she blinks in confusion, wondering if she accidentally wandered way off script. Standing alone on the vast green field, Soya figures it's time to retreat back toward Brother Hyun, but a sudden spine-chilling goosebump washes over her out of nowhere. Rustle! The canopy sways ominously as a tall, shadowy figure emerges from the dark forest line, like straight-up horror movie villain. Unmasking his menacing gaze, the mysterious assassin snickers, shocked that a little kid could actually detect his suppressed sorcery aura, before declaring that he's here to inspect her spiritual core by force. Gasp! Soya's heart drops straight to her stomach as trauma memories flood back, recognizing this killer as the exact same hitman from the Southern Realm who tried to execute her previously. Step, walking closer with a creepy, polite bow, the assassin greets the terrified girl as if they're old buddies catching up at a tea party. Talk about absolute villain audacity. Soya freezes in place, her tiny fists trembling violently as pure terror paralyzes her legs. Honestly, where is the main boss, Lord Scion, when you actually need him? The assassin casually strokes his own throat with a sick smirk, mocking how humans are always so obsessed with physical appearances in surface-level bodies. Swoosh! Before the killer can take another step toward Soya, a gleaming steel blade slices through the air as Ga-hyun leaps into the fray, shouting at the intruder to freeze. Shing! Holding his sword in a flawless defensive stance, Ga-hyun boldly introduces himself as Baek Ga-hyun, second prince of the White Tiger clan, demanding to know who dared step onto their sacred territory. The assassin merely smirks behind his mask, casually admitting that bumping into a high-tier noble child complicates his original hit list, but his sinister smile says he doesn't mind a bonus round. Creepy! Glaring at Ga-hyun with predatory eyes, the hitman mutters that the young prince's physical body looks like a pretty sweet replacement shell, terrifying Ga-hyun to his absolute core. Clang! The assassin lunges with lightning speed, unleashing a deadly red energy strike that Ga-hyun barely manages to block in a shower of brilliant sparks. Sweat drips down Ga-hyun's cheek as the raw impact force vibrates through his arms, proving this guy isn't just your average rogue mercenary. Thud, Ga-hyun's mind races in sheer panic, realizing that despite training under top-tier masters and sparring against his legendary father, this opponent's unnatural bloodlust operates on a completely twisted level. Glowing with a terrifying crimson aura, the assassin spins his blade with casual ease, clearly enjoying every second of psychological torture. Grit, shaking off the fear, Ga-hyun clamps his jaw shut and tightens his grip on the hilt, refusing to break down when his sister's life is on the line. Swing! Steel strikes steel in a rapid-fire clash of sonic blasts, with Ga-hyun knowing that a single microsecond lapse in concentration means curtains for both of them. High above the grassy ridge, the two swordsmen engage in a high-speed, lethal duel while little Soya watches in absolute horror. Man, the action choreography in this panel is legit anime movie quality. Spark! Spark! Blades collide at blinding velocity, leaving streaks of yellow and red light cutting across the open sky. Slash. Gathering every ounce of sword intent, Gaeyin executes a brilliant counterstroke, driving a clean diagonal slash straight across the assassin's chest. Gaeyin lowers his sword, panting heavily as the dust settles, his muscles burning from the intense adrenaline rush. Turning back to Soya with a gentle look, Gahyun takes her hand, softly telling her that they need to hurry back to where Lord Sion and the guards are stationed. Gasp! But Soya's eyes dilate in utter horror as a gross, pitch-black shadow pool creeps along the ground right behind her brother's boots. Crackle! Instead of collapsing, the assassin's slouch body bends at a sickening angle, chuckling darkly that the young white tiger prince actually put up a surprisingly decent fight. Snap! Horrifying glowing red fractures rip across the killer's skin as dark demonic energy leaks out, revealing that his human body was just a vessel he's ready to discard for a fresh target. Gaeyin spins around in total shock, his face going completely pale as he realizes they aren't dealing with a human assassin at all. Scream! Ripping apart the human suit from the inside out, a gigantic, grotesque shadow demon with multi-jointed spider legs explodes into the air. Roar! The nightmare creature transforms into a massive, saliva-dripping black bear beast with rows of razor-sharp fangs radiating pure malice across the glade. Gaeyin stammers in absolute panic, recognizing this ancient, forbidden horror as a chaos entity, wondering how on earth such an evil abomination managed to breach the Western Domain's border. Towering over the two kids, the monstrous chaos bear sneers that now that its true identity is exposed, neither of them will be leaving this forest alive. Gross! The demon's jaw unhinges to an impossible angle, sprouting a nest of squirming, red-eyed serpent tentacles directly from its throat. Okay, who brought Lovecraftian body horror into my wholesome webtoon fantasy? Shoot! The serpent tentacles whip forward at terrifying speeds, swooping down directly for little Soya. Time slows to a crawl as Gahyun's eyes flare with raw, unfiltered desperation. Bam! Without a second thought, Gahyun dives straight into the danger zone, throwing his body over Soya as the demonic tentacles smash directly into his back. Thud! Tumbling onto the grass, Gahyun shields the trembling girl under his arms, gritting through the agonizing pain while telling her to stay right behind him no matter what. Looking up from the grass, Soya stares at the magnificent white tiger crest embroidered on the back of Gahyun's robes, which suddenly begins to burst with blinding divine light. Flash! Soya gasps in sheer amazement as brilliant surges of spiritual energy erupt around her big brother, signaling the awakening of his true beast form. Roar! With a thunderous shockwave that shakes the entire mountain, Gahyun fully manifests into a majestic, full-sized white tiger with glowing sapphire eyes. Flashback time! Soya remembers sitting on Lord Sayan's lap, listening to him explain that tigers don't fly because they don't have wings, making her assume all tigers were just cute house cats. Cute! She used to picture all tiger beastkin as tiny, round, chubby plushies playing around the palace courtyard. Boom! Cut back to reality, where the massive adult white tiger charges forward like an unstoppable freight train, leaving the chaos beast stunned that a kid already completed his first major growth evolution stage. Crash! Leaping into the air, Tiger Gaeyin tackles the gigantic monster straight onto the dirt, bellowing in primal rage for daring to touch his precious little sister. The dark beast taunts him right back, sneering that letting his emotional anger drive him proves he's still just an inexperienced pup, prompting Gaeyin to roar back in absolute fury. Explosion! Dark tendrils clash against sacred tiger claws in a chaotic burst of red and white aura, leaving the ultimate fate of our young heroes hanging by a razor-thin thread. Screaming in total agony, little Soya watches her big brother take a devastating hit right before her eyes. Talk about high stakes right off the bat. If you thought this webtoon was going to be all rainbows and sparkles today, think again. With her heart pounding, Soya reaches down and grabs hold of Gaehyun's sword, determined not to freeze up while her brother is in danger. Shing! The sound of steel unsheathing echoes through the clearing as she pulls it free. Whack! Soya frantically hits at the slimy, dark tendrils wrapped around Tiger Gaeyin, desperately crying out for the dark magic to let her brother go. Thump, thump, Gaehyun's glowing blue eyes flicker as dark veins spread across his body, realizing this isn't just standard dark magic choking him out. It turns out those dark tendrils were carrying lethal snake venom. The shadowy serpents loom right behind him, injecting deadly toxins directly into his body. Honestly, using venom against a tiger beastskin? That is such a cheap shot villain tactic. Cough! A splatter of dark blood sprays across the grass as Ga-hyun's massive tiger body collapses under the lethal force of the poison. Thud! Soya drops to her knees beside his massive tiger form, tears streaming down her cheeks as she realizes her brave big brother is completely incapacitated. Wheezing through the excruciating pain, Tiger Ga-hyun urges Soya to run away and save herself while she still has a chance. Man, even when he's literally dying of snake poison, he's still acting like the ultimate protective big bro. Step, step, the grotesque shadow bear saunters over with a terrifying smirk, bragging about how pleased his master will be once he steals Ga-hyun's powerful body. Drooling with pure malice, the monster admits his master holds a massive personal grudge against the White Tiger clan, making this whole hit job extra sweet for him. Bam! Stepping directly between the monster and her fallen brother, Soya holds her hand out and shouts at the giant demon beast to leave Ga-hyun alone. Look at this tiny brave girl standing up to a giant horror monster. Give her all the respect in the world. Standing her ground on trembling legs, Soya raises the massive sword with both hands, shielding Ga-hyun's entire tiger body behind her tiny frame. The shadowy bear sneers down at her, cackling in utter disbelief that a helpless little girl would dare put herself in harm's way for a beast of a completely different species. Shock, the monster taunts her, asking how on earth a winged creature and a tiger could ever consider each other real family, sending a chill straight through Soya's heart. Shadows fall over Soya's face as the monster's cruel words ring through the quiet glade, but she refuses to back down even an inch. Tears fill her eyes as she remembers the warmth of her brother's promises, recalling how they explicitly assured her that different species can absolutely be true family. Flashback panels melt into the background as Soya remembers Ga-hyun promising to be her shield and protect her for the rest of his life. Seriously, who's cutting onions in here? Determination. Clenching her jaw, Soya's pink eyes ignite with an unyielding fire as she locks eyes with the terrifying demon. Swoosh! The serpent tendrils coil above her head, ready to strike down and crush both kids into dust. Soya knows her spiritual veins are weak and that she lacks proper beastkin magic, meaning under normal circumstances, fighting a high-level chaos beast is absolute suicide. Roar! The shadow monster lunges forward, mockingly inviting her to try and stop him if she thinks she actually stands a chance. But Soya closes her eyes and focuses every ounce of her soul into the sword hilt, refusing to abandon the boy who gave her hope when she had nothing left. Swing! As the deadly snake tendrils dive toward her, Soya remembers the core definition of family. True loved ones never give up on each other, no matter what. Flash, a blinding surge of brilliant pink and magenta spiritual energy erupts from the sword, illuminating the entire forest in a brilliant flash of light. Now this is what we call an epic main character awakening scene. Pink light swirling around her like a cosmic hurricane, Soya pours every drop of her life force into the blade to protect her brother. Suddenly, the overwhelming pressure of the shadow beast vanishes, making Soya open her eyes in complete bewilderment as the environment turns soft pink. Crackle! The giant shadow bear freezes in place, stammering in total panic as an ancient, terrifying force suddenly descends upon the battlefield. Silence! The wind completely stops blowing, the sound of rustling leaves freezes, and time itself seems to lock in place across the entire realm. Frozen, the massive black monster is suspended midair in a completely static state, looking like a giant ice sculpture, while Soya blinks in total confusion. Rumble! High above the frozen sky, colossal glowing white beast paws manifest through the clouds, crushing the atmospheric pressure under immense divine weight. Soya gazes up at the massive spectral claws in awe, realizing this isn't just a simple illusion beast created by tournament magic. Glimmer! Piercing through the starlit void, a majestic, ethereal entity descends, the true ancient divine white tiger spirit in all its legendary glory. Floating gracefully above the frozen battlefield, the divine tiger gazes down at Soya, praising her for awakening its ancient power. Smile! With glowing sapphire eyes and cosmic starlight surrounding its fur, the celestial tiger smiles down warmly at the brave little girl who risked everything for her family. What an unbelievable cliffhanger to end on!